The night at Lotus Court is deceptively quiet. Within the serene gardens, a sinister plot is already in motion. A mysterious hand creeps through the door, signaling a major security breach. Princess Su Luo snaps awake, immediately sensing something is off. She sits up, wondering if her ears are playing tricks on her. Her heart starts racing as she hears movement in the shadows. Suddenly, a random dude is standing right in her room. Internally, she scoffed. Who does this guy think he is, breaking in like he owns the place? She demands to know who he is. The intruder just stares her down with a creepy, intense look. Su Luo isn't having it and asks what he's doing in her home at this hour. The intruder closes in, hinting he's there for a midnight visit with the princess. She threatens to scream if he doesn't leave immediately. He claims he's just doing a job and tells her to play nice so nobody gets hurt. Su Luo's eyes narrow, knowing she's being blindsided. She suddenly blasts him with a face full of mystery spray. The guy catches a face full of "get lost" and screams in pain as it hits his eyes. Su Luo bolts, screaming for help at the top of her lungs. She reaches for the exit, desperate to escape this creep, but the guy recovers and muzzles her before she can get out the door. He tells her to shut it, looking totally unhinged. He laughs, claiming no one is coming to save her. Su Luo struggles, but he's got her pinned against him. He whispers that she should save her energy for what they're about to do. This absolute weirdo admits being with the prince's woman has been a fantasy of his. He makes a gross comment about her still being a beauty even after having a kid. He pins her hands down, getting way too comfortable. He claims the prince has ignored her and he can give her what she truly desires. Suddenly, the guy realizes something is very wrong. He starts itching like crazy, wondering why he's reacting this way. Su Luo sees her chance and prepares to strike back. She delivers a brutal kick that sends him flying across the room. She keeps crying for help, hoping someone actually hears the commotion. Footsteps approach, but it's not a friendly guard. Someone arrives with a heavy clomp that spells certain doom. It's Prince Yunchen, looking like he's ready to end someone's career. Behind him, a girl named Miao Miao acts shocked, but it's giving major fake friend energy. The prince's glare is cold enough to freeze hell. Su Luo realizes how bad this looks, caught in 4K with another man in her room. Yunchen demands to know what the heck happened in this room. Su Luo tries to explain, but the intruder pulls her back into the drama. The creep falls to his knees, begging the prince for forgiveness. He shamelessly lies, claiming Su Luo ordered him into her room for a secret hookup. Su Luo calls him a liar, refusing to let her reputation be dragged through the mud. The prince and Miao Miao just stand there, judging the situation. He walks closer, looking for any excuse to believe the worst. He notes her messy clothes and draws the most toxic conclusion possible. He grabs her chin, forcing her to look at him. She maintains she's done nothing wrong, but he's not buying it. He hesitates, his anger clearly winning over his logic. Miao Miao adds fuel to the fire, questioning why the man would lie to them. The prince decides to trust his eyes over her words. Su Luo is forced to kneel, her dignity hitting rock bottom. Yin Chen calls for a specific device to be brought in. The guards move fast while the prince turns his back on her. She begs him to believe her, grabbing his robes in desperation. A guard brings a tray of wooden sticks meant for finger torture. The prince says her adulterous hands must be punished for touching another man. She clenches his robes, terrified of what's coming. He coldly orders the guards to apply the device at once. Miao Miao watches with a hidden smirk, loving every second of this disaster. Then she fake begs the prince to stop, which only makes him angrier at Su Luo. He looks at her, questioning the meaning of her intervention. He tells her to stand up and stop begging for mercy on the traitor's behalf. Su Luo whispers that she truly didn't do it. The device is tightened and the pain is unimaginable. She trembles, her spirit breaking. She keeps repeating that nothing happened to that man. The guards realize she's losing consciousness. Su Luo finally collapses onto the floor, completely spent. Suddenly, we cut to a peaceful sky filled with cherry blossoms. A voice tells Luo to look at the stars. It's a flashback of her and the prince being a total power couple. She points out a shooting star, looking genuinely happy for once. The star flashes across a beautiful night sky. He looks at her with real affection, calling her name. They share a romantic moment under the trees, but the dream turns into a nightmare as her eyes flutter. She wakes up in a panic. A demonic wolf lunges at her in her vision, ending the dream. Su Luo snaps awake, her hands wrapped in bandages. Suddenly, a little voice calls out for mommy. It's the young prince Yin Min, looking absolutely devastated by her state. Su Luo regains her composure and tells him not to cry. The kid asks who hurt her and promises to get revenge. She lies, saying she just slipped and fell. Minner blows on her bandages to make the pain go away. She gives him a sad smile, pretending it doesn't hurt. They sit together in the quiet room. Her maid Chun Ying rushes in, relieved she's finally awake. Chun Ying is clearly stressed out by the whole ordeal. Su Luo looks pale and exhausted. The maid tells her to rest while she goes to find a doctor. The situation goes from bad to worse as Dr. Liu checks Su Luo's pulse and finds her hands are absolutely wrecked. He breaks the news that her recovery is going to be a long, painful road involving daily bandage changes. But there's a massive plot twist. Since she's officially eating for two again, she needs to stop stressing and start taking walks to keep the baby healthy. The doctor packs his gear, promising to leave a special nutrient formula for the fetus while Su Luo processes the shock. Internally, she's reeling from the news, but she manages to offer a polite thank you to the physician. Little Minner is absolutely losing it with excitement, asking if this means he's finally getting promoted to big brother status. Su Luo gives him a gentle smile, confirming that he's indeed going to be a big brother soon. The kid starts celebrating like he just won the lottery, shouting his new title at the top of his lungs. Chun Ying enters the room to help her mistress, mentioning how Minner has been her personal bodyguard for the last few days. Su Luo is completely blindsided by the fact that she's been unconscious for 3 whole days. As Ying starts cleaning the blood off her mistress' hands, she mentions how worried everyone was. The pain is so sharp that Su Luo can't help but flinch, her face twisting in agony. Ying immediately drops to her knees, begging for forgiveness for her clumsiness. Minner is right there too, his eyes welling up as he asks if his mommy's hands are hurting too much. Su Luo tries to play it cool, telling Ying to stand up and stop being so dramatic. She waves her hand dismissively, telling the boy that the doctor's treatment is already doing its magic. Minner isn't buying the "I'm fine" act for a second, looking at her mangled fingers with pure heartbreak. Su Luo realizes she needs some space to think, so she tells her son to go get some rest with Ying. They head out, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Internally, she's short-circuiting, wondering who in the world would frame her after she spent 4 years staying out of everyone's way. The next day at Lotus Court, the sun is shining, but the vibes are still rancid. Ying brings in some goji berry porridge, begging Su Luo to eat something since she's been fasting involuntarily for days. Su Luo tries to sit up on her own, but her body is screaming at her. Ying goes into full helicopter maid mode, telling her to stay absolutely still. She insists that Su Luo shouldn't even think about using her hands and helps her sit up. Su Luo's first priority is her son, asking where Minner is. Ying sets the bowl down, explaining that the little prince already ate and is currently knocked out for a nap. She starts feeding Su Luo 1 spoonful at a time, telling her she needs to focus on her own survival for once. Su Luo looks at her loyal maid, acknowledging that the last few days must have been a total nightmare for her too. Ying wipes her mistress's face, refusing to accept any gratitude because to her this is just what family does. A quick flashback shows a young Su Luo protecting a tiny Ying in the Su Kingdom years ago. Su Luo has always treated her more like a sister than a servant. Ying is clearly ride or die, declaring her eternal debt to the princess. Su Luo tries to flex some independence, telling her she doesn't need to be treated like a helpless victim. Ying ignores the sass and tucks her back into bed, insisting on rest. She prepares to leave, telling Su Luo to call her if she needs anything at all. Just as she reaches the door, Su Luo stops her. She gives a strict order. Her father must never find out about the torture and the framing drama. Ying nods, promising to keep the secret safe. Once alone, Su Luo stares at the ceiling, wondering if her father is even staying healthy. Her expression is full of regret as she thinks back to simpler times. She misses the man who tried to warn her about her life choices. Flashback to 4 years ago at the Su Palace. The estate was peaceful and grand. A younger, energetic Su Luo comes running through the halls. Her mother and the maids greet her, noting she's finally back from the herbal canyon. Su Luo is in a rush, asking where her father is because she has urgent news. The scene shifts to her father, who is absolutely losing his mind over the name Yin Chen. He calls the guy selfish, arrogant, and a straight-up danger to society. He tells his daughter that he's not going to let her fall for the prince's act. Su Luo stands her ground, claiming that Yin Chen is actually a sweetheart and that they're in deep love. She argues that she's been the perfect daughter her whole life and deserves to make her own choice. Her father says he won't pick her husband for her, but he has one rule: anyone but Yin Chen. Su Luo's stubbornness on another level, declaring Yin Chen is the only man for her. Her father hits his breaking point and tells her to shut her mouth. He orders the guards to lock her in her room and let nobody in. The guards move into position as the family drama explodes. The palace stays quiet for a while, but the tension is thick. Su Luo decides to go on a full hunger strike, leaving her meals untouched. After 2 days of her not even sipping water, the maids start panicking. Her mother eventually snaps, physically attacking her father and accusing him of trying to kill their only daughter. The dad finally folds under the pressure of his wife's fists, giving up the fight. He sighs, wondering when his little girl became such a stubborn headache. Fast forward to the wedding night at Prince Chen's residence. The party is popping, with guests toasting to the prince and his goddess-like bride. Inside the room, Su Luo sits in her red wedding robes, waiting for her husband. She's blushing, thinking their happily ever after is finally starting. Suddenly, Ying bursts in, looking like she just saw a ghost. Su Luo is confused, asking what could possibly be so terrible on her wedding night. Ying hesitates, looking like she's about to throw up. Su Luo demands to know what's going on. She lifts her veil, revealing her stunning bridal makeup, only to hear the ultimate betrayal. Ying reveals that Prince Chen is already in the arms of another woman. Back in the present, the moon hangs over Lotus Court. The palace looks lonely in the dark. Su Luo thinks about how all her dreams for this marriage died 4 years ago. She sheds a single tear, wishing she could just wake up from this nightmare. Suddenly, she hears someone tiptoeing into her room. She looks up to see Prince Yin Chen standing over bed. She's caught off guard, wondering what he's doing there after everything he's put her through. He stares at her with those cold, judgmental eyes. Su Luo sits up, her face a mask of exhaustion. Yin Chen's gaze falls on her bandaged hands, clearly seeing the results of his orders. Su Luo tries to plead her case one more time, insisting she has always been faithful. Yin Chen has zero patience left and barks at her to stop talking. He looks down at her with pure disgust. He gives her a royal command. From now on, she has to treat his concubine as an equal. Su Luo is absolutely disgusted, especially since she knows exactly who he's talking about. He accuses her of ruining their marriage with her affair, and claims she has no right to complain about him taking a concubine. Su Luo looks at him, her heart completely breaking at his lack of trust. Internally, she's spiraling, wondering how she can ever make him believe the truth when he's so blinded by lies. Yin Chen isn't interested in her feelings, looking at her with total contempt for her insolence. He delivers the final blow, officially confining her within the walls of Lotus Court before turning his back on her and walking out. The vibes at the Camellia Pavilion are currently at an all-time low as Su Luo remains confined to her room. From the outside, the Lotus Court looks like a peaceful retreat, but the reality is much darker. Loyal maid Chun Ying enters the room, announcing it's time to deal with the physical aftermath of Su Luo's recent punishment. As she begins to unwrap the bandages, the silence in the room is deafening. Su Luo looks completely checked out, just trying to survive another day in this toxic environment. Chun Ying suddenly pauses, her heart sinking at what she sees. She's absolutely horrified, looking like she's ready to crash out on whoever did this. She can't believe the prince would treat his own wife like a common criminal. Su Luo just looks away, her spirit clearly flickering. As the rest of the bandages come off, the true extent of the damage is revealed. Su Luo's hands are a mess of swelling and bruising, looking like they were caught in a hydraulic press. Chun Ying finally snaps, yelling about how the prince is a straight-up monster for letting this happen. Internally, Su Luo sighed, "Save your breath, girl, he's not listening." Out loud, she just quietly tells her maid to stop talking about the prince like that before they both get in more trouble. Fast forward a few weeks, and things have calmed down just a tiny bit at the pavilion. Su Luo is finally back on her feet, looking elegant as she rubs her growing baby bump while watching her son play. Little Yin Min has zero chill and comes sprinting toward her, shouting for his mommy. He gives her sleeve a solid yank, looking up with those puppy dog eyes because he wants to go fly a kite. Chun Ying thinks this is a great idea, noting that the weather is perfect for a little sunshine therapy. She points out that some fresh air would be a total win for the new baby too. Su Luo can't say no to that face, so she agrees to take her sweet boy out for some fun. Yin Min is basically vibrating with excitement as he prepares to launch his kite into the sky. He's the picture of pure joy, completely oblivious to the palace drama surrounding them. But the fun is cut short when they reach the exit and are immediately blocked by guards. Chun Ying isn't having it and gets right in their faces, demanding to know why they're being stopped. The guard doesn't budge, keeping his posture stiff and professional. Su Luo has to step in and tell her maid to keep it polite. While the guard explains they're just following the prince's strict orders. Su Luo realizes something is up and asks if there's some kind of chaos happening outside the walls. The guard plays dumb, claiming he has no idea what's going on in the rest of the city. Seeing the brick wall they've hit, Su Luo decides to just take the L and head back inside. Poor Yin Min is absolutely crushed, looking like his whole world just ended because of a kite. Su Luo hates seeing him like this and calls him over. He's pouting hard, but Su Luo's brain is already working on a backup plan. She leans in and whispers a secret proposal to her son. His face lights up instantly because apparently hide-and-seek is the ultimate consolation prize. He scampers off into the pavilion, jiggling his head off. Su Luo and Chun Ying share a rare moment of genuine laughter watching him go. But as soon as the kid is out of sight, Su Luo's expression goes dark as she wonders why the prince has turned her home into a literal prison. Later that night, the rest of the prince's residence is popping off with a massive fireworks display. The courtyard is filled with people celebrating, and the gossip mill is running at full speed. The guests are whispering about how the prince only keeps his concubine Meow Meow around because she's a carbon copy of her sister Ruer. Su Luo watches the festivities from a distance, looking like a ghost at her own party. Chun Ying drapes a cloak over her shoulders to keep the chill away, but Su Luo is already frozen by what she overheard. The name Ruer hits her like a physical blow, and she quickly sends Chun Ying away to make a snack for Minner just to be alone with her thoughts. Chun Ying agrees and heads out, leaving Su Luo to spiral. Standing in the sunset, Su Luo is hit with a massive wave of PTSD. She remembers the exact moment that name first ruined her life. It was the night right after their wedding. In the flashback, the night is dark and full of bad omens. A servant is trying to be helpful by bringing the prince some soup, but the vibes are already rancid. Yin Chen staggers into the frame, looking absolutely wasted and dangerous. He has zero patience and smashes the tray out of the servant's hands, screaming for everyone to get out. Back in the room, a younger Su Luo hears the crash and asks Chun Ying to check on the commotion. Suddenly, the door creaks open as Yin Chen storms in. Su Luo quickly rises to greet her new husband, but he is not in a romantic mood. He looks at the maids with pure venom and barks at them to leave immediately. The poor girls don't need to be told twice and scamper away as fast as their legs can carry them. Yin Chen draws near, and before Su Luo can even process what's happening, he pins her. He grabs her by the throat in a terrifying chokehold, hissing that tonight is the night he gets his revenge. Su Luo is struggling for air, gasping out a confused question. Who is Ruer? This only makes him angrier, and he tightens his grip, accusing her of faking innocence. Su Luo is literally fighting for her life on her own wedding night. Finally, he loosens his hand just enough for her to breathe, sneering that death would be too easy for her. He leans in with a sadistic smirk, promising to turn her entire existence into a living hell. He towers over her as she collapses, coughing and gasping on the floor. He pulls her back up by the arm, declaring that since she killed his precious Ruer, he will stop at nothing to destroy her. Su Luo can only scream for him to stop, her world shattering before it even began. Back in the present, Su Luo is left reeling from the memory, wondering how everything escalated so fast. She stares into the night, questioning how they ended up in this toxic cycle of hate. She stands there shivering, the weight of the past feeling heavier than ever. Suddenly, the sound of "Mommy, Mommy" breaks her out of the dark thoughts. She quickly wipes away her tears, putting on her strong mom mask. She greets her sweet boy, who is wondering why she's still awake and demands to sleep in her bed. Chunying smiles, noting that the little prince simply won't settle down without his mom nearby. Su Luo gives him a gentle pat, promising to sing him a lullaby to help him drift off. As she tucks him in, she tries to convince herself that no matter how bad today was, there's always a tomorrow to fight for. While the sun beats down on the palace, Su Luo is busy prepping a massive stash of medicinal herbs to aid her recovery. Her maid, Chunying, is just glad to see the princess finally getting some much-needed vitamin D after being cooped up. Su Luo continues to fiddle with the dried plants, her mind sharp and focused on survival. Even though her situation is dire, her eyes remain calm and calculating. Suddenly, a voice drips with fake concern, announcing a surprise visit. It's the prince's favorite concubine, Meow Meow, showing up with her handmaid just to stir the pot. Internally, Meow Meow is already laughing, thinking, let's see how this loser is holding up after the prince completely ghosted her. Su Luo isn't buying the act and bluntly asks what business she actually has here. The air turns ice cold as the two women stare each other down. Meow Meow reaches out to grab Su Luo's hand, pretending they're besties. With a smug grin, she prepares to drop a massive flex. She claims she wanted to visit sooner, but things have been difficult. Touching her neck dramatically, she reveals that her pregnancy has been keeping her incredibly busy. She goes on a full-blown yap session about how the prince is constantly visiting her, forcing her to take medicine, and worrying about her stress levels. She caps off the performance by asking for forgiveness with a look that says she's already won. Su Luo's reaction, absolute zero. This sends Meow Meow into an internal spiral because she expected a mental breakdown, not a blank stare. She tries to bait Su Luo, asking if she's actually angry. She even has the audacity to say she doesn't want to steal the prince's affection and calls Su Luo sister. Acting troubled, she continues to brag about how the prince simply won't leave her side. Then she takes a low blow, mocking Su Luo for having a child out of wedlock and ignoring tradition. Su Luo just stares back, unimpressed by the level 1 drama. Su Luo finally snaps back, asking if this is really how a concubine should behave in front of a princess. Meow Meow tries to play the "it's hard to kneel while pregnant" card to skip protocol. She offers a half-hearted bow, still calling Su Luo's sister to get under her skin. Su Luo shuts that down immediately, reminding her that she's an only child. With a sharp look, she asks if Meow Meow should be punished for this blatant breach of etiquette. The pressure is on, and Meow Meow realizes she's being cornered. Panicking, the concubine offers a fake plea for forgiveness. She drops to the ground in a full kowtow, but internally she's screaming that Su Luo will pay for this. Her face is contorted with pure rage as she hits the stone floor. Meanwhile, Su Luo watches with a satisfied smirk, knowing she still holds the rank. But the drama is just getting started because Prince Yin Chen suddenly storms into the courtyard. He demands to know who is ignoring his orders as he approaches the group. The entire courtyard goes silent as the power dynamic shifts. He looks down and asks Meow Meow why on earth she's on the ground. This is Meow Meow's cue to go full White Lotus. She acts relieved and claims Su Luo forced her down. She starts tearing up, acting like she's in physical pain. Trembling, she asks the prince to help her, playing the victim perfectly. Yin Chen loses and screams her name in concern. The servants start shouting for help as the scene turns into a chaotic mess. Yin Chen rushes to her side, cradling her like she's made of glass. He barks orders to get a doctor immediately. Then, he turns his glare toward Su Luo, demanding to know how she dares to torment his pregnant woman while he's away. Su Luo is blindsided, barely able to get a word in. Yin Chen vows that if anything happens to them, Su Luo will pay the ultimate price. He then picks up Meow Meow and carries her away, leaving Su Luo standing in the dust. A guard stays behind to deliver the final blow. He informs the princess that the prince has ruled Meow Meow no longer has to show her respect. To make matters worse, he's reassigning all the servants from Su Luo's court to go serve the concubine instead. Su Luo realizes she's being completely isolated. Chunying is devastated, pointing out that Su Luo did nothing to deserve this. Su Luo, ever the pragmatist, just looks at her herbs. She tells Chunying to stop crying and go fetch the rest of the herbs to dry in the sun. Internally, she reflects on whether Yin Chen has any trust left in her at all. She looks at her reflection in a tub of water, feeling the weight of the situation. Regardless of the prince's cruelty, she resolves to raise her baby to be strong and healthy. The scene shifts to a brighter part of the garden. Little Yin Min is out picking flowers, specifically daffodils, because he thinks they'll bring his mom good luck. He's the literal definition of a wholesome kid. The servants are all smiles, proud of what a clever young man he's becoming. Su Luo meets him and gives him a gentle head pat, thanking her sweet boy. As the kid runs off, Su Luo tells him to slow down. Suddenly, her doctor senses tingle. She sniffs the air and realizes something is very wrong. She remembers she needs to make peach blossom crisps and uses it as an excuse. Internally, she senses a weird energy and decides she needs to get Minner away from the area immediately. The kid looks up, totally clueless about the danger. Su Luo asks the servant, Miss Sun, to take him out to gather peaches. Minner is hyped for the snacks and skips away happily. Once the kid is gone, Su Luo and Chunying head inside, but the smell is getting stronger. Su Luo pushes open a door and immediately sees a nightmare. The room is absolutely crawling with massive, venomous snakes. Su Luo stomps her foot to stay grounded, but Chunying completely loses it and collapses in terror. The maid screams for the evil serpents to stay away as they hiss and surround her. Su Luo doesn't panic. She reaches into her sleeve and sprinkles a mysterious white powder. The snakes instantly recoil and scatter like they've been hit with acid. She rushes to Chun Ying's side to help her. She consoles the shaking maid, explaining that they need to sprinkle this hydrangea pollen everywhere. Chun Ying takes a deep breath, slowly coming back to her senses. As they move back outside, the danger seems to have passed. Chun Ying is baffled and asks how Su Luo knew the pollen would work. Su Luo looks at the pile of neutralized snakes and begins to explain. She recalls her days as an apprentice when her master taught her about hydrangea pollen. She explains that the plant contains sulfur, making it a natural repellent. Her master gave her a patch of it for protection when she was younger. Chun Ying is just relieved her mistress kept it all these years. Internally, Su Luo is feeling pretty proud, thinking herbs plus powders equals weapons. Chun Ying's relief turns to anger as she realizes someone must have planted the snakes to kill them. Su Luo tells her to keep this between them for now. Looking at the dead snakes, Su Luo notes that they actually have great medicinal value if prepared right. She gives Chun Ying a terrifyingly cheerful look and asks for a hand in processing them. Chun Ying, absolutely done with the day, declines and runs away to work on regular herbs instead. The morning sun hits the palace, but the vibes are anything but peaceful. Little Yin Min is out in the garden living his best life, while his nanny is struggling to keep up with his infinite energy. He's running around with a handful of flowers, humming a tune like he doesn't have a care in the world. They're having a rare moment of joy in the courtyard, completely oblivious to the toxic drama brewing nearby. Meanwhile, Prince Yin Chen is walking through the palace looking like he's about to fire the entire staff. His attendant tries to be a wingman, suggesting that since it's been a while, maybe he should actually go visit the princess and the young prince. Yin Chen looks low-key embarrassed, probably realizing he's been acting like a total villain lately. Internally, the attendant is shaking in his boots, praying he doesn't get executed for state-level meddling. Back at the pavilion, Yin Min makes a grand entrance to see his mom, hyped because he found the perfect peaches for her snacks. Su Luo gives her son a hug, glad to see his only personality trait right now as being a dedicated foodie. She boops his nose and tells him that if he and Chun Ying help out, they'll get those peach crisps done in record time. Chun Ying is all smiles, happy to see her lady finally relaxing for 5 seconds. Yin Chen catches a glimpse of this wholesome family content from a distance and looks seriously conflicted. He decides to stay in his lane for now, but you can tell his gears are turning as he watches them. As night falls over the Lotus Court, Su Luo starts getting into her feelings, thinking about the herbal canyon where life wasn't a constant battle for survival. She reminisces about the beautiful scenery and the time she spent exploring that peaceful place. Back then, she was just a girl twirling in the petals, living her absolute best life. Internally, she sighed, I actually used to know how to smile. She remembers her master, who had to take over their shop way too young after the old master passed away. She used to be his most diligent student, always making sure he had a taste of her fresh blossom crisps. But when it was time for her return home, he gave her a head pat and warned her that their paths might never cross again. He wished her a life of peace and happiness, but looking at her current situation, Su Luo realizes her life turned into a total dumpster fire instead. Suddenly, the door slams open, nearly giving her a heart attack. A very drunk Yin Chen staggers in, demanding more wine like he thinks he's at a frat party. Su Luo tries to shut it down immediately, telling him she doesn't run a bar and he should look elsewhere. He flops onto a seat, claiming he owns the entire residence so he can do whatever he wants. He spots her plate of peach crisps and helps himself. He takes a bite, and suddenly his entire face freezes up. He demands to know who made them and what kind of poison she put inside. Su Luo is just confused, wondering why he's so pressed over a snack. Yin Chen starts glitching out, looking like he's having a total mental breakdown. He grabs his head in pain, and when Su Luo tries to check his pulse, he snaps and tells her to get off him. He knocks the plate to the floor, calling the food revolting and forbidding her from ever making them again. He staggers out in a huff, leaving Su Luo wondering what his deal is. But the prince doesn't make it far before he completely collapses. Su Luo rushes over to help, checking his pulse and realizing he's in a bad way. Then it hits her. She remembers that today is actually the anniversary of his mother's death. He's not just waste, he's emotionally spiraling into the abyss. Later that night in the Lotus Court, Su Luo and Chun Ying are busy grinding medicinal herbs. Chun Ying admits that even though the prince is a nightmare, she actually feels bad for him sometimes. Su Luo is like, is that so? Clearly not ready to join the fan club. But then the tea drops. When Yin Chen was only 10, his mother committed suicide by drinking poison. Now, every year on this day, the prince turns into a complete menace, and the staff knows they have to tread lightly or face the consequences. Suddenly, they hear footsteps approaching. Su Luo looks up, wondering who's intruding on her workspace now. It's Yin Chen again, staggering through the doorway and looking like he's been through a blender. Chun Ying bows out immediately, while Yin Chen points a finger and demands more to drink. He closes the distance, and in his delirious state, he actually blames Su Luo for his mother's death. Su Luo isn't having it, telling him he can't just pin everyone's trauma on her. She tells him he's drunk and needs to leave, like yesterday. Yin Chen looks like he's about to cry, making Su Luo wonder what's actually going on in his head. He starts calling her Luor, acting like they're in the middle of a romance novel. He gets all pouty and arrogant, complaining that she's changed and doesn't love him anymore. He pulls her into a tight embrace, asking why she's being so cold to him. Su Luo wonders if he's finally speaking from the heart or if the alcohol is doing all the talking. Before she can process anything, he goes in for a kiss, catching her completely off guard. He lifts her up effortlessly, and soon enough the hairpins are coming out. Things get spicy as they end up in bed together, and the scene fades out with some very convenient flower shots to keep the censors happy. The next morning, Su Luo is sipping tea when Chun Ying rushes in with terrifying news. She looks like she's seen a ghost, almost. Apparently, Yin Chen just sentenced a handmaid to death for poisoning him with the wrong herbs last night. Su Luo turns to look at the prince, who is still out cold and clearly having a nightmare about his mother. In his sleep, he's begging someone not to run away. Su Luo pulls her hand back, realizes that one chaotic night is exactly how she ended up pregnant with his child. Later that morning, Yin Chen leaves the Camellia Pavilion looking like he's got the hangover of the century. He stops in his tracks, catching a weird scent in the air. He sees Chun Ying with a basin of water and demands to know what that pungent smell is that's filling the courtyard. Chun Ying is sweating, remembering Su Luo's warning to keep their secret on lock, and lies through her teeth saying it's just the hydrangeas. Everything starts out wholesome as little Yin Min plays a game of hide and seek. He peeks through his fingers, thinking he's a master of stealth in the gardens. Of course, he finds his mom immediately, and the two share a laugh. They're having the time of their lives near the back door of Lotus Court, completely oblivious to the drama about to drop. The vibes go south the moment Prince Yin Chen makes an unexpected entrance. Su Luo is completely blindsided, internally wondering what the heck the prince is doing here. They look like a perfect family unit, but someone is watching from the shadows. Concubine Meow Meow is absolutely seething, convinced Su Luo is using the kid as prince bait to lure him back to her side. As Su Luo and the boy head off to find their maid, Chun Ying, the prince just stands there watching them go. Something about this domestic scene is making him short-circuit because it feels weirdly familiar. He watches her walk away, clearly caught in his feelings. Su Luo's grace runs out when she trips over a loose stone. Yin Chen moves like a ninja, catching her before she can eat dirt. For a split second, his icy exterior melts, and his eyes look surprisingly gentle. Su Luo is caught in 4K blushing, thinking his gaze has suddenly become so warm. Meanwhile, Meow Meow is clenching her fists so hard they might snap. She's disgusted that even though Su Luo is basically a penniless nobody in a lonely court, the prince still has eyes for her. But the romance dies fast as Yin Chen reverts to his cold self and releases her. Su Luo bows, asking why he even bothered showing up today. He basically gives her the "I own this place" speech, claiming he can come and go as he pleases. The awkwardness continues as Yin runs up, announcing he found Chun Ying. Su Luo tries to keep her composure while the prince looms over them. The kid whispers "father," hoping for a scrap of attention. It's awkward as heck, and Su Luo tries to break the tension by offering him some tea. The prince isn't thirsty and dips out immediately without a second thought. Chun Ying tries to be the ultimate hype woman, claiming that even if he acts cold, Su Luo still has a place in his heart. She reminds her that when the snakes appeared, he sent royal doctors with remedies. But Yin Min doesn't care about medicine, he's just sad his dad left so fast. Su Luo kneels to comfort him, lying through her teeth that his father is just a very busy man. Over at Orchid Court, Meow Meow is throwing a full-blown tantrum. She sips her tea and immediately gets triggered. She slams the cup down in a fit of rage. She tosses the whole set, screaming about the flavor being trash. She accuses the maid of trying to kill her because the tea is too hot. While the maid cowers in fear, Meow Meow decides it's time to call in the big guns. Internally, she's already plotting her next move. She sends for her mother, who arrives looking just as arrogant. Meow Meow starts the waterworks, complaining that she saw the prince visiting Su Luo. She plays the victim, acting like she's been wronged. Her mother isn't having the pity party, reminding her that she's still just a lowly concubine despite all her time in the Chen kingdom. They huddle up to plot, and Meow Meow gets a devious look on her face. Apparently, their other pawn, Zinger, has been busy sucking up to the prince in the library. Meow Meow wears a cruel smile, ready to stir up some serious trouble. 3 days later, the peace is shattered by the sound of crying. A guard arrives with Yin Min, who looks like he's been through it. Su Luo rushes out, seeing her son in tears. The poor kid clings to her, sobbing his heart out. Su Luo demands to know why her son is crying. The guard acts like he's just the messenger for some major drama. Chun Ying is shook, wondering why the prince would let something like this happen. Su Luo tries to calm the boy down so he can explain. Yin Min reveals he was fighting with Xinger, and the prince punished him for it. He's absolutely heartbroken, crying because Xinger told him the prince hates his mom. Worst of all, the bully claimed the prince doesn't care about Yin Min at all. Su Luo has to play the part of the strong mom, telling him his dad actually makes clothes for him. She drags Chun Ying into the lie to make it more believable. Internally, she's heartbroken, knowing the relationship is faltering, but desperate to keep the prince's image pure for her son. She tells him to be brave like the heroes in his stories. Chun Ying points out that Xinger isn't even blood-related to the prince. She warns Su Luo that harmless bullying can escalate into something way more dangerous. Su Luo has heard enough and shuts the conversation down. She calls over Miss Sun to take over. Miss Sun is worried, seeing the kid has been crying his eyes out. Su Luo plays it off as a little scuffle and tells her to give him a bath. Once the boy is gone, Su Luo's mama bear mode fully activates. She realizes that in this palace, she only has her children to rely on. She touches her belly, vowing that she won't let anything happen to her kids. She sets down her brush after finishing a secret letter. She tells Chun Ying that they are officially in the endgame now. They have to remain perfectly calm and keep their emotions on lock. They can't give the prince a single excuse to punish them. Finally, she hands over the letter, ordering Chun Ying to make sure it reaches the Su Palace safely. Family drama just hit a new level as Su Luo's secret distress signal finally pays off, with her mother pulling up to the Lotus Court. The two waste no time meeting on the stairs for a long overdue reunion. Seeing her mom, Su Luo finally lets the princess mask slip for a moment. Her mother immediately immediately grabs her hands, looking like she's about to cry from pure relief. But the mom vibes are strong as she immediately notices Su Luo has become dangerously thin. She can't stop checking her daughter's face, worried the palace life is draining her soul. Su Luo just smiles, genuinely happy to have one person in this snake pit who actually gives a damn. As they walk, the lecture begins. Apparently being in the second trimester means Su Luo needs to stop carrying the world on her shoulders and actually rest. Chun Ying gets to work prepping some tea to settle the mood. Su Luo asks her loyal maid for a quick favor while making sure her mother is comfortable. But as her mom takes a sip, Su Luo notices something is seriously off. The woman looks absolutely drained, and it's not just from the travel. Internally, Su Luo's heart sank as she realized her mother's health was failing. Her mother tries to play it off with a tired smile, claiming that's just the price of growing old. She admits the new aches and pains made the long journey difficult, but she's mostly just happy to see her girl. She tries to shift the focus, showing clear concern for Su Luo's situation instead. Su Luo grips her cup tight, asking the heavy question, "How has her father been?" Her mother's face falls for a split second before she forces a smile, claiming he's doing just fine. Setting the tea down, the real talk begins. Her mother warns her that the Chen Palace is basically a shark tank, and she'd be way safer back home. Su Luo puts on her best good girl face and promises to be careful. Seeing her daughter's struggle, the poor woman starts sobbing, apologizing for not being there to protect her. Su Luo is blindsided by this breakdown. When her mom asks if the letter meant something bad happened, Su Luo lies through her teeth, saying she just missed them. Internally, she sighed, "I can't ask for help escaping if she's this sick. I'll have to wait for her to recover." Suddenly, her mother realizes she's gotta bounce. Su Luo is confused since she just got there and expected a few days of quality time. But apparently, the father needs his wife back home immediately. Before she leaves, Su Luo brings out the secret weapon, the grandson. She introduces Yin Min to his grandmother for the first time. The kid is curious, looking at this new face with big, innocent eyes. The grandmother tells him he's grown so much and that soon he'll be the one protecting his mother. She pulls him into a tight, tearful hug, knowing how high the stakes are in this palace. She tells Chun Ying to keep a close eye on the both of them while she's gone. Then she hands over a heavy bag of coins, telling Su Luo to use it for security since the palace is notorious for cruelty. Su Luo tries to play it cool, saying they're doing fine, but her mother isn't taking no for an answer. She presses the bag into Su Luo's hands, making it clear this is non-negotiable. With tears streaming down her face, she drops a truth bomb. She reveals that Su Luo's father is actually miserable and regrets all the pain he caused her. Su Luo is left stunned, her world tilting at the mention of her father's apology. And just like that, her mother is gone, leaving Su Luo alone with her thoughts. Watching the carriage leave, Su Luo can't shake the feeling that her mother was acting super sus. Chun Ying tries to rationalize it as just emotional mom stuff, but the vibe is definitely off. Fast forward 3 months, and the leaves are finally starting to drop. Su Luo is out in the courtyard, telling Yin Min to be careful not to trip while he plays. The kid is a ball of energy, shouting back a "yes, mommy," while running around. But Su Luo's mind is elsewhere, worrying about how her father handles the harsh autumn air. Chun Ying steps out, ready for her next task. Su Luo decides to send a jar of pear jam home to help her father's health. Chun Ying is happy to help, but their peaceful moment is cut short. Su Luo spots a handmaid from the Orchid Court Meow Meow's territory and knows trouble is brewing. She demands to know why this girl is lurking in her space. The maid drops a bombshell. She overheard a rumor that the Su Palace is being destroyed today. She claims she just wanted to warn the princess, but the timing is way too perfect. Su Luo's heart stops as the news hits her like a freight train. The maid quickly makes her exit, leaving a trail of chaos behind. Su Luo is spiraling, unable to believe her family is about to be wiped out. Her first thought, Yin Chen is the only one with the power to save them. She starts rushing toward the main court, her panic levels hitting 100. She tells Yin Min to stay with Miss Sun and promises she'll be right back, though she's clearly on the verge of a breakdown. She reaches the grand court under a bright, mocking sky. The building looks imposing, but she doesn't care about palace etiquette right now. She demands to see the prince, but a rival concubine is already there to block her path. With a nasty smirk, the rival reveals that Yin Chen is away on important business all day. Suddenly, Su Luo feels a sharp, stabbing pain in her stomach. The stress is literally hurting the baby. She asks Chun Ying if this is true, but the maid is just as lost as she is. Realizing she's on her own, Su Luo decides she's getting a cart and heading home immediately. The rival concubine looks absolutely delighted to see Su Luo falling apart. She reminds Su Luo that she's technically forbidden from leaving the palace. Chun Ying isn't having it and steps up, daring the rival to try and stop them. Su Luo turns her back on the drama and heads back to the Lotus Court to prep. Once they reach her home base, the plan goes into overdrive. Her hands are shaking as she grips Chun Ying, telling her they have to hurry. Su Luo tells her maid to take the jewelry and the money her mother left to bribe their way out. She tries to stay calm, using a bit of Perilla to keep the baby from short-circuiting her body. Chun Ying returns, whispering that the getaway cart is ready and waiting outside. They start moving, trying to be as stealthy as possible. Su Luo is focused, holding her stomach and praying they make it. They rush toward the exit, thinking they might actually pull this off. But then a voice stops them cold. Miss Liu is back to ruin everything. She's standing there with backup, asking what right a lowly princess has to break the rules. Miss Liu goes full villain mode, screaming that she won't be spoken to like that by a handmaid and orders her men to take the insolent girl away. Su Luo screams for the guards to keep their hands off her maid, but the situation is quickly spiraling out of control. She calls out Liu Miao Miao for her blatant respect, but the rival concubine is clearly enjoying the power trip. Liu isn't intimidated at all, telling the princess that her royal status won't protect her today. She claims she's just following the prince's orders, using his authority as a shield for her own toxicity. Chun Ying, ever the loyal companion, tells Su Luo not to worry and that she'll be fine. Liu scoffs at the drama and demands the guards explain themselves to the prince if they don't hurry up. The guards finally drag Chun Ying away, leaving the princess completely isolated. Liu then orders her own people to force Su Luo back into the palace, ending her escape attempt right then and there. Back inside, Su Luo tries to maintain her composure, internally telling herself, "Stay calm, do it for the baby's sake." An older maid enters the room carrying a tray with a suspicious-looking bowl of soup. Su Luo immediately catches the scent of safflower, a known herbal remedy used to cause miscarriages. She warns Liu that the prince will absolutely lose it when he finds out she's targeting his own blood. Liu just stands there, unimpressed by Su Luo's attempts to pull rank. She lets out a nasty smirk, basically telling Su Luo that her superior attitude is about to get a reality check. Liu leans in close, making it clear that the power dynamic has shifted and Su Luo is the one who will be bowing today. Enraged, Su Luo demands to know why Liu hates her so much and what she ever did to deserve this level of spite. Liu rises from her seat, reminding Su Luo of the public humiliation she was forced to endure in the past. She signals her maid to bring the soup forward, calling it a lovely gift for the unborn child. Su Luo tries to remind her that she's still the princess and there will be consequences, but Liu isn't listening. She grabs Su Luo's chin, threatening that if she doesn't drink, her maid and her son will be the ones to suffer. Liu's face is a mask of pure villainy as she holds the bowl of poison right to Su Luo's lips. She orders Su Luo to open her mouth while her goons hold the princess down. Su Luo struggles with everything she has, but Liu begins to force the dark liquid down her throat. In the chaos, Su Luo manages to stumble and smack the bowl out of Liu's hand. The bowl shatters on the floor, spilling the safflower soup everywhere in a dark, jagged mess. Liu isn't giving up that easily and orders her maid to rush back in and hold the princess down again. They force Su Luo to the floor, determined to finish the job one way or another. Su Luo reaches out in desperation, grabbing the maid's robes to try and pull her away. Internally, she's screaming, "You're an absolute animal, Liu meow meow." Liu delivers a sharp kick, blaming Su Luo for what happened to someone named Ruer. Su Luo tries to defend herself from the ground, stating that whatever happened to Ruer wasn't her fault. Liu is in full-blown villain mode now, claiming Su Luo's father plotted against them all because of his precious daughter. Su Luo refuses to let her badmouth her family, telling her to shut her mouth. Liu and the older maid stand over her, looking like they're ready to take her out of the picture for good. Su Luo manages to sit up, reminding Liu that she has been by the prince's side for 3 years and knows him better than anyone. Liu grabs her by the collar again, refusing to let her have the last word. She finally decides to leave, but the damage has already been done. Su Luo collapses on the rug, clutching her stomach as blood begins to soak through her robes. The older maid is visibly shaken, realizing that this might actually be the end for the princess. Su Luo's eyes are wide with shock as the reality of the situation hits her. Liu meow meow immediately pivots, shouting for a doctor as if she's actually worried. She swipes the evidence away, her mind already racing with a cover story. She whispers to her maid that they should take this opportunity to finish their revenge. Her plan is to tell the prince that Su Luo died from the shock of hearing about her family palace's destruction. She removes any trace of her involvement, shifting the blame entirely onto Su Luo's own weakness. The maid rubs her shoulders, agreeing that this is the perfect way to get away with it. A servant enters the room as the stage is set for the cover-up. Su Luo lies motionless on the floor, a pool of blood marking the tragedy. The royal physician, Dr. Liu, arrives and is greeted with a respectful welcome by the very woman who caused this. Su Luo manages to choke out a plea, begging him to save her child. They move her to the bed in the Lotus Court, where the doctor begins to check her pulse. Liu stands by, watching like a hawk to make sure the doctor doesn't get any ideas. The doctor's face pales as he feels the rhythm of her heart and the state of her body. He immediately recognizes the signs of safflower poisoning and is visibly sweating. Liu draws near, reminding him that he's been the royal physician for a long time. She leans in, making it clear that he needs to know when to speak and when to keep his mouth shut. Her eyes are cold and threatening, leaving no room for negotiation. The doctor drops to his knees, begging her not to make him lie about such a serious matter. Liu threatens that his wife and son will pay the price if he doesn't cooperate with her story. She whispers the exact lies he needs to tell the prince into his ear. The doctor is left stammering, completely trapped by her threats. Suddenly, the prince arrives, his footsteps echoing in the hallway. Liu puts on her best somber face, greeting him as if she's been mourning by the bedside all day. She turns on the crocodile tears, telling him something terrible has happened, and she's worried the princess won't make it. She claims Su Luo fainted the moment she heard the news about the Su Palace. The prince turns to the doctor, demanding to know the truth about her condition. Liu gives the doctor a terrifying glare, ensuring he sticks to the script. The doctor trembles, telling the prince that the shock was too much and the child is in grave danger. Internally, Liu is celebrating, thinking, "Su Luo, your reign is finally over." She pretends to be overcome with guilt, claiming it must have been her own loose-lipped maid who let the news slip. She puts on a performance of pure heartbreak, gaslighting the prince into comforting her. He falls for it completely, pulling her into an embrace while his wife lies dying. He orders his people to find the maid responsible for the leak immediately. Liu offers to help find the girl, ensuring that no one will ever find out what really happened in that room. Liu Miao Miao is officially a professional gaslighter, telling the prince that the maid Chun Ying was catch in hands and had to be dealt with. She leans into Yin Chen, playing the delicate flower card while throwing the loyal maid under the bus. Internally, she was probably cackling, one down, one to go. She puts on an Oscar-worthy performance, claiming she executed the maid in a fit of rage for disrespecting the prince's name. She even has the audacity to claim it's her responsibility to protect him from threats within the kingdom. Suddenly, guards drag in another terrified maid who is absolutely shaking in her boots. Meow Meow points the finger, claiming this girl was the one who leaked the news of the Su family's downfall to Su Luo. She scolds the girl for disobeying orders, basically signing her death warrant right then and there. The prince is totally buying this manufactured drama, his face hardening as he looks at the girl. The poor maid is sobbing, knowing she's been framed by the palace's biggest snake. Yin Chen asks if it's true that she spoke to the princess today. The girl nods, likely out of pure terror and a lack of better options. Without a second thought, the prince orders his men to drag her away to her doom. He walks away with Meow Meow, completely blindsided by her web of lies. He dismisses the royal physician, who is probably sweating buckets after being forced to lie about the poisoning. Fast forward 3 days to the Lotus Court, where the vibe is absolutely depressing. Su Luo is stuck in a fever dream, whispering for her parents and her lost baby. She sees horrific visions of her family bound and kneeling on the execution block. The prince's voice echoes in her head, sentencing them all to death without a shred of mercy. She wakes up screaming for her mother and father, while little Minner cries beside her bed. Realizing she's lost her child and her family is in danger, she feels like she's failed everyone. She demands that Miss Sun assist her to the Grand Court so she can beg the prince for mercy. Miss Sun tries to hold her back, looking like she's about to deliver the worst possible. Su Luo isn't hearing it and tells the woman to stay out of her way if she won't help. But then the nanny drops a massive truth bomb. The Su Palace has been in ruins for 3 days. Her parents were already executed as traitors to the crown while she was unconscious. Su Luo is shattered, but she still insists on finding Yin Chen. She storms out of the room, determined to find out who orchestrated this nightmare. Her body is still weak from the poisoning, and her legs give out almost immediately. She slips and falls hard on the floor, right as a familiar hem of a robe appears. Miss Sun panics and calls for help while little Minner cries for his mommy. The prince stands over her like a cold, heartless statue. Su Luo grabs his robes, swearing her family was nothing but loyal and that they were framed. Yin Chen doesn't want to hear it and coldly orders the boy to be taken out of the room. Minner is dragged out kicking and screaming, which is peak trauma for everyone involved. Su Luo finally spills the tea, accusing Meow Meow of murdering their child by forcing her to drink safflower. The prince just gives her a look that says, "Where are the receipts?" She tells him that Dr. Liu or Chun Ying can prove her story is legit, but Yin Chen tells her that's enough, completely shutting down her accusations. He drops the bombshell that Chun Ying is dead, leaving Su Luo absolutely shook. Internally, she screamed, "Are you really this blind to the truth?" The prince calls her a liar, claiming she's just as corrupt as her father was. He pulls out a blood-stained note that was supposedly written by his first love, Ruer. The note claims Lord Su tried to bribe her with silver to leave the prince so Su Luo could take her place. He explains that Meow Meow found this note hidden among Ruer's things, which is way too convenient. He starts thinking back to the day everything went wrong for him. It was midnight at the ruins of an ancient temple under a lightning storm. He heard a crash and realized he wasn't alone in the dark. He found Ruer on the ground, being assaulted by a group of thugs. He went full beast mode, grabbing one of the attackers by the throat while screaming Ruer's name. He held her close, apologizing for being too late to protect her. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. He ordered his men to bring the animals back to the palace for a session in the dungeon. The thugs begged for mercy on their knees, but Yin Chen was not in a forgiving mood. Back at the royal palace, the wedding guests were wondering where the groom had disappeared to. He carried Ruer inside, ordering fresh robes and warm water for her. She was so traumatized she told him to stay away and let her go. He tried to convince her that it was really him, Yin Chen, but she was too far gone. He promised her she was safe now that he was there. He gently caressed her hair, fueling his own inner darkness. Internally, he vowed, "I'll make those animals pay for what they've done to you." Down in the dungeon, the thugs were chained up and terrified out of their minds. They claimed they didn't know she was his woman and that they were just following orders. The prince stood before them, looking like the god of death with a branding iron nearby. One thug finally cracked, naming Lord Su as the man who hired them. Yin Chen asked them if they showed any mercy to his rower. He ordered his guards to make them suffer as much as possible before they died. Back in the present, Su Luo is horrified that he actually believes her father could do such a thing. The prince grabs her by the collar, his eyes full of hatred for the woman he thinks ruined his life. He drags her all the way to the royal cemetery. Su Luo is trembling, asking what they are even doing there. He coldly informs her that her parents have already been buried. The wooden headstones for Lord and Lady Su confirm that her nightmare is real. She collapses at the graves, crying about how she failed them. Tears stream down her face as she realizes her entire support system is gone. Internally, she realized she was caught in a web of lies she couldn't escape. The prince doubles down, insisting he and Ruer were endgame until her father split them apart. He asks her if she can finally see that it's all true, completely oblivious to the real villain standing right next to him. Flashback time. Back when Lord Su was still alive and breathing. Everyone was kissing his feet and congratulating him on his daughter's big day. But the old man wasn't buying what Yin Chen was selling and told the prince to hold his horses. He pulled the guy aside for a fatherly stroll, though the vibes were definitely off. Yin Chen, being the king of impatience, basically told him to spit it out and stop wasting his time. Lord Su didn't stutter when he threatened to rain hellfire on Yin Chen if even a single hair on Su Luo's head was touched. Instead of being intimidated, Yin Chen just gave a smug smirk and told the old man to cancel the wedding if he was that worried. He then pulled a classic cool guy exit, leaving Lord Su in the dust. Fast forward to the present, and Su Luo is realizing her dad was the only one with a working brain. She's currently having a breakdown at the cemetery, begging her father forgiveness. The royal cemetery is looking extra depressing today, matching Su Luo's mood perfectly. She's screaming at the graves, wondering if this is how Yin Chen repays the person who saved his life. She reminds him about the Valley of the Wolves, thinking that'll trigger some gratitude. But Yin Chen drops a logic bomb apparently. He thinks Rar was the one who saved him, and they were the ones who made a love pact. He's looking absolutely livid that she'd even try to fake those memories. Su Luo is absolutely stunned, her worldview short-circuiting. Internally, she scoffed. This man is beyond help. She goes for the jugular, telling him his mother must be ashamed of him. She even claims it was Yin Chen's own father who caused his mother's death, not hers. That's the final straw, and Yin Chen goes full toxic, grabbing her by the throat. Su Luo struggles to breathe, but she doesn't back down. She calls out that he's got zero proof of his claims. He grabs her again, ready to end the argument right there. Su Luo's mind is racing, wondering if her father really was involved in such a mess. Yin Chen shoves her away like yesterday's trash. He vows to wipe out her entire bloodline for what her father allegedly did. He lifts her chin, promising to make her life a living nightmare that's way worse than death. Su Luo is left trembling on the ground, completely broken. He barks orders to throw her in the carriage immediately. The command is simple. Lock her in Lotus Court and don't let her take a single step out without his say-so. Night falls over the palace, and it's as gloomy as a funeral. Inside, Su Luo is mourning at a makeshift altar, wondering how her life turned into a low-budget tragedy. She picks up a jar of pear jam, her dad's favorite, trying to find some comfort. She flashes back to the moment her dad warned her that the only person she couldn't marry was Yin Chen. Back in reality, the regret is hitting her harder than a truck. Internally, she sighed. If only I wasn't blinded by love back then. She remembers Yin Chen's accusations about his mother's death. She squeezes her eyes shut, the pain becoming unbearable. She refuses to believe her father was anything but a good man, despite the evidence. She cries out for her parents and her loyal maid, Chun Ying, feeling completely isolated. Suddenly, the door pops open and Yin Chen storms in like he owns the place. He's fuming about finding memorial tablets for enemies inside his own palace walls. He snatches the tablet from the altar without a second thought. Su Luo panics as he prepares to smash her only connection to her father. She begs him to stop, asking why he has to be this level of petty. Yin Chen just cold shoulders her, saying she brought this misery on herself. He leans in close, promising that her future holds nothing but more tears. Su Luo stands her ground, shouting that they were framed and her father is innocent. Yin Chen isn't hearing it, calling her a liar like her old man. She screams about the life they shared, trying to reach whatever soul he has left. He grabs her wrists, the tension in the room reaching a boiling point. He squeezes her chin, forcing her to look at his hatred. Then he pushes her down, his intentions getting way darker. He threatens to take her right there, in the shadow of her father's shrine, just to spite her. He forces a kiss on her, but Su Luo isn't playing the victim today. She bites him hard enough to draw blood. After she slaps him, Yin Chen loses it and orders his men to burn the memorial tablet. He touches his stinging cheek, looking like he's about to explode. The guard snatches the tablet away, ignoring Su Luo's screams. She reaches out in desperation, but it's too late. She collapses on the floor, her spirit finally shattered. Later, the rain starts pouring down on Lotus Court. A panicked maid rushes in with news that makes Su Luo's blood run cold. Apparently, her son Minner has attacked Singer. Su Luo is shook, unable to believe her kid would do that. She slams her hand on the table, switching into Mama Bear mode. She's terrified for Minner, knowing what Yin Chen will do to him. She sprints out into the storm, not caring about the rain. But the guards are already there, blocking her path like brick walls. She's fuming, but she's trapped. Just then, the villain of the week, Liu Miao Miao, shows up looking way too satisfied. She mocks Su Luo, calling her son a little killer. Liu claims Xinger is in critical condition and needs a blood transfusion suspiciously convenient. Su Luo calls her out on her lies immediately. Liu just gives that annoying, smug look that makes you want to reach through the screen. She walks up to Su Luo with her entourage, looking like the queen of the palace. She leans in to whisper something toxic about how she's going to destroy everything Su Luo loves. Su Luo is absolutely enraged, her eyes practically glowing with fury. Liu ends the session by asking who the prince will choose, his dearly departed sisters, Memory or the woman he hates. Liu Miao Miao wears a smug expression, clearly enjoying the chaos she sparked. Fed up with the manipulation, Su Luo screams her rival's name in a fit of pure rage. She catches sight of a guard's weapon and decides she's done playing nice. In a total boss move, Su Luo unsheathes the sword and holds it directly to Liu Miao Miao's throat. The villainess is shook, warning Su Luo that the prince will literally have her head for this. Internally, Su Luo didn't care, thinking, at this point, he can take a number. A guard tries to intervene, but Su Luo isn't backing down an inch. The guard stands there stunned as the princess continues her high-stakes standoff in the pouring rain. She bellows for them to let her through, her voice echoing across the courtyard. The scene shifts to Lotus Court, where the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. The rain continues to hammer down as the situation reaches a breaking point. Yin Chen finally arrives, demanding that Su Luo put the sword down immediately. They stand in a tense circle, umbrellas doing nothing to cool the heated atmosphere. The prince stares her down, his face a mask of cold authority. Su Luo doesn't flinch, demanding to know what what happened to her son Minner. Yin Chen looks at her with nothing but loathing, clearly believing the lies he's been fed. Su Luo inches the blade closer, desperate to find her boy. Liu Miao Miao plays the damsel in distress, begging her prince to save her from the mad woman. Yin Chen stands his ground, ordering Su Luo to stand down, but Su Luo has zero chill left, stating this is the final time she's asking for her son's location. Suddenly, a maid bursts onto the scene, screaming that the young prince won't stop bleeding. Su Luo's heart drops as she grabs the maid, her maternal instincts short-circuiting. Everyone begins to sprint toward the medical wing. Liu Miao Miao tries to grab Yin Chen's arm to maintain her victim status. Surprisingly, the prince rejects her touch, his mind clearly elsewhere. He tells her to go inside and rest, leaving her standing in the rain. Internally, Liu Miao Miao fumed. You're still obsessed with that ungrateful woman, aren't you? She watches them leave, her eyes filled with pure venom. A dark smile creeps across her face as she plots her next move. To her, Su Luo is already a dead woman walking. Su Luo sprints through the rain to Jinger's home, where Minner has been taken. She bursts into the room, screaming her son's name. The sight that greets her is a total nightmare. Her little boy is lying motionless on a bed. Su Luo trembles, her world crumbling in an instant. She reaches out to touch his hand, only to find its terrifying limp. Internally, she panicked. Why is he so cold? This can't be happening. Minner weakly opens his eyes, whimpering that it hurts. Su Luo tries to be strong, promising him the pain will go away soon. The boy's response is a total death flag, asking if he's going to see his little sister in heaven. Desperate, Su Luo begs Dr. Liu to do anything, to save him. The doctor looks defeated, admitting he's done everything in his power. But the boy has lost too much blood. It's now up to Minner's own will to survive. Su Luo breaks down, her body shaking with grief and guilt. She drops to her knees before Yin Chen, begging for justice. She swears Minner is innocent and that Liu Miao Miao is the one who actually attacked Zinger and framed the boy. Yin Chen has heard enough and tells her to take the boy back to Lotus Court for care. He claims he will investigate the framing theory himself. Internally, he sighed, what an absolute mess. Su Luo gently lifts her unconscious son into her arms. She carries him out, her expression one of grim determination. Yin Chen watches them disappear into the rain, his emotions unreadable. He then turns his fury on the doctor, ordering his guards to drag the quack to the dungeon to be drained of his own blood for failing. By midnight, the palace is eerily quiet. Su Luo hasn't left her son's side for a second. Her maids worry she's going to collapse from exhaustion. Su Luo agrees to go to the kitchen to make Minner's favorite porridge so it's ready when he wakes up. The maids breathe a sigh of relief, glad she's finally taking a break. An hour later, Su Luo returns with a warm bowl, hoping for a miracle. Instead, she finds servants running in a panic, yelling about a fire. Her blood runs cold when they reveal the fire is at Lotus Court. She arrives to find the building engulfed in massive flames. Without a second thought, Su Luo charges toward the inferno to save her son. A maid tries to hold her back, but Su Luo is a woman possessed. Yin Chen arrives on the scene, demanding to know who went back into the flames. When he hears it's the princess, his face finally shows real fear. He grabs a bucket of water, douses himself, and prepares to dive in. He screams Su Luo's name as he disappears into the smoke. Inside, the heat is unbearable. Su Luo is trapped, coughing and growing weaker by the second. She screams in terror as the ceiling begins to collapse around her. Yin Chen spots her through the haze, calling out her name. He sees her huddled on the floor and realizes he has to move now. He rushes toward her, his only thought being that he must save her. He manages to lift a massive, burning beam off her, his strength fueled by pure adrenaline. He shouts for someone to call a doctor immediately. Finally, Yin Chen emerges from the burning wreckage, carrying a limp and unconscious Su Luo in his arms. A peaceful night turns into a total nightmare as Su Luo hallucinates her son picking lotus flowers on a boat. She's completely checked out from reality, sitting in a daze while cradling a bundle of clothes like it's her child. Prince Yin Chen storms into the room, demanding to know what on earth she's doing. Su Luo shushes him, acting like she's protecting her sleeping son from being woken up. Yin Chen is losing his mind, staring at her with pure disbelief and asking if she's finally gone insane. He grabs the bundle to show her it's just a pillow and some fabric. She demands her boy back one last time, her eyes filled with rage. She falls to the ground in total despair when he won't let go. Yin Chen yells for her to snap out of it because that object is definitely not her son. He delivers the cold, hard truth with zero filter. The boy is dead. He looks down at her with a mix of frustration and disgust. As he turns to leave, her hand reaches out for a ghost that isn't there. He orders the servants to burn the boy's remaining things and find a doctor to treat the princess for her madness. Internally, she thought, fix me. You're the one who needs a factory reset for being a terrible father. She demands her boy back one last time, her eyes filled with rage. Yin Chen tries to shut her down, shouting that enough is enough. He repeats the grim reality that Minner is gone and isn't coming back. Su Luo snaps and bites his arm with everything she's got. With blood on her lips, she reminds him that the child he's dismissing was his own flesh and blood too. Yin Chen stares at her, his toxic traits peaking as he processes her words. He tells her straight up that he won't allow her to leave him regardless of the trauma. Su Luo is a total wreck, crying through the blood staining her face. She wonders how much more of a debt she has to pay to this man before she's finally free. Yin Chen isn't finished with his villain monologue yet. He reminds her that she was the one who wanted into this palace, which supposedly cost him his relationship with someone named Ruer. He's fuming that she now has the audacity to try and bail. He grabs her face roughly, telling her she could spend her whole life and still never repay what her family owes him. He promises to keep her right there, subjected to torture that's way worse than death. He tosses her aside like she's yesterday's trash. Su Luo collapses on the floor, screaming that she absolutely hates him. Morning hits the Grand Court, but the vibes are still beyond rancid. The guards report back with a massive plot twist. They search the burned-down Lotus Court, but couldn't find the young prince's body anywhere. Yin Chen is visibly shook, wondering how a whole person just vanishes from a crime scene. He orders a top-secret investigation because if the boy is alive, the political fallout will be insane. The guards agree to keep the disappearance on the down low. Over at Velvet Court, the scenery is beautiful, but the mood inside is heavy. The building looks peaceful from the outside, hidden among the trees. Su Luo is resting in bed, looking pale and completely drained. She starts whispering in her sleep, calling out for her master. In her dream, she tells him how much she's missed him. A handsome man appears in her vision, holding her close in a field of white flowers. He apologizes for being too late to save her from this mess. He looks at her with nothing but pure main character energy and affection. Su Luo cries about wanting to go back home to Herbal Canyon. He gently feeds her a mysterious red pill to help her recover. Suddenly, the dream snaps. She wakes up realizing it was all an illusion. But it felt way too real to be a normal dream. A maid enters to announce that the resident snake, Liu Miao Miao, has arrived for a visit. Su Luo is definitely not in the mood for company and tells her to get lost. But Liu Miao Miao walks in anyway, gloating about Minner being dead and asking if the funeral clothes are ready to be burned. Su Luo is vibrating with rage, her hands clenching the sheets. Liu asks if she wants to know what really happened to the boy. She starts tossing clothes around, narrating her version of the day the fire started. She reveals that she happened upon a pair of scissors during the chaos. A flashback shows Liu Miao Miao framing the poor kid, planting the bloody weapon on him. She laughs about how the boy was a coward, crying and pleading with the prince that he didn't do it. She mocks the fact that Yin Chen believed her lies over his own son's tears. Su Luo screams for her to stop the lies. Liu Miao Miao just keeps gaslighting her, saying Yin Chen only loathed the boy because of his mother. Su Luo can only apologize to her son's memory internally, feeling the weight of the guilt. The villainess gets a crazed, wide-eyed look. She describes how the doctor slit the boy's wrists while he was terrified. She smiles while describing how the kid tried to escape but was too small and weak. She paints a picture of him being completely alone in his final moments. A vision of the terrified little boy calling for his mommy flashes in Su Luo's mind. Liu Miao Miao is enjoying every second of this psychological torture, watching Su Luo break. She claims the prince's last tie to Su Luo is finally severed for good. Then she drops the ultimate mean girl move, rubbing her belly and asking for help naming her own baby. She leans in close, purely to twist the knife and see the light leave Su Luo's eyes. Su Luo sees a mental image of her son being snatched away by dark hands. Something in her finally snaps. She grabs a pair of scissors from the sewing basket. She screams for Liu to give her son back as she lunges forward. Su Luo stabs the villainess right in the gut. Liu Miao Miao screams in actual terror as she realizes she pushed too far. Guards and maids burst in, caught in 4K seeing the blood and the weapon. They grab Su Luo, pulling her away from the bleeding rival. Liu Miao Miao puts on a final performance, crying about saving her child as she's escorted out. Her fake, manic laughter seems to echo through the trees. Su Luo realizes that even though she got her revenge, it won't bring her boy back. She stands there, covered in blood and completely broken, realizing she's lost everything. The drama kicks off at Orchid Court as the prince finally makes his grand entrance, looking for answers. He's barely through the door when a servant rushes up to deliver the worst possible. Apparently, the baby didn't survive Su Luo's cruel attack, and the vibe is immediately funeral tear. Inside, Liu Miao Miao is putting on an Oscar-worthy performance, sobbing about how she couldn't protect their child. Yin Chen tries to get her to lie down, but she keeps the lies flowing, claiming she only went to console the princess. She cries about Su Luo losing 2 children, making herself look like a total saint in the process. Then she drops the bombshell. Su Luo supposedly grabbed scissors and went straight for the belly without a second thought. She plays the what did I do wrong card to perfection, making sure to twist the knife as deep as possible. Yin Chen is absolutely fuming, convinced this Su Luo's twisted way of getting revenge against him. He's officially done playing games and unsheathes his sword, ready to end things. He tells the staff to take care of his mistress while he goes to settle the score once and for all. He storms over to Velvet Court, looking like he's ready to tear the roof off. He kicks the door open with a bang, screaming at Su Luo and demanding to know if she really stabbed his side piece. Su Luo, meanwhile, is the literal definition of unbothered, calmly sewing while she drops a simple yes. Yin Chen stares at her back, probably wondering how she can be this cold. He asks if she even realizes that Liu Miao Miao lost her baby because of her. He's waiting for a breakdown or an apology, but he's not getting either. Instead, she looks him dead in the eye with a smirk and asks, "No more baby?" Internally, she scoffed, "One down, one more trash bag to go." Yin Chen threatens to delete her from the server right then and there. He levels his sword at her throat, reminding her she knows exactly how it feels to lose a child. He claims Miao Miao had nothing to do with what happened to their son, Minner. Su Luo doesn't even flinch, casually snipping her thread with a pair of scissors. She tells him just kill her now, because if she stays alive, she's coming for the next kid too. She stands her ground, declaring that her life ended with Minner and she has zeros left to give. Yin Chen is shook, but he insists on dragging her to apologize to the mistress. He grabs her arm, trying to force her to move, but she's not budging. Su Luo closes her eyes, totally over the drama. She makes it clear she'd rather die than say sorry to that woman. Yin Chen finally snaps and grabs her by the throat, asking if she really wishes for death that badly. Su Luo doesn't back down, cursing him for what he's done to their children. She spits out that she should have stayed in Herbal Canyon with her master instead of marrying this loser. Her eyes are filled with pure, unadulterated hatred. Yin Chen calls it blasphemy, his own rage hitting a boiling point as face-off. She tells him she'd rather die than spend another second with him. and he finally loosens his grip. He decides to call her bluff and orders his men to prepare a coffin for the princess. The guards are caught in 4K looking terrified as the prince prepares for a funeral while his wife is still breathing. Su Luo actually starts laughing, thinking she's finally going to be reunited with her family. Under the moonlight, she looks like she's finally found peace in the middle of this chaos. She climbs into the open coffin like it's a luxury hotel. Yin Chen stands over her, giving her one final chance to change her mind and apologize. He's practically begging her to give him an excuse to stop this madness. Su Luo just hits him with a no thank you and closes her eyes. Yin Chen is fuming and orders the guards to close the lid. He stares at her, wondering if she's really this stubborn or just ready to go. Suddenly, a messenger ruins the moment, saying the general needs him for an urgent meeting. Yin Chen tells him he'll be there in a bit, still looking at the coffin. He gives the guards a strict order. If he's not back in 3 hours, they better remove that lid. The lid slams shut, plunging Su Luo into total darkness. She relaxes, ready to meet her parents and her sweet boy in the afterlife. But then the hallucinations kick in and things get dark. She sees a vision of Liu Miao Miao holding Minner over a pit of fire. Su Luo starts gasping for air as the nightmare intensifies. Little Minner is screaming for his mommy to save him from the flames. Su Luo snaps out of her peaceful state, realizing her son might still be alive and in danger. She starts banging on the lid, screaming to be let out because her baby needs her. 2 hours later, Yin Chen is racing back through the snow, feeling like something is horribly wrong. He's desperate to get back to Luo before time runs out. He jumps off his horse, but he's met by a very smug-looking Liu Miao Miao. She stops him in his tracks, looking like she's got some tea to spill. She claims the princess suffocated inside the coffin already. Yin Chen is completely blindsided, refusing to believe his wife is actually gone. Miao Miao claims she couldn't stand the thought of the body, so she already had her buried in the garden. She tells him not to mourn a woman who deserved this ending. Yin Chen loses his mind, screaming that it can't be true. He sprints toward the palace, leaving the mistress behind in the cold. Liu Miao Miao watches him go, absolutely salty that even as a corpse, Su Luo still has the prince wrapped around her finger. In the dead of night, the atmosphere outside the royal Chen palace is chilling as the snow continues to fall. The silence is broken by the sound of shovels hitting the dirt, because Yin Chen has finally arrived to dig up the mess he made, while Miao Miao watches from the sidelines like a total vulture. Internally, Yin Chen is panicking, his face a mask of pure anxiety as he realizes he might have actually crossed the line this time. As the guards reach the wood, he screams for them to stop, unable to handle the tension a second longer. He drops to his knees, praying to every god he's ever ignored that the woman inside is still breathing. With trembling hands, he slowly lifts the heavy coffin lid, hoping for a miracle. But as the interior is revealed, his heart sinks because Su Luo is lying there, pale and completely motionless. The sight hits him like a freight train, and he freezes in place, unable to process the reality of the situation. He begins to whisper her name, his voice cracking as the weight of his actions finally starts to settle in. Miao Miao, being the ultimate hater, tries to gaslight him into moving on, telling him Su Luo is gone and he needs to worry about himself now. Yin Chen isn't having it, looking absolutely devastated as he begs for her to just open her eyes and look at him. He reaches out to touch her hair, desperate for any sign of life. Internally, he's screaming she cannot be dead, refusing to accept that he's the one who put her here. He gently brushes her face, promising her that she's just hurt and that he's gonna get her to a doctor immediately. Without a second thought, he scoops her up, carrying her like she's the most fragile thing in the world. As he walks away, Miao Miao stands there fuming, wondering why he's still so obsessed with a woman she's sure is a corpse. Her face is twisted in pure rage because her plan to replace the princess is hitting a massive roadblock. By midnight, they arrive at the Velvet Court, far away from the prying eyes of the rest of the palace. The building is quiet, tucked away behind the snowy branches. Yin Chen lays her down, telling her to just rest for a while, acting like she's just taking a nap. He starts getting hit with a massive wave of regret, admitting that he's been a total monster for the last few years and promising to take her away to the mountains once she wakes up. He looks like a shell of a man, swearing that he'll make it up to her no matter what it takes. He even tries to joke, saying that if she doesn't speak up, he'll just assume she's agreeing to his plan. He leans down and kisses her cold lips, a desperate attempt to feel some warmth. He notices the bruises on her face and immediately starts worrying about getting her bandages and medicine. Tears finally start to fall as he looks at her battered face, realizing he's the one who caused all this trauma. He wipes his eyes, barking orders to get fresh clothes and clean her up, because he knows she hates being dirty. He picks out a stunning blue robe, wondering what she'd think of the choice. He mutters that the color would match her eyes perfectly, still lost in his own delusional hope. As he begins to remove her soiled clothing to clean her back, he hesitates. He pauses, his eyes widening as he sees her bare skin. There's a specific scar there that looks hauntingly familiar, triggering a memory he's suppressed for years. Suddenly, he's back in the Valley of the Wolves, hearing a voice telling him to wake up. A younger, battered Yin Chen looks up, confused and asking who his savior is. A young Su Luo is there, helping him up despite the danger. She warns him that a pack of wolves is closing in and they have to move, even though he tells her to leave him behind so he doesn't slow her down. He senses something and turns around instantly. He swings his sword at a wolf that's leaping through the air, trying to protect her. But another wolf lunges from the shadows, letting out a terrifying howl. Su Luo doesn't hesitate, throwing herself in front of him to take the hit. The wolf's claws rip through her back, leaving a permanent mark as she screams in pain. Back in the present, the realization hits him like a physical blow. It was Su Luo who saved his life all those years ago, not Meow Meow. He clutches his head as a splitting headache takes over, the truth finally shattering his lies. He remembers the aftermath in the valley during the day. He held her close, feeling a bond that he would later forget. He told her he had to go home for urgent matters, but he begged her not to cry. He promised her right then and there that they would be together. He even proposed, telling her they were meant to be and they would get married when the time was right. He made a solemn promise, looking her in the eyes with total sincerity, and she promised him she would be right there waiting for him. Yin Chen realizes he's been a complete idiot, mistaking a snake like Liu Meow Meow for his savior when his true love was right in front of him. He lets out a guttural scream, calling her name in absolute agony. He pulls her into a tight embrace, whispering that this is all his fault and he's the real villain of this story. Meanwhile, the actual villain Liu Meow Meow is back at her own quarters, slamming the door in a fit of pique. She's met by her mother, who is just as toxic, immediately asking if Su Luo is still alive. Meow Meow tells her that the body is being kept at the Velvet Court. Her mother reminds her that Su Luo ruined her chances of ever having kids, so she needs to make sure the job is finished. Meow Meow scoffs, promising that when she touched the body in the coffin, it was ice cold. The mother smiles, thinking they've finally avenged their family. Meow Meow is confused, asking what her mother means by that. The mother reveals the ultimate tea. Yin Chen's mother was a princess of the Western Kingdom. When the barbarians invaded and her home was being destroyed, Su Luo's father was the one who refused to send any help, leading the prince's mother to commit suicide in despair. Meow Meow starts laughing like a maniac, loving the drama. She realizes the prince's adoration for his mother is exactly why he was so conflicted and cruel toward Su Luo. She smirks, thinking Su Luo was doomed from the very start because of a blood feud she didn't even start. Suddenly, a maid bursts in, panicking because the prince has fainted from the shock. Meow Meow rushes out with a lantern, acting like the concerned lover again. They arrive at the palace wing where Yin Chen is being treated. He's lying in bed and Meow Meow is right there, fake crying and begging him to wake up. His eyes snap open, but they aren't filled with love, they're filled with a cold, terrifying intensity. She tries to play it off, saying, "I'm here, it's Meow Meow," but the vibe is completely ruined. He ignores her, his hand gripping the sheets as he forces himself to sit up. He demands to know where Su Luo is, and Meow Meow can only watch in shock as he bolts. He runs out into the freezing snow barefoot, his mind on one person. He reaches the doors of the Velvet Court, screaming her name with everything he has left. But when he bursts inside, his face drops, the bed is completely empty and Su Luo is gone. Yin Chen is absolutely losing it because his wife's body just pulled a Houdini and vanished from the palace. He demands to know what happened to the princess, but the guards are shaking in their boots because they have no idea. They claim she was already dead when they left her, but that's not an answer he's willing to accept. He literally has a sword to their throats, making it clear that failure to find her is not an option. If they don't find her, he promises they'll meet the same fate as the man he just ended. The guards scramble to obey, knowing their boss is one bad mood away from a total massacre. Outside, the snow is falling as Yin Chen stands alone, looking like a completely broken man. He eventually collapses into the frost, the weight of his guilt and the cold reality of his loss finally crushing him. Internally, he wailed, "I didn't even give her a change of clothes before she disappeared into the cold." Back inside, he's putting the pressure on the staff to think harder or face the consequences of their incompetence. A maid begs for forgiveness, terrified that he'll sentence her to death just like the others. She admits she fled like a coward the night before because she didn't want to be buried alive alongside the princess. Yin Chen wipes his hands with a cloth, his patience thinner than a sheet of paper. He barks out orders to find any news on the whereabouts of young Minner. But his men are coming up empty-handed yet again. He can't wrap his head around how the bodies of both the mother and the child just vanished into thin air. He stares into the distance, desperately wondering where Su Luo and the boy could possibly be. Meanwhile, over at the Orchid Court, things are getting spooky as night falls. Rumors are flying through the palace that the princess's body disappeared without a single trace. Meow Meow's mother wonders if the girl is actually still alive and just dipped out on her own. But Meow Meow is convinced that's impossible, remembering how she personally saw her rival lying in that coffin. She insists she saw her dead with her own 2 eyes, so there's no way she walked out. Suddenly, the door creaks open, sending a chill down their spines. The two of them look like they've seen a ghost as they tremble in fear at the unexpected visitor. It's just Yin Chen, and Meow Meow immediately switches into her fake nice mode, inviting him to come in and take a seat. He's not there for a social visit, though. He's there to play detective. The ladies are sweating bullets, wondering what kind of interrogation he's about to drop. Meow Meow offers to tell him everything she knows about Su Luo if it helps, trying to maintain her innocent facade. He shuts that down and asks a very specific question. Where exactly were they when they met for the first time? Meow Meow is caught off guard, wondering why he's suddenly bringing up the past and if he misses her sister. Yin Chen doesn't care for the deflection and demands she answer the question immediately. She recalls the Valley of the Wolves, a place that was definitely not a 5-star vacation spot for a princess. Back in the day, the two sisters were out in the woods, even though Meow Meow was terrified of the predators crawling around. That's when Rur the real MVP spotted a man lying in the tall grass. It was Yin Chen, looking like a snack even while he was unconscious and injured. Meow Meow's only thought was how incredibly handsome he was, showing where her priorities were even back then. Rur checked his pulse and realized he was still breathing. She immediately started helping him while Meow Meow just stood there like a background extra. Rur told Meow Meow Miao to run and get help quickly while she stayed behind to protect the stranger. Back in the present, Miao tries to spin the story to make herself look like the hero who brought him home. Yin Chen listens, but internally, he's suspicious, thinking, her story is all wrong, and my memory of that night is way too blurry. He turns to leave without another word, his cape swirling in the wind. Miao lets out a huge sigh of relief, thinking she successfully dodged a bullet and he doesn't know the truth. Fast forward to 2 months later at the Grand Court. The guards return from their mission, and Yin Chen is practically vibrating with anxiety. He demands to know if they have any news on the princess's whereabouts after all this time. The guard cowers in fear, admitting it was a bad lead and they still haven't found her. Yin Chen hits his limit and throws a pitcher at the poor guy's head in a fit of rage. The guard barely avoids the flying ceramic as it shatters against the floor. Yin Chen looks like he's about to lose his mind, ordering them to widen the search and find her no matter what. He grabs the guard by the hair, making sure his orders are loud and clear. The terrified man promises they will definitely find her this time. Just then, Miao walks in with some tea, trying to play the role of the supportive partner. She puts on a bright smile, acting like she's just worried about how distracted he's been lately. Yin Chen is at his limit and tells her he doesn't have time for nonsense. He swats the tray out of her hands, sending the tea splashing everywhere. He tells her to get out, his patience for fake concern being at a literal zero. Later that night, Miao's mother is laying into her, mocking her for not being able to keep a man interested. She points out that even with his bride dead, the prince is still obsessed with the memory of her sister over her. Miao is fuming, asking what her mother is trying to say. Her mom reminds her that without her intervention, Miao would have been kicked out of the kingdom in a heartbeat. Internally, Miao is screaming, "It's always about Raoer. Why won't she just stay dead?" Her mom tells her to seize the opportunity and make the prince hers once and for all. She warns her that plenty of other girls are just waiting to swoop in and take the princess's place if she fails. Miao whispers that he won't even look at her unless it involves her sister. Her mother just grits her teeth, clearly thinking her daughter is not built for the high-stakes game they're playing. A guard sprints into the palace like his life depends on it, nearly tripping over his own feet. He gasps out the news that they've finally found the princess, nearly giving Yin Chen a heart attack mid-sip. The prince is absolutely shook, his tea-drinking session officially ruined by the shock. He doesn't waste a second, dropping his cup and pulling a full-on Olympic sprint toward her location. He skids to a halt outside the door, his heart probably doing backflips against his ribs. Even in a crisis, he's got to maintain that main character energy. So he takes a second to neaten his robes and fix his hair. His guard gives him a thumbs up, basically saying, "You're looking fire, boss, go get her." With a deep breath, Yin Chen steps inside to face the woman he's been hunting for months. He's practically trembling, whispering her name as if he's terrified she might vanish into thin air. Su Luo turns around, looking like a literal angel in a veil, and immediately shouts his name with a huge smile. Yin Chen doesn't hesitate for a second, drawing her close as if he's trying to fuse their souls together. He pulls her into a crushing embrace, and honestly, Su Luo is just trying to stay conscious as she gasps that she can't breathe. Internally, Yin Chen is short-circuiting because her vibe is totally different. It's like she's been reset to factory settings from when they first met. She looks at him with pure adoration, mentioning it's been a whole year since they last saw each other. Yin Chen is left staring at her like she's speaking a foreign language, his brain failing to process the timeline. She starts talking about their marriage and how she's been waiting patiently for him in Herbal Canyon. She asks if he's finally changed his mind about their future, and Yin Chen is officially worried about her mental state. Cut to the palace gardens where the cherry blossoms are in full bloom, setting the mood for a romance reboot. Su Luo waves at him with a big, naive smile, looking more cheerful than she's been in the entire series. Yin Chen forces himself to compose his features, deciding to play along with whatever is happening to her. He tells her she must be exhausted from such a long journey to get here. He holds her hand gently, offering to have a massive meal prepared to welcome her home. He pulls her along, and she's just happy to be included in the prince's plans. She admits she's always wanted to try the palace food, acting like a total tourist in her own home. Seeing her this happy and carefree, Yin Chen vows to himself that he's never letting her go again. By nightfall, the Grand Court is looking cozy and expensive under the winter stars. Yin Chen fixes his robes again, clearly wanting everything to be perfect for their first real date in ages. He invites her to dig in, and the table is stacked with enough high-end cuisine to feed a small army. They sit down together, and for the first time in months, the atmosphere is actually peaceful. Su Luo is practically drooling over the spread, ready to risk it all for a bowl of rice. Yin Chen watches her intensely, hoping the chef didn't miss a single seasoning on her favorites. She's having the time of her life, and Yin Chen just can't take his eyes off her radiant face. Eventually, she notices his creepy staring and calls him out on it with a laugh. She asks if he's worried she'll pull another disappearing act if he looks away for a second. Yin Chen gets a bit embarrassed and focuses on his own meal to hide his blushing. He starts piling meat onto her plate like a grandma at a holiday dinner. Su Luo looks at the mountain of food and wonders if he's secretly trying to fatten her up. She pouts, joking that he's just trying to give himself an excuse not to marry her. He reaches over to wipe a stray grain of rice from her face, his touch surprisingly soft. She tells him he needs to eat too because he's looking a bit too thin to protect her properly. Later, in the sleeping chambers, Su Luo is finally out cold after a big meal. The scent of incense fills the room as she sleeps peacefully under the covers. Yin Chen sits by her side, looking like a man burdened with way too many secrets. He stares at her, his expression a toxic mix of obsession and genuine relief. When a guard enters, Yin Chen immediately shushes him, not wanting to wake his sleeping beauty for anything. The guard reports that the doctor has finally arrived to check her out. Yin Chen gets up to talk, asking exactly how the search party managed to find her in the first place. Apparently, they were searching through small villages and overheard someone asking for directions to the Chen Palace. The guard explains that it was almost too easy, as she was just wandering around looking for him. Yin Chen tells him to keep his mouth shut about her return and lets the doctor in. He demands the doctor get to work immediately, his patience wearing thin. The doctor checks her pulse while Yin Chen looms over him like a final boss guarding a treasure. Internally, the prince reveals he spiked her soup with sleeping powder just to make sure she didn't try to bolt in the middle of the night. He asks for the verdict, and the doctor rises with a very serious face. The diagnosis is wild. She's got amnesia as a way of coping with a massive traumatic experience. Yin Chen is shocked, wondering how her brain could just hit the delete button on all their history. He asks if she'll ever get her memories back, but the doctor isn't making any promises. The old man looks worried, stroking his beard while he calculates the risks. He warns Yin Chen that forcing her to remember her trauma could actually lead to greater harm. Yin Chen's eyes go dark as he realizes this is actually a golden opportunity for a total relationship reboot. He decides that if she can't remember the past, they'll just start over with a fresh start where he's the hero. He issues a decree to the entire kingdom. Nobody is allowed to mention his previous marriage or Su Luo's time as a prisoner. To make things even more permanent, he officially strips Liu Miao Miao of her title, essentially deleting her from the palace. He threatens everyone with dire consequences if they disobey, and the guards are way too terrified to say a word. Meanwhile, in the woods outside the kingdom, a different kind of drama is brewing. A group of masked assassins is ready to strike on Lord Gong's order. They hide in the bushes as horses approach through the snowy path. Imperial Lord Gong Sunyu is waiting, smirking because the weapons smuggler, Tuoba Nanfeng, has finally shown his face. Lord Gong is dressed to impress, looking like a high-ranking official with some very shady plans. Tuoba rolls up on a horse, looking every bit the rugged outlaw leader. He apologizes for the wait, though his tone says he doesn't care at all. He's got a scar across his face and a smug grin that screams he's up to no good. Lord Gong skips the small talk and demands to inspect the shipment of goods. They head deeper into the woods to check out the illegal haul. Tuoba orders his men to open the crates, revealing a massive stash of high-quality swords. He brags that this batch will line Gong's pockets quite nicely. Lord Gong examines a blade, noting that men die for money just like birds die for food. He admits the quality is excellent, which is perfect for his upcoming rebellion. Tuoba gets hyped, talking about using these weapons to avenge his people and take the land back. But suddenly, Lord Gong flips the script and points the sword right at Tuoba's throat. Tuoba is completely blindsided, asking if the man has actually lost his mind and wants to kill him. Lord Gong calls him out for framing Lord Su just to consolidate power for himself. Tuoba realizes their partnership is officially over, and they don't hold the same ideals. He orders his men to attack, and the forest erupts into a deadly ambush. His guards draw their swords, ready to defend their master with their lives as the betrayal goes full throttle. The woods are turning into a straight-up graveyard as Tuoba Nanfeng's men get absolutely wrecked in an ambush. The assassins are closing in fast, and things are looking grim for the former smuggler. One of his loyal guards holds the line, screaming at Tuoba to cheese it while he still can. It's a total bloodbath, and Tuoba is forced to watch his men get dropped as he makes a run for it. Internally, he's devastated, mourning his brothers even as he prepares to bolt. Lord Gong isn't about to let his target escape that easily and orders his men to hunt him down. A high-stakes horse chase breaks out through the forest as Tuoba tries to lose his pursuers, but Lord Gong is right on his tail, basically telling him he's cooked. The Lord pulls out a crossbow, aiming to end this deal permanently. Tuoba realizes he's trapped at the edge of a massive cliff. Rather than being captured, he takes a literal leap of faith into the abyss. Lord Gong just smirks at the edge, convinced that a fall from that height is guaranteed game over. Meanwhile, Master Baimo arrives at the Su Palace, and the place has been completely trashed. As the master of Herbal Canyon, he's on a mission to figure out what happened to the Su family. He looks at the blood-stained wreckage, swearing to finish the job he was entrusted with. He orders his subordinates to flip every single stone in the search for clues. His team gets to work immediately, showing total respect to their master. The interior of the palace is a disaster zone, with furniture tossed around like it's nothing. Baimo surveys the mess, trying to piece together the struggle. He starts flipping through abandoned books and documents on the floor. He realizes the attack was way too organized to be a random raid. He picks up a tiny scrap of evidence that might lead him to the truth. One of his men reports back that they couldn't find any solid proof of who the attackers were. Baimo tells them to head back, keeping his own suspicions to himself. Back at the Grand Court, the atmosphere is a lot more peaceful, but it's all built on lies. Su Luo wakes up from a nap, immediately calling out for Yin Chen like a lost puppy. Yin Chen is right there, playing the doting fiancé with a basin of water. She's a bit dazed, wondering if she's been sleeping for too long. He gets close and personal, trying to keep her comfortable and distracted. He claims she's just exhausted from their long journey, totally erasing her trauma. Su Luo mentions that if they're getting married, she needs to head home and get her father's permission. Internally, Yin Chen is short-circuiting because her home is literally a pile of rubble now. She notices his weird expression and asks if something is on his mind. He starts aggressively wringing a towel, trying to cook up a believable lie. He tells her she should stay at the palace for a while, acting like her father might not approve of him. He's desperate to keep her calm and far away from the truth about her family. Su Luo falls for the manipulation, giving him a sweet smile. He promises that he'll accompany her back home in a few days after she's rested. They're officially on the same page, and Yin Chen thinks he's successfully dodged a massive bullet. She talks about how she's always wanted to see the luxury of the royal palace. He pulls her into a hug, suggesting they take a trip into town to celebrate. However, for a split second, Su Luo's eyes sharpen into a cold glare. It looks like the amnesia might not be a permanent fix. The two head out to the capital city market, and Su Luo is instantly vibing with the atmosphere. They stroll through the crowded streets like a regular happy couple. She starts trying on masks and smelling perfumes, totally distracted by the shiny things. Yin Chen is the ultimate sugar daddy, telling the shopkeeper he'll buy the entire stock. Suddenly, Su Luo spots something and runs off in excitement. She finds a pair of figurines that look exactly like the two of them. Yin Chen agrees they look just like them, but he's already thinking of the next place to take her. While they're out on their date, Liu Miao Miao is having a total meltdown at the palace. She's fuming about being stripped of her title and wants to know who this new woman is. She tries to barge into the prince's quarters, but the guards block her path. They inform her that the prince is out for the day with his new lady friend. Liu Miao Miao is absolutely livid, realizing she's being completely replaced. Back in town, the couple stops for a meal at a high-end restaurant. Su Luo is being super affectionate, offering Yin Chen a bite of her food. They're having a quiet lunch until some unwanted guests show up. A drunk noble named Gong Sunyan starts thirsting over Su Luo, ignoring the fact that she's already with someone. Su Luo is completely weirded out, wondering who this creep is. Yin Chen loses his cool immediately, telling the guy to get lost before he catches these hands. Gong Sunyan just laughs, not recognizing the prince and talking a big game. His buddies encourage him to just grab the girl and take her. That was the wrong move, and Yin Chen is ready to start a riot. He grabs a wooden barrel and delivers a massive knockout punch to the drunk's face. The creeps end up in a pathetic, bruised pile on the floor. Yin Chen screams at them to get out of his sight. The thugs scramble away, throwing out the classic "this isn't over" line as they bolt. Midday sun hits the capital as the market date continues, and everything looks picture perfect. The couple decides to take a breather at the Bright Fortunes Cafe to escape the crowd. Yin Chen immediately goes into overprotective mode, pulling Su Luo into a hug and asking if she's actually okay after the earlier confrontation. The air is thick with romantic sparkles, making them look like the ultimate power couple. He gently caresses her face, turning the riz up to maximum levels. Su Luo is absolutely folded, blushing so hard she could probably be seen from space. Yin Chen can't help but smirk, teasing her about how easily she gets jealous over him. He's clearly enjoying the fact that she's marking her territory. She shyly admits that she couldn't just stand there while those random NPCs talk trash about him. They share a quiet moment holding hands, finally getting some peace. Yin Chen decides her current look is a literal magnet for trouble and suggests they find her some plainer clothes so they can walk around without being swarmed by thirsty fans. The shopkeeper waves them off, probably relieved the drama is leaving his store. Meanwhile, the vibe at the imperial court is absolutely toxic. Inside the palace, a table gets slammed so hard it probably left a dent. The imperial lord's son is having a massive gamer rage moment, swearing that Yin Chen's woman is going to pay for what happened. He's fuming, unable to cope with the fact that he got publicly humiliated by a royal reject. When his maid tries to clean up his bruised face, he lets out a pathetic ouch. He's so tilted that he kicks her out, unable to handle anyone seeing him in this weak state. He immediately orders his subordinate to start a background check on Su Luo. He wants every bit of tea who she is, where she came from, and why she's with Yin Chen. Even with a black eye, he's creepily obsessed with her beauty, proving he hasn't learned his lesson. Suddenly, his father bursts in and calls him a complete fool. The brat's tough guy act evaporates instantly. The father is livid, demanding to know why his son is dumb enough to mess with Yin Chen of all people. The son whines like a toddler, complaining that Yin Chen was the one who started the physical fight. Dad hits him with a reality check. Yin Chen is the king's relative, and they need to stay on his good side or risk getting cancelled by the throne. The son pretends to agree, looking completely frustrated by the lecture. He swats his father's hand away, clearly over the conversation. Internally, he's seething, thinking the king can deal with him. But I'm going to make his life a living hell. Out on the outskirts of the capital, the plot thickens. Master Bai Mo is leading a group through the woods, likely investigating the palace raid. Suddenly he stops, his eyes narrowing as he spots something out of place. There's a body slumped against the rocks in the distance. He tells his guards to go check if the person is still among the living. It turns out to be Tuoba Nanfeng, and he is in rough shape with an arrow sticking out of his chest. Bai Mo approaches cautiously, doing a quick medical assessment. He checks for a pulse while Nanfeng remains unconscious. Since the guy is still clinging to life, Bai Mo orders the guards to build a makeshift stretcher. As they hoist the wounded man up, his arm falls limp. Baimo catches a glimpse of a very specific tattoo on his wrist. He's visibly shook, realizing this isn't just some random traveler. He rolls up the sleeve to confirm his suspicions. It's the mark of the Western Kingdom, the same people Lord Su opposed. When the guards ask if something is wrong, Baimo keeps his poker face on and tells them to keep moving. Internally, he's connecting the dots, realizing this man is the smoking gun for the Su Palace destruction. Back at the manor, the moon is high and the mood is finally chill. Su Luo is passing the time playing with masks and dolls, looking surprisingly relaxed. Yin Chen announces his return, calling out to her through the doors. She decides to jump scare him with a tiger mask, letting out a playful roar. Yin Chen just laughs it off, glad to see her in such a good mood for once. He tells her he's got a surprise and asks her to follow him. He leads her to the balcony and tells her to close her eyes for the big reveal. He starts the countdown, looking like he's about to drop the hottest gift of the year. Suddenly, the sky explodes with massive fireworks. Su Luo is completely mesmerized by the show. She looks at him with stars in her eyes, asking if he really did all this just for her. Yin Chen confirms it, asking if she likes the display. She's absolutely thrilled, feeling like a literal princess. He pulls her close, whispering that he'd do anything just to see her happy. Internally, she's feeling a bit overwhelmed, thinking, he's way too good to me. How am I supposed to handle this? The next day, a fresh layer of snow covers the imperial palace. The bratty lord's son is outside playing with a snowball, looking way too calm. His spy arrives with a major update on the research mission. The guard drops the bombshell. Yin Chen's mystery woman is actually the daughter of Lord Su. The brat's jaw drops as he realizes she's the child of a traitor who was beheaded for conspiracy. He double-checks the facts, and the guard swears on his life that it's true. The villain finally gets a win, realizing he now has enough dirt to bury Yin Chen for harboring a criminal's daughter. Meanwhile, Su Luo is acting on her own, heading straight for Yin Chen's study. The guards try to block her, acting like she's trying to break into a high-security vault. She isn't having it, demanding to know why she's being gate-kept from the room. The guards are sweating, terrified that the prince will have their heads if she enters. She gives them a cold look and tells them to move. She starts tossing the place, looking for something specific. She's digging through scrolls and documents like she's searching for a lost password. She even starts checking inside the massive decor vases. Internally, she's growing desperate, wondering where he could have hidden the truth about her past. The guards watch from the sidelines, completely helpless as she wrecks the office. Suddenly, the door swings open and Yin Chen walks in, catching her in 4K. He calls her name, his voice full of concern. But instead of being mad that she's snooping, he just looks at her with a soft, affectionate smile, seemingly oblivious to the fact that she's about to uncover his biggest secret. Su Luo is playing the ultimate devoted wife card as she presents a handmade gift to Yin Chen. The prince is totally simping, looking at the new robe with literal heart eyes. She tells him she slaved away on this for hours just to surprise him. Internally, she smirked. A little guilt-tripping goes a long way. Yin Chen grabs her hands, feeling how cold they are, and his protective instincts go into overdrive. He goes full alpha mode, shouting for his guards to get inside immediately. He drops a massive rule change. From now on, Su Luo has VP access to every corner of the palace. He finishes the command with a deadly threat, stating that anyone who crosses her will be catching a one-way ticket to the afterlife. He looks absolutely serious and the air in the room turns heavy. The guards are completely shook, bowing so hard they're practically folding into origami. With the trash handled, he turns back to his girl with a soft smile, asking what the special occasion is. She plays it off cool, saying she just wanted to show some appreciation. He's totally hooked, promising to cherish the gift forever. However, he warns her not to waste her time on manual labor next time and just hire a professional. Suddenly, the doors swing open to a literal winter wonderland. Su Luo's eyes light up because it's finally snowing outside. She drags him toward the courtyard like a kid on a sugar high. Standing in the snow, she looks like a whole aesthetic. Yin Chen tries to play the worried boyfriend role, grabbing her coat and telling her it's too cold to be out there in just a dress. She's not hearing it and demands an immediate snowball fight. He agrees, but only if she puts the coat back on first. He wraps her up nice and cozy, making sure she's bundled. Then, boom! She blindsides him with a direct hit to the chest. Yin Chen is practically short-circuiting from the sudden cold. He laughs it off, calling her out for being a sneaky player. He starts prepping his own icy projectile, while she ducks for cover. Su Luo giggles, wondering where he disappeared to in the whiteout. The guards are watching from the sidelines like they're witnessing a rare rom-com. They're just relieved they didn't lose their heads earlier. Su Luo admits this is the most fun she's had in ages. Yin Chen goes full softy, offering to build her a snowman. She spots a perfect opportunity near a snow-covered tree. While he's busy crafting a masterpiece, she gives the trunk a massive shake. A literal snow nuke falls right on his head. She points and laughs, joking that she made a snowman out of him too. Meanwhile, in a much more serious part of the kingdom, the sun is shining over a quiet clinic. Master Baimo is heading back to check on his high-stakes patient. A guard pulls up on a horse, shouting for the master. It turns out they haven't been able to find any dirt on the mystery man they rescued. Internally, he sighed. Why is finding one guy's ID harder than curing a plague? Inside, the patient, Tuoba Nanfeng, is awake but clearly struggling with his injuries. Baimo tells him to stay horizontal if he doesn't want his wounds to reopen. Nanfeng asks who he is, and the healer introduces himself as the master of Herbal Canyon. He explains he found the guy's nearly dead body while traveling back from the capital. Nanfeng is genuinely grateful for the save. Bai Mo brushes it off, saying it's just his job to help people who are suffering, but the vibes get suspicious when Bai Mo asks how a simple merchant ended up with an arrow in his chest. Nanfeng lies through his teeth, claiming he was just ambushed by a band of thieves. Bai Mo isn't buying it for a second, wondering if this guy is actually a secret agent. Nanfeng tries to flip the script, asking what a healer was doing in the capital. Bai Mo drops a major plot point. He was friends with Lord Su and went there to investigate the palace massacre. Nanfeng's face goes pale at the mention of the Su family. He tries to play it cool, saying everyone has heard of the legendary Lord Su. Internally, Nanfeng realized his savior was basically the inner circle of the family his kingdom helped destroy. Back at the Grand Court, it's noon and the snow has settled. The snowmen they built are still standing as a reminder of their playful morning. Yin Chen tells Su Luo the market is probably empty, but there's one secret spot he wants to show her. He hands her some hot ginger soup to make sure she doesn't catch a cold. She takes the bowl eagerly. She chugs the whole thing in record time. Now she's hyped and ready to head out. Yin Chen hesitates, suggesting she change into something less remarkable, basically peasant clothes to avoid drawing a crowd. Su Luo immediately throws a tantrum, refusing to wear ugly boy clothes. He caves instantly because he's wrapped around her finger. They arrive at the noon tea house. The place looks pretty high-end and traditional. Su Luo is skeptical, wondering what's so special about a tea shop. He promises she'll see the appeal once they get inside. They're greeted by a polite waiter as they enter the busy room. Su Luo admits the vibes are actually pretty great. The waiter leads them to a prime table right up front. Yin Chen flashes his wealth, dropping a gold nugget as a tip and making the waiter's entire year. A storyteller is in the middle of a hype performance about a fallen army. He tells the crowd to stick around for even crazier tales. Su Luo is clapping and cheering, totally caught up in the drama. She thinks the tea house entertainment is top tier. The storyteller then shifts to recent events to keep the audience hooked. He announces the next story is the true account of the destruction of the Su Palace. He waves his fan, preparing to dive into a tale of betrayal and blood. Su Luo's trauma response kicks in and she stands up abruptly. She lunges forward and grabs the man's clothes, demanding to know if what he said is the truth. In front of the entire tea house, she screams that Lord Su is her father. The crowd is stunned, judging her for the massive scene she's making. Yin Chen's heart drops as he tries to grab her, knowing her secret identity just got caught in 4K. Su Luo is having a total meltdown, demanding to know if her entire life has just been deleted and if her father is truly gone. She's desperate for answers, practically begging to know if her home is nothing more than a memory now. Yin Chen looks like he's carrying the weight of the world, clearly holding back some heavy truth. The scene shifts to a bleak, snowy afternoon at the royal cemetery. Two lonely tombstones stand in the cold, marking the final resting place of Lord and Lady Su. Internally, Yin Chen is drowning in guilt, thinking, "I'm sorry, Luo. I can't change the past, but I'll do what I can now." Su Luo collapses to her knees in front of the graves, her world completely shattered. Yin Chen explains the harsh reality because they were labeled as criminals. He had to bury them out here in the middle of nowhere. He looks pained as he admits he couldn't give them a proper state funeral. He promises the deceased lord Su that he will protect his daughter with his own life, even as Su Luo kneels in silence. The poor girl is absolutely losing it, sobbing as the reality of her parents' death finally sinks in. Yin Chen pulls her into a hug, whispering that she's not alone because she still has him. Su Luo looks up with tear-filled eyes, asking the million-dollar question. What exactly did her father do wrong? Yin Chen drops the political lore, explaining there were assassination plots meant to shift the power balance of the 9 clans. Su Luo isn't buying it for a second, insisting her father was a fair and kind ruler. She grits her teeth, convinced that someone framed him for the whole mess. Yin Chen tries to be the voice of reason, mentioning that there was actual evidence proving her father's involvement. He continues to console her as she cries into his chest. Internally, Su Luo is already planning her revenge arc, vowing to clear her parents' names no matter what. Fast forward half a month later to a crisp winter morning. Someone is hesitating at a door, unsure if they should enter. It's Master Bai Mo, who gets a bit of a jump scare when the door opens. Tuoba Nanfeng is standing there, looking much better, though his chibi version is clearly exhausted. He tells the master that his body is nearly healed, and he doesn't want to be a burden anymore, but before he dips, he's got some tea to spill. Bai Mo invites him inside to get out of the freezing cold. While the master gathers some parting meds for him, he insists Tuoba take a few more days' worth of supplies. That's when Tuoba drops the bombshell. Lord Su was actually framed by Imperial Lord Gong Sunyu. Bai Mo is visibly shook by this name drop. He asks Tuoba if he's actually from the Western Kingdom, and Tuoba is stunned, wondering how the master figured out his secret identity. Bai Mo simply points out that he recognized the specific markings on Tuoba's arm. Since the Western Kingdom is already destroyed, Bai Mo says he has no reason to snitch on him. However, he needs to know why Tuoba thinks Gong Sunyu is the one behind Lord Su's downfall. Tuoba hands over a stack of letters, claiming they hold all the answers. He makes the master promise not to open them until he's safely gone. With the evidence handed over, Tuoba walks away into the snow. Meanwhile, over at the Orchid Court, things are getting spicy. Liu Miao Miao is fuming because the prince hasn't visited her in days. She's convinced some new woman has seduced him, and she's losing her mind over it. Her maid rushes in, looking like she's seen a ghost. Liu Miao meands to know who this new mystery woman is. When the maid hesitates, Liu Miao Miao loses her temper, screaming at her to spit it out. The maid finally gasps that the new woman looks exactly like the dead Princess Su Luo. Liu Miao Miao's brain practically short circuits. She knows that's impossible because she personally watched Su Luo suffocate in her coffin. The maid insists she saw her with her own eyes and wouldn't lie. Liu Miao Miao is caught between denial and pure panic, wondering if Su Luo has actually come back from the grave. She decides it's time to pay this new woman a little visit to see for herself. Later that night at the Grand Court, Liu Miao Miao is creeping around with a plate of snacks. She tries to act natural, claiming she made dessert for the prince. She steps inside, calling out for her man, but instead she sees a familiar silhouette behind a curtain. She demands to know who dares to be in the prince's private room, but when the woman turns around, it's Su Luo herself. Liu Miao Miao looks like she's about to have a heart attack, convinced she's seeing a literal ghost. She screams and goes into full panic mode, dropping her plate and fleeing the room in total terror. Su Luo stands there with her arms crossed, looking absolutely unbothered. Internally, she scoffs, "Ha! She's usually so vicious. How satisfying to see her flee like a scared rabbit." She stares at the broken mess on the floor, thinking that the day to settle their score is coming very soon. Back at the tea house, the investigation continues. Su Luo, wearing a veil to stay low-key, confirms that Gong Xinyu was definitely involved. She mentions the letters from Tuoba also name him. Yin Chen realizes they should have seen this coming since Gong Xinyu was always beefing with Lord Su. Unfortunately, a few letters might not be enough to take down such a high-ranking official. The Imperial Lord is a cautious snake, so finding more evidence is going to be a grind. They realize they can't get close to the big boss directly, so they need to target someone in his inner circle instead. Yin Chen looks determined, ready to risk it all to get the truth. Back at the palace, Yin Chen leads Su Luo to the Grand Court. He introduces her to Donger, her new personal handmaid. Su Luo gives a cute, friendly greeting, as Yin Chen orders the maid to move all of Su Luo's things to Magnolia Villa. Su Luo is a bit blindsided by the sudden move, asking what this is all about. Yin Chen grabs her shoulder, looking her dead in the eye, and declares that from now on, she isn't leaving his side. He vows to protect her with his life, leaving Su Luo totally speechless as she stares at her overprotective prince. Yin Chen looks like the ultimate dream husband as he reminds Su Luo that he promised her parents he'd look after her. Su Luo, however, has a lot on her mind and brings up her late parents. Internally, she's feeling the weight of the world, telling him she needs a rain check on the marriage and family life until she settles the score for her past. Yin Chen doesn't even blink, pulling her into a hug and promising to wait for as long as it takes. Su Luo starts breaking down, crying over how much she misses them. Yin Chen is immediately concerned, asking what's wrong. She buries her face in his chest, sobbing about how helpless she feels because she can't make the people who hurt her family pay. But then, she drops a bombshell. While visiting their graves this morning, she found a mysterious letter. This isn't just any letter. It's straight-up receipts proving the Imperial Lord was bribing remnants of the Western Kingdom. She shows the letter to Yin Chen, convinced this is the key to proving her father was framed. Grabbing his arm, she begs him to use his massive network and connections to gather more evidence against Gong Xinyu. Yin Chen tries to be the voice of reason, telling her to slow her roll for a second. He asks the million-dollar question, who exactly left that letter there for her to find? Su Luo is stumped, guessing it might have been an old friend of her dad's. Yin Chen isn't buying it, pointing out that this could easily be a trap or a frame job against Gong Xinyu. He warns her that slandering a member of the Imperial Court is a one-way ticket to a bad time. Su Luo isn't backing down, reminding him that Gong Xinyu has always been her father's enemy and is low-key in league with the Western Kingdom. She pleads with him one more time to help her. Seeing her desperation, Yin Chen finally caves, promising to look into it, but only in private. He vows that if Gong Xinyu really did frame her father, he won't let the man get away with it. Su Luo is overwhelmed with gratitude, but Yin Chen tells her that thanks aren't necessary between them. Su Luo adds that Tuoba Nanfeng is also mentioned in the letter and should be investigated too. Yin Chen gives her a charming smile and agrees. Before he heads out, he tells her to stay put at Magnolia Villa and take the guards with her if she absolutely has to leave. Su Luo agrees to play it safe for now. As soon as she's gone, Yin Chen gets to work writing a secret missive. He hands it to a subordinate, ordering him to deliver it to the palace and find Tuoba Nanfeng while staying completely off the radar. Internally, he's starting to sweat, realizing Su Luo might already know way too much for her own good. Later that night, Yin Chen is sitting alone, looking incredibly brooding. A door pushes open, and Gong Xinyu walks in, looking confused about the late-night summons. Yin Chen doesn't waste time pouring some tea and telling Gong Xinyu he doesn't want to get in the way of his hustle, but he warns him that if he leaves such a massive trail of evidence connecting him to the Western Kingdom, Yin Chen won't be able to cover for him. Gong Xinyu is so blindsided he literally spills his tea. He tries to act indignant, asking what he's being accused of. Yin Chen slams his hand on the table, telling him he doesn't care about the details of his dealings with Tuoba Nanfeng, but if he gets caught, it's game over and execution for everyone. Gong Xinyu tries to play the "I did it for you" card, claiming they are both just pawns in a much bigger game. Internally, Gong Xinyu is feeling smug, thinking that since Tuoba Nanfeng is gone, Yin Chen has zero leverage. He even brings up Yin Chen's mother, reminding him that she was from the Western Kingdom too, and asking if he doesn't want to see it restored. Yin Chen has had enough, slamming the table again and revealing he has the letter. Even if it's not definitive proof of collusion, there's already an investigation happening at the palace. He tells Gong Xinyu to tie up his loose ends, because it'll be bad for both of them if the other clans find out the truth. Gong Xinyu promises to keep his mouth shut, but internally, his priority has shifted. He needs to find that letter immediately. Before Gong Xinyu leaves, Yin Chen tells him to teach his son some manners. He demands a formal apology from the brat in the coming days, leaving Gong Sunyu looking absolutely stressed. Meanwhile, back at the manor, the winter vibe is strong. Liu Miao Miao is currently short-circuiting, shivering and screaming about seeing a ghost. Her maid is relieved when the lady of the house arrives. The maid explains that Miao Miao has been in a trance since yesterday, insisting she saw a ghost and making zero sense. The mother walks in and asks if she went to see Su Luo. Miao Miao is still terrified, stammering that she saw her. The mother grabs her, revealing that it wasn't a ghost. Su Luo is alive and well, and she saw her too. Miao Miao panics even harder, but her mother grabs a cup of water and splashes it right in her face to snap her out of it. It works, and Miao Miao finally calms down, looking like a drowned rat. Miao Miao immediately starts complaining, wondering how that girl is still alive and how she managed to steal the prince away. The mother warns her that if Su Luo is back for revenge, they need to delete her from the equation fast. Miao Miao is stressed, wondering how she's supposed to come up with a plan on the fly. But then, she remembers something crucial. When she saw Su Luo, the girl asked who she was. The mother realizes Su Luo might have lost her memory, which would make their job 10 times easier. Miao Miao gets a wicked look in her eye, vowing that Su Luo won't get the best of her. Suddenly, a little boy named Singer runs in calling for his auntie. He tells Miao Miao he's hungry. The mother whispers a dark suggestion. Since Miao Miao's past injuries left her barren, she should take the boy as her own. Since the prince is fond of the kid, he could be a useful pawn later. Miao Miao puts on a fake smile and offers to get him a snack. The next morning, the royal gardens are looking aesthetic as ever. Liu Miao Miao shows up out of nowhere, commenting on how lovely the plum blossoms are this year. She puts on her best innocent girl act, asking Su Luo if she remembers her. She even offers a fake apology for her past behavior, claiming they're practically sisters and begging for forgiveness. Internally, Su Luo is calling absolute cap, seeing right through this Oscar-worthy performance. Miao Miao gets close, whispering that she had nothing to do with Su Luo's past suffering. She even dares Su Luo to hit her if she still hates her, acting all impatient. Su Luo pushes her off, shouting that she has no sister and asking who she even is. Miao Miao stops and contemplates if Su Luo truly doesn't remember anything. She reminds Su Luo about the time she ran off in court like she'd seen a ghost. Internally, Miao Miao is celebrating because this amnesia is a total win for her. Su Luo asks why she's laughing, looking genuinely confused. Miao Miao practically skips away, telling Su Luo she'll leave her alone for now. But internally, she's cackling with a villainous smirk, knowing that a Su Luo with no memories is going to be way easier to deal with. The night sky hangs heavy over the capital, setting the perfect mood for some high-stakes trespassing. The Imperial Lord's residence looks like a fortress, but we all know that in these stories, security is basically just a suggestion. Gong Sunyu struts through the compound, acting like he owns the place while his subordinates bow low. He's soaking up the respect, completely unaware that his top-tier security is about to get a reality check. Little does he know, a silent shadow is perched on the roof, watching his every move like a hawk. Sunyu slips into his private study and slides the door shut, thinking he's finally in a safe space. Up on the roof, our mysterious intruder peels back a tile to get a 4K view of the Lord's secret dealings. From the rafters, the spy watches Sunyu head straight for the bookshelf, because of course that's where the loot is. He gives a decorative vase a quick twist, activating a hidden mechanism that screams, "Villain starter pack." A secret compartment pops open and he pulls out a locked red box. Sunyu lets out a sigh of relief, bragging to himself that all his precious letters are still right where he left them. He's feeling smug, convinced that the evidence is safe and sound in his greedy little hands. He clutches the papers, thinking that as long as he has these receipts of his dealings with Tuoba Nanfeng, even Yin Chen will have to do his bidding. He tucks the box back into its hiding spot, totally oblivious to the fact that he just gave away the location of his most toxic secrets. The spy in the rafters realizes this is the exact lead they've been hunting for. Underneath the mask, eyes narrow with a cold focus mission start. Sunyu heads back outside to bark orders at his guards, threatening to take their heads if even a mouse slips past them. As the guards stand there sweating, the intruder waits for the perfect window to strike. One look at those eyes and you know someone's about to have a very bad night. With a sudden, fluid motion, the intruder swings down, moving way too fast for these low-level mobs to handle. In a matter of seconds, the guards are left napping on the floor after being folded like a cheap lawn chair. The thief slips back into the room, expertly mimics the vase trick, and pops the box open. They play it smart, deciding to take only one letter so Sunyu doesn't immediately realize he's been robbed. The evidence is tucked away securely under their robes. The box is returned to the shelf, looking untouched and perfectly innocent. Mission accomplished. The intruder hits a clean exit and vanishes into the night. Later, a servant finds the guards slumped against the wall and starts losing his mind. The guards drop to their knees and start begging for their lives the moment Sunyu shows up. He's absolutely livid, mocking them by saying a whole horse could have trotted past them while they were busy catching zays. He looks like he's about to execute them on the spot, but decides to give them one final warning instead. As he storms off, the guards are practically vibrating with relief. Once the coast is clear, they start whispering, totally confused about how they all blacked out at the exact same time. Realizing their necks are on the line, they agree to just gaslight themselves and act like nothing happened. Meanwhile, things are looking a lot more peaceful over at Magnolia Villa under the crescent moon. The garden is looking aesthetic, but the vibes inside are getting a bit messy. Yin Chen is playing the part of the perfect husband, telling Su Luo to treat the place like home and let him know if she needs anything. He notices she looks like she's buffering and asks what's on her mind. Su Luo mentions that a woman named Liu Miao Miao came by to give a sorry not sorry apology and said some incredibly weird stuff. Yin Chen's face goes stone cold the second he hears that name, demanding to know every single word. Su Luo explains the story about a kid named Minner who supposedly died in a fire. She's genuinely lost, wondering why this random woman is trauma dumping on her. Yin Chen switches back to his trust me mode, explaining that Miao Miao is just the sister of his late savior, Roar. He claims he's only looking after her out of debt and that the girl is just mentally unstable and talking nonsense. Su Luo isn't completely buying it and asks again about the child Miao Miao mentioned. Yin Chen's eyes flash with a dangerous look for a split-second major red flag alert. He insists there is no child and tells Su Luo to just go get some rest because it's getting late. He tries to make a quick exit, but Su Luo isn't letting him off that easy. She stops him to ask if he's made any progress on clearing her father's name. Yin Chen gives her a soft smile, claiming he's been swamped with work but promises to get to the bottom of it eventually. He acts like the ultimate protector, telling her not to worry. As he walks away, Su Luo stands in the doorway, looking like she's finally starting to smell the cap. The next morning, Su Luo is out on a swing, probably wondering if her entire life is a lie. Her maid comes over with a heavy robe, warning her that she'll catch a cold if she stays out in the chill. Su Luo is polite, but the maid is ready to spill the latest palace tea. She reveals that Chen grounded Liu Miao Miao for 3 whole months last night. Su Luo is blindsided, wondering why he'd go nuclear on the girl if she was just talking nonsense like he claimed. Cut to a bustling inn where the real truth is about to come out. The busy market outside is the perfect cover for a secret rendezvous. Su Luo meets up with her contact, revealing she's found the evidence linking Gong Sunyu to the Western Kingdom. She explains that she infiltrated the palace and snagged the secret correspondence herself, but her contact points out that the letters mention a third party who helped orchestrate her father's downfall. Su Luo is desperate to know who else was in on the hit. She opens the letter and her world completely falls apart. The letter clearly shows that Prince Yin Chen himself agreed to the plan to frame her father. Internally, she's short-circuiting. The man who's been protecting me is the one who destroyed my family. Miao Miao is having a total meltdown because she got grounded and her plans were completely wrecked. The sounds of smashing porcelain echo through the halls of the orchid court as she throws a literal tantrum. She's absolutely losing it, shattering every vase in sight while screaming about how that woman ruined her life. Internally, she fumed. I'll make her regret ever crossing me. She's determined to handle the problem once and for all and reclaim her spot as the rightful princess. Her eyes are full of straight-up malice as she plots her next move. Her mother tries to talk some sense into her, reminding her that she's currently banned from leaving the court. She tells her to lay low, so she doesn't upset the prince any further and make things worse. The prince has already ordered Zinger to be moved to an auxiliary court for the time being. The mother pulls her into a hug, promising they'll plan their revenge while they wait for the heat to die down. It's time to be patient and play the long game. The next morning in the capital city, the markets are buzzing with life. Vendors are yelling about fresh meat and frozen persimmons to catch the attention of shoppers. Su Luo is out for a stroll, trying to clear her head after all the recent drama. She stops at a stall to check out some fruit, unaware she's being watched. Suddenly, someone touches her shoulder and calls her name. It's Gong Sunyan, and he's immediately invading her personal space by cornering her. She recognizes him as the guy who caused that massive scene at the tea house. He starts trash-talking Prince Chen right away, acting like he knows her better than she knows herself. He claims she deserves someone way more dignified, basically calling himself an upgrade over the prince. Su Luo is surprised by his sheer audacity. Internally, she realized, wait, this guy is Gong Sunyu's son. This could be useful. He invites her for a makeup tea session to apologize for his previous behavior. Su Luo decides to go along with it, thinking she might score some more dirt on her enemies. They head to a nearby tea house to talk. He promises to keep it classy and stick to tea this time instead of causing a ruckus. He lifts his cup with a smug, nice gay grin. Su Luo plays along, flashing a fake smile and saying they both shared the blame for the last encounter. He points out a small scar on his forehead, acting like it's a warrior's mark. He's trying way too hard to be charming and smooth. Then he has the nerve to apologize on Prince Chen's behalf as if he's the one in charge. He even promises to make the prince apologize to her in person one day. He's thrilled that their second meeting is going much better than the first. He goes as far as inviting her to the imperial palace, acting like he's doing her a huge favor. He takes a big gulp of tea, feeling himself. Su Luo raises her cup for a toast, keeping her guard up while he remains oblivious. Sunyan is definitely plotting something, but he has no idea who he's dealing with. Back at the Grand Court at noon, the atmosphere is tense. The older woman is sitting with Xinger, looking like she's about to launch a scheme. She's busy brainwashing the kid, making sure he knows his lines. She asks him if he remembers exactly what they discussed. Prince Chen finally arrives, and the woman immediately jumps into action. She calls out to him with fake urgency, trying to grab his attention. She drops to her knees faster than a laggy server. She begs him to forgive Miao Miao for the sake of the kid, using him as a human shield. But Chen isn't buying the sob story. She disobeyed his orders and the punishment stands. He turns to leave without a second thought, showing zero mercy. He walks away, leaving the woman desperate. Zinger starts wailing for his auntie, putting on a dramatic show. He pulls on Chen's clothes, crying his eyes out to gain sympathy. Chen drops some cold hard truth. If you mess up, you get punished, no exceptions. He looks down at the kid with a stern, unwavering face. Then he turns back to the woman and warns her that if she keeps talking nonsense in his palace, he'll have her tongue. He's clearly not in the mood for games. times. She's left shaking in her boots, completely terrified. Later in his study, Chen is catching up on some reading while waiting for news. A guard enters and reports that they've finally tracked down General Tuoba. Chen closes book, ready to hear what the general has to say. The general walks in looking like he's been through a war zone. He pays his respects to the prince, but he's clearly on edge. He's got a fresh scar and looks pretty haggard from his time in hiding. Chen asks where he's been for so long. Tuoba reveals that Gong Sunyu double-crossed him during a business deal. He barely survived being forced off a cliff and only lived because of the river below. Chen gets straight to the point and asks about their secret correspondence. Tuoba swears all evidence of their communications was well hidden, but Chen drops a bombshell. At least one letter was leaked, and Tuoba needs to find the snitch fast. The general promises he won't rest until he finds the person behind the leak. He then asks what Chen plans to do about the Imperial Lord's betrayal. He's clearly seeing red and wants revenge. He wants that bastard to pay for what he's done with his life. Chen tells him to stay calm and not rush into anything rash. Tuoba agrees to follow the prince's lead for now. Internally, Chen sighed. If these two fools keep fighting, they're going to drag me down with them. He orders his guard to keep a close eye on both of them before they do something stupid. 3 days later, Su Luo is standing at the main entrance of the royal Chen palace. Gong Sunyan shows up again, looking like he's been waiting for her. He claims he's there naturally just to see her. Su Luo asks where he's planning to take her this time. A guard spots the interaction and runs off to warn the prince. They end up in a private dining room with a table full of food. Su Luo asks what was so important that they had to talk today. Suddenly, he reaches out and grabs her hand across the table. He's convinced she's been checking him out and that they have a connection. He calls her a traitor's daughter, but says he's taken a liking to her anyway. He tells her to ditch Prince Chen and be with him instead. Su Luo is visibly disgusted and tells him he doesn't know what he's saying. He leans in close, trying to be romantic in the most cringe way possible. Su Luo has had enough and splashes her tea right in his face. He's left sputtering about bad luck while she shuts down his advances. Revenge is a dish best served with a side of internal trauma and a trip to the doctor for some below-the-belt issues. Su Luo is officially playing the long game, dropping her handkerchief to lure the creep Gong Sunyan into her trap, while plotting how to make Yin Chen pay for her public humiliation. But things escalate fast when she drops the act and slaps the absolute taste out of Sunyan's mouth for having no shame. Sunyan is blindsided, holding his cheek in shock that this woman actually had the audacity to lay hands on him. He grabs her over a table full of food, and Su Luo starts playing the damsel in distress, screaming for Prince Chen to save her. Internally, she's probably smirking, but Sunyan refuses to let go, his ego completely bruised. He starts dragging her away while she continues to scream for help, making sure everyone in the vicinity knows he's the villain. Unfortunately for Sunyan, his timing is legendary for all the wrong reasons because Yin Chen just walked through the door. The prince catches them in 4K, staring down the man who dared to touch his property. Yin Chen doesn't even waste words. He just grabs Sunyan by the back of the head like a disobedient puppy and tells him he's dead. He immediately shifts into protector mode, telling Su Luo that everything is alright now that he's arrived. As Yin Chen comforts a crying Su Luo, Sunyan tries to gaslight them, claiming he was the one being seduced. Yin Chen isn't buying the nonsense and tells the brat to keep his filthy fingers off her. Sunyan keeps pointing like he's got any authority left in this room. In reality, Yin Chen is about to short-circuit this man's entire nervous system. Sunyan starts sobbing like a toddler, threatening to tell his daddy on him, but he's just digging his own grave. He realizes way too late that the prince is actually about to delete him from the server. Yin Chen's eyes go full demon mode as he prepares to end this man's whole career. He delivers a massive kick that sends Sunyan straight to the shadow realm with a scream. The prince basically tells him he brought this humiliation on himself for being a creep. With the trash disposed of, Yin Chen carries Su Luo away, leaving Sunyan to rethink his life choices while lying on the floor. Later, the couple heads home in a carriage to process the chaos. Su Luo plays the "I'm so sorry" card, leaning into Yin Chen and apologizing for not telling him where she was going. Yin Chen is genuinely confused and asks what she was even doing with that loser in the first place. Su Luo explains her logic. She thought getting close to the Imperial Lord's son would give her a VIP pass to sneak into palace for evidence. Yin Chen scoffs, because even if Sunyan is a total fool, he wouldn't just let her stroll into the Imperial Palace that easily. Su Luo keeps the act up, apologizing for her solo mission and promising to discuss her plans next time. Internally, she's satisfied since a guard warned Yin Chen the moment she left, meaning her safety net was always active. Yin Chen pulls her into a hug, vowing to protect her so she never has to worry about creeps again. Meanwhile, over at the Imperial Lord's mansion, the vibes are absolutely rancid. Sunyan is carried in on a stretcher, screaming like he's just lost a limb. The servants are in a total panic, rushing to fetch a doctor and inform the big boss about his son's condition. Sunyan is groaning in bed, looking like a total mess. Dr. Lee finally arrives to assess the damage. When the doctor asks about his face, Sunyan points further south, indicating the real damage was down there. His father Gong Sunyu bursts in demanding to know what's going on, only to find his son has suffered a legendary beating. Sunyan grabs his dad's hand, crying about how much it hurts. Sunyu demands to know how bad the situation is. The doctor gives him the worst news possible. The facial injuries will heal, but his manhood might be permanently offline. Sunyan is absolutely devastated by the news. He realizes he might never have children, but his father promises they'll find a treatment no matter the cost. Sunyan is out for blood now, swearing he'll get his revenge on those who did this. He wants both Yin Chen and Su Luo to pay for his medical bills and his lost dignity. Sun Yu tells him to rest while he handles the prince and his woman personally. He orders the doctor to find a way to make his son a man again. though that's a pretty tall order for any medic. The next morning, the sun is out, but the tension is still at an all-time high. Yin Chen goes to check on Su Luo, uncovering her while she's still tucked in bed. He tells her she needs rest because she was having nightmares all night. Su Luo hides under the covers, playing the shook victim role to perfection. Suddenly, a guard reports that the Imperial Lord is waiting outside, and he's definitely not there for tea. The guard rushes in, looking like he's about to have a heart attack. Su Luo sits up, looking worried as Yin turns to face the music. She clings to him, acting like she's terrified of what's coming next. Yin Chen comforts her, promising she never has to be afraid as long as he's by her side. He tells the guard he'll be out to deal with the old man in the parlor shortly. Over in the palace parlor, the atmosphere is heavy enough to crush a man. Sun Yu is literally steaming, ready to explode on anyone who looks at him wrong. Yin Chen finally makes his grand entrance, looking completely unbothered. He strides in with a glare that could freeze fire. Sun Yu stands up immediately, claiming that while his son deserved a timeout, Yin Chen went way too far with the physical damage. Yin Chen claps back, reminding the old man that he already let one offense slide out of respect, but not this time. He sits down with maximum main character energy, making it clear who's in charge. He rages that he saw the humiliation of his woman with his own eyes and won't stand for it. Seeing the prince's fury, Sun Yu suddenly feels a lot less confident and starts looking guilty for his son's trash behavior. The drama is reaching a boiling point as Gong Sun Yu realizes his son is basically a write-off, and he's not about to let Su Luo get away with it. But Yin Chen isn't playing games, hitting him with a cold over my dead body before the man can even finish his sentence. Sun Yu tries to play the history card, asking the prince if he's forgotten what happened to Su Luo's father, Lord Su. He's essentially holding a grudge and a half, threatening to remind every one of the girl's traitorous roots if he doesn't get justice for his crippled son. Yin Chen's expression turns lethal as he asks if Sun Yu is actually bold enough to threaten him to his face. Sun Yu tries to play it off as business, telling the prince not to throw away their entire partnership over some silly girl. That was a massive mistake, because Yin Chen immediately shoves the old man back, declaring that nobody, and he means nobody, is laying a finger on Su Luo. Internally, Yin Chen was probably thinking, "You really thought you did something there, didn't you?" Blindsided by the prince's aggression, Sun Yu can only spit out a weak warning that Yin Chen will regret this before storming off. Yin Chen watches him leave with zero remorse, already planning his next move. He turns to his subordinate with a chilling order. Fetch General Tuoba Nanfeng because they need to have a little chat tonight. By the time morning hits Magnolia Villa, the atmosphere is heavy with fake tears and manipulation. Yin Chen enters to find Su Luo sobbing her heart out on the bed, looking like a total victim. The moment she sees him, her eyes well up with that perfect main character energy. She literally runs across the room barefoot, throwing herself into his arms. Internally, she's likely smirking, and the Oscar goes to me. Yin Chen, completely falling for the act, asks if she had another nightmare. She clings to him, begging him to stay and lie with her because she supposedly can't sleep without him. Yin Chen gives her a soft look that he reserves only for her, fully caught in her trap. He spends the morning caressing her hair while she pretends to drift off. Once she's asleep, he finally pulls away, looking like a man with a heavy burden. He leaves the room quietly, unaware that Su Luo is likely wide awake and plotting her next move. Later, Yin Chen meets with General Tuoba, who is clearly stressed about the urgency of the summons. The prince gets straight to the point, demanding an update on the plan to erase Gong Sun Yu from the equation. Tuoba is struggling with the details, unsure how to execute the hit without leaving a paper trail. Yin Chen doesn't want a messy assassination. He decides they're going to take Sun Yu to court and ruin him legally first. Tuoba bows in gratitude, relieved that the prince is providing a clear strategy. They discuss the fallout of a leaked letter, and Tuoba admits he had to execute a scapegoat to cover their tracks. Yin Chen starts writing, asking why the man would even risk such a thing. Tuoba explains the guy took advantage of his trust and struck where it hurt most. Yin Chen hands over a document, warning the general to be more careful with his inner circle in the future. Tuoba looks at the paper and smiles, seeing the court date is set for 3 days from now. To ensure no evidence remains, Yin Chen burns the secret correspondence right there in the candle flame. The next morning, the imperial court is in full session as the officials hail the arrival of the king. It's a tense scene as everyone gathers under the watchful eye of the monarch. The king, Yin Zhang, tells everyone to be at ease, but the vibe is anything but relaxed. The ruler of the northern kingdom looks down from his throne, ready to hear the grievances of the day. Gong Sun Yu immediately hits the floor, begging for a judgment against the prince. He's doing the absolute most, kneeling and groveling on the carpet. He starts crying actual tears, claiming his son was mercilessly beaten just for insulting the prince's woman, and here's the kicker, he's now infertile. The king turns a stern gaze toward Yin Chen, asking if these wild accusations are actually true. Yin Chen doesn't back down, arguing that Su Luo isn't just some woman, she's the future princess of the Chen kingdom. He basically says the insult was an attack on the crown itself. The king isn't impressed, snapping at his son to think before he acts, because violence isn't the answer to everything. Yin Chen plays the dutiful son, admitting his son made a mistake, but insisting the punishment was way out of line. Sun Yu chimes in, pointing out the suspicious timing of Su Luo's disappearance and sudden return. He demands that Su Luo be punished for her part in the mess. The king demands an explanation for this convenient reappearance. Yin Chen pulls a total lie out of thin air, claiming they faked her disappearance just to start their relationship anew. The court officials are literally whispering, what? because that sounds like a massive reach. The king looks like he's losing brain cells, asking why Yin Chen continues to act like a literal child. He decides the priority is fixing the broken son and orders Dr. Li to maximize the treatments. Sun Yu tries one last time to drag Su Luo's name through the dirt, calling her the daughter of a traitor. Yin Chen drops to his knees, respectfully but firmly stating that Su Luo had nothing to do with her father's crimes. The king looks completely over the drama, leaning his head on his hand in pure exhaustion. He finally shuts it all down, declaring his ruling is final and no more questions will be tolerated. With a sweep of his robes, the king retreats to his chambers, leaving the court in silence. Sun Yu is left reaching out in desperation, realizing his revenge plan just hit a brick wall. Later, Yin Chen catches up with his father in the gardens. The king tells him to do everyone a favor and stop causing so much trouble. He's still suspicious about the fake disappearance story Yin Chen cooked up. Yin Chen doubles down, claiming Su Luo left the palace in a rage and only recently came to her senses. The king warns him to be careful, reminding him that he was the one who presided over father's execution. He tells Yin Chen to make sure the imperial lord stops whining once and for all. Yin Chen gives a chillingly confident smile as he accepts the command. Su Luo starts the waterworks, apologizing for being such a burden to her hero. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she asks if the court ruling was too harsh on him. Yin Chen, totally down bad for her act, wipes her tears and tells her not to worry. She keeps up the performance, crying about how scared she is that Sun Yu will come back for revenge. He pulls her into a hug, promising that as long as he's around, no one will dare touch her. Internally, she's probably rolling her eyes while he asks if she's hungry and offers to fetch her some snacks. After one last look at his traumatized prize, Yin Chen heads out to handle the trash. He greets Gong Sun Yu with a smug grin that says, "I own you," making the old man realize he's been completely played. Sun Yu demands to know what the prince actually wants from him. Yin Chen pulls out the receipt's actual letters from the enemy. The letter from Tuoba Nanfeng literally outlines the entire plot to frame Lord Su for their own failure. Yin Chen demands to know why they chose to destroy Lord Su's life, but Sun Yu just gives a villainous smirk. He tries to flip the script, accusing the prince of plotting this whole thing to avenge his own mother. He claims if he goes down, they're both cooked. Yin Chen isn't fazed and gives him two paths forward: confess now and his family lives, or stay silent and everyone gets the axe. Sun Yu decides to be bold and rips the letter to shreds, laughing that there's no proof left. But Yin Chen just smiles, knowing he's got a backup plan ready to go. He calls for a guest to enter, and Sun Yu looks like he's seen a ghost. It turns out a key witness is still alive and ready to spill all the tea. Sun Yu tries to claim that testifying will only get the witness executed too, but the guy just laughs in his face. He's lost his kingdom and his people, he literally has nothing left to lose. Yin Chen stands there like a boss, having both the evidence and the witness locked in. Sun Yu is absolutely fuming as his plan falls apart. Meanwhile, over at Orchid Court, someone is stomping around in a major mood. Meow Meow is rotting in bed, wondering why Prince Chen hasn't visited her. Her maid brings in some food, asking if she's alright. Meow Meow goes full chibi rage mode because she's bored and lonely. She complains that no one has checked on her in days and she's suffocating in that room. The maid tells her she can't leave because the absolute chaos happening outside the walls. She drops the bomb that Su Luo got the Imperial Lord's son beat up by the prince. Meow Meow is disgusted, calling Su Luo every name in the book. She finally sits down to eat, but internally she's plotting Su Luo's downfall the moment she gets out of house arrest. Back in the capital, the night is still young. A cool breeze blows through the quiet streets, past the cherry blossoms. Suddenly, a masked figure is parkouring across the rooftops. He locates the target area and pulls out a stack of documents. He scatters them like it's a parade, then retreats into the shadows. The papers float down to the ground, waiting for the morning crowd to find them. The next day, a citizen finds a letter and realizes the tea is piping hot. The rumors spread instantly. The Imperial Lord is a traitor working with the remnants of the Western Kingdom. The whole town is shocked, huddled together to read the leaked documents. The letter explicitly names Sun Yu and Tuoba Nanfeng as the ones who framed Lord Su. Everyone is losing their minds over the scandal. The king is absolutely livid in court, throwing the papers at his feet. He demands Sun Yu explain himself right now. Sun Yu is shaking in his boots, kneeling on the floor in front of the throne. He looks completely broken as his lies are exposed. The court realizes Lord Su was innocent the whole time. His name is finally cleared after all the slander. Yin Chen watches with a cold smirk, knowing his plan worked perfectly. The king tells Sun Yu to keep talking and explain his crimes. Sun Yu confesses that he was greedy and met with the weapon smuggler Tuoba Nanfeng. He claims he was blackmailed into covering up the assassination attempt. He insists he was forced to frame Lord Su. The charges are read out: collusion, smuggling, and causing the death of a great lord. One of the officials points out that this usually means death for the whole family. Sun Yu begs the emperor to spare them, claiming they had nothing to do with it. Suddenly, Yin Chen speaks up, asking for the floor. The king looks skeptical but lets him talk. Yin Chen claims that Sun Yu never actually intended for Lord Su to die. He kneels before the king, putting on a show of humility. He says that as penance for his own rage against Sun Yu's son, he wants the king to show mercy and spare the rest of the family. The king ponders the request, looking deep in thought. He asks the court what they think of the prince's suggestion. The officials start whispering among themselves. They decide they have no objections to the prince's mercy. "Seconded," shouts another official, wanting to stay on the winning side. The king finally agrees to spare the family. Yin Chen looks satisfied, but his eyes are still cold as ice. He's playing the long game. The court decree is finally out, and Gong Sun Yu is officially getting the permanent nap treatment for treason and weapon smuggling. The king's messenger drops the ultimate L. Sun Yu's son is being sent to the front lines to serve as cannon fodder. Believe it or not, Sun Yu actually bows and thanks the emperor and Prince Chen for the mercy of not wiping out his entire bloodline. But the real shocker comes when the decree announces Su Luo is being promoted to the status of Yong'an princess. The messenger delivers the news with a smile, clearly happy to be the bearer of such a massive upgrade. The rest of the officials are absolutely blindsided by this turn of events, while Yin Chen just kneels there looking like the ultimate hero. Night falls over the royal Chen palace, and the atmosphere is shifting from tense to celebratory. Servants are busy moving through the courtyards, prep work in full swing. The palace maids are gossiping over plates of snacks, totally hyped about the day's drama. One of them can't even hide her excitement, practically speedrunning the latest tea about the promotion. The banquet hall is decorated with vibrant flowers, setting the stage for a victory lap. While some officials look like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop, others are just there for the free food. Yin Chen and Su Luo take their seats at the head of the table, looking like the ultimate power couple. Yin Chen plays the part of the doting fiancé perfectly, pouring Su Luo a drink while the room bustles around them. He raises his glass to toast her new title and the fact that her father's name is finally cleared of all charges. Standing up to address the room, he makes sure everyone knows Su Luo is now untouchable. Su Luo, however, looks like she's a million miles away, staring at her cup with a distracted expression. Yin Chen notices the vibe shift immediately and leans in to check on her. Internally, she's likely calculating her next move, but she puts on her best fragile face and tells him she's just homesick. She explains that now that her father is vindicated, she wants to move her parents' memorial tablets back to their ancestral temple. Yin Chen doesn't hesitate, pulling her into a protective embrace and promising to accompany her. He holds her close, letting her lean into him while the servants watch the tender moment. Su Luo wipes away a stray tear, keeping the act 100% believable. Meanwhile, over at Orchid Court, the vibe is straight up toxic. Music from the celebration drifts over the snowy rooftops, making the atmosphere even saltier. Meow Meow is pacing around, demanding to know why there's an entire opera performing in the palace. A maid arrives with dinner, but she's not exactly in a hurry to be polite. Meow Meow snaps at her, demanding an update on what happened during the court session. The maid casually drops the news that Su Luo has been elevated to princess status. The maid looks incredibly satisfied seeing Meow Meow's face crumble in real time. Meow Meow screams in disbelief, her brain probably short-circuiting at the news. A chibi maid tells her to pipe down and quit giving the staff attitude. The servant keeps her cool, even as the tray rattles from the tension. She tells Meow Meow she should probably eat something before she completely loses it, then turns to leave. In a fit of rage, Meow Meow shoves the dinner tray away, sending food flying. She's fuming, wondering how Su Luo managed to come out on top yet again. Her face is twisted in pure, unadulterated salt. Early the next morning, the couple arrives at the Su Palace. The place is guarded by stone lions and looks like it hasn't seen a cleaning crew in years. Yin Chen holds Su Luo's hand as they walk through the snowy courtyard. They push open the heavy doors, which creak with the weight of years of neglect. Yin Chen looks at the mess and offers to send in a squad of men to clean the place up. Su Luo refuses, insisting she needs to do this herself to show respect. She slides open a door to one of the side rooms. The interior is cluttered and covered in dust, a sad reminder of her family's downfall. While lifting an old chair, she notices something hidden. Her eyes go wide with surprise. It's an old portrait of herself as a child, perfectly preserved under the junk. She collapses to her knees, retrieving the scroll with trembling hands. The floodgates open, and she starts sobbing for real this time. Yin Chen pulls her into another embrace, letting her cry it out against his chest. He tries to comfort her, saying her parents wouldn't want to see her this distraught. He tells her she should focus on the good news from the court. Su Luo wipes her eyes, looking determined. She realizes she needs to tell her father's spirit that justice has finally been served. They head to the Su family ancestral temple to finish the job. Since only family members are allowed inside, she asks Chen to wait at the entrance. He agrees, playing the role of the patient partner. He hands her the basket of ritual supplies. Inside, she starts clearing away the cobwebs that have taken over the altar. She carefully places the memorial tablets back in their rightful spots. After lighting the incense sticks, she stands before the altar. The spirits of Wei Shuya and Su Zhengri are finally home. She tells them she's back, her voice shaking. Tears continue to fall as she admits how much she misses them. As she burns the spirit money, her expression shifts from grief to cold fury. Internally, she's no longer the grieving daughter. She's a woman on a mission, vowing to destroy every single person responsible for her family's execution one by one. Later that afternoon, the scene shifts to a local tavern. Yin Chen's mood has soured because he found out Su Luo went behind his back. He scolds her for meeting with Gong Sunyan alone, calling him a dangerous man and worrying that something could have happened to her. Master Bai Mo is clearly stressed out, realizing that Su Luo's thirst for blood is the only thing keeping her going. He looks at her with a mix of concern and fear, knowing she's about to dive headfirst into a pit of vipers. Su Luo isn't backing down though, doubling down on her mission to burn everything to the ground. She's literally willing to risk her life and limb just to ensure her enemies get what's coming to them. Master realizes there's no talking her out of this revenge arc, so he reluctantly gives in. However, he makes her promise not to go on any more suicide missions without a backup plan. Su Luo scoffed internally, safety. I haven't known the meaning of that word in 4 years. Master promises that from now on, she won't have to live her life looking over her shoulder. Su Luo stays quiet, her expression unreadable as she processes his protective vibe. It turns out Master has been doing some deep dive detective work into Yin Chen's sketchy memories and the mystery of Ruer. Su Luo plays the part of the grateful student, calling him her guardian angel. She thanks him for being the one to pull her back from the brink of death when everything went south. We get a glimpse into the past, showing a hand reaching out as Su Luo's world literally flipped upside down. She was falling into an abyss, completely helpless as her life as she knew it ended. Back in the present, Yin Chen is still hovering, but the memory of that night haunts her. She remembers waking up in a cold sweat, clutching Master's arm while questioning if she was even still alive. The trauma is real, and the look of pure terror on her face says it all. Master was there to catch her, reminding her that she's still in the land of the living. She broke down completely, mourning the loss of her entire family and her son in one go. Master just let her vent, knowing that holding those tears in would only break her faster. Fast forward 3 days to Bai Mo's secluded hideout on the outskirts of the kingdom. He's being extra careful with her, treating her like she's made of glass. He insists she needs some vitamin D and fresh air to clear her head. Su Luo finally finds an opening to ask the questions that have been eating at her. Master stays calm, casually peeling a snack while he prepares to spill the tea. He reveals that her father sent him a cryptic letter weeks ago, asking him to protect her. He rode like a madman to reach the Su kingdom, but the place was already a war zone by the time he arrived. Since he couldn't save the kingdom, he infiltrated the Chen kingdom and drugged Su Luo with a heavy dose of nightshade to fake her death. He couldn't stand the thought of Yin Chen burying her alive in a fancy gold coffin. He watched over her while she was in a death-like trance, waiting for the perfect moment. As soon as Yin Chen cleared out, he snatched her up and ghosted the entire palace. Master's plan is for them to retire to a peaceful canyon and live a quiet life. But Su Luo is not about that cottagecore lifestyle right now. Master is visibly confused, wondering what could possibly be more important than her safety. She drops the bombshell. She's staying in the capital to finish what she started. Internally, she growled, "I'm gonna find out what happened to my father and ruin Yin Chen's life." Master tries to talk sense to her, but she's already locked in. She lost everything in the Chen kingdom, and she's not leaving until she gets equal value in blood. Master realizes she's fully committed to this villain era. She knows he's worried, but her need for revenge is overriding her survival instinct. Seeing her resolve, Master decides the least he can do is be her tactical support. Su Luo is relieved to have her master back on her side. The next morning at Magnolia Villa, the sun is finally out, and things are looking deceptively peaceful. Su Luo's maid is busy with chores when a visitor suddenly appears. An older woman drops to her knees the moment she sees Su Luo. She's carrying a gift and acting like Su Luo is a literal goddess. Su Luo plays it cool, acting like she has no idea who this lady is. The woman begs for mercy on behalf of her daughter, Liu Miao Miao, hoping Su Luo will talk to the prince. Su Luo puts on her best confused face, wondering if Miao Miao is the crazy one everyone is talking about. The lady confirms it, looking absolutely miserable about her daughter's reputation. Su Luo pulls off a masterclass in gaslighting, acting like she pities the poor girl. The lady is terrified that if the prince keeps spreading rumors, their family is finished. Their days in the kingdom are basically numbered if Su Luo doesn't intervene. Su Luo graciously agrees to help, promising to have a word with Yin Chen. The lady is over the moon, handing over the gift as a token of her undying gratitude. Internally, Su Luo is doing a victory lap because this lady just played right into her hand. That night at the villa, the atmosphere is heavy. Yin Chen arrives with his usual entourage, looking to check in on his favorite princess. He calls out to her, acting like they're a happy couple. He's even brought a box of her favorite treats to win some points. He's trying to be the ultimate doting boyfriend, offering her a taste of the capital's best bakery. Su Luo meets him with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. He unwraps the sweets, clearly proud of himself. He even goes for the open-wide move, feeding her personally. Su Luo plays the part of the adorable airhead, praising the snacks. Yin Chen is totally hooked, offering to bring them by every day if it makes her happy. Su Luo decides it's time to cash in her chips and asks if he punished Miao Miao because of her. Yin Chen is momentarily blindsided, his expression shifting to shock. He gets anxious, probably wondering if he overdid it with the punishment. Su Luo just nods gently, keeping up the saintly princess act. She tells him he didn't need to go that far since the girl is clearly sick, and didn't mean what she said. She hits him with the ultimate request. Would you consider letting her go? Yin Chen is so whipped he can't even say no, grabbing her hands with total devotion. He's completely under her spell, looking at her like she's the most merciful soul on earth. He agrees to end Miao Miao's house arrest immediately, just because Su Luo asks. Su Luo takes another treat, her plan moving forward perfectly. She feeds him back, maintaining the romantic facade while her mind is likely miles away. Yin Chen takes a bite, feeling like he's won the lottery. He leans in close, suggesting they call it a night and get some rest together. Chaos is brewing in the palace as Yin Chen finally leaves Su Luo's room. She gives him a massive glare as he walks out the door, her saintly mask finally slipping. Internally, she scoffed. If I have to look at his fake concerned face one more time, I might actually get sick, before swatting the incense sticks off the table. The sticks crumble on the floor as she prepares for the next phase of her revenge. Yin Chen heads straight to Miao Miao's residence, looking like he's ready to crash a party. Miao Miao thinks her luck has finally turned and runs up to him, crying about how happy she is to see her prince. But Yin Chen isn't feeling the love and hits her with a cold dodge that would make a pro gamer jealous. She ends up eating the floor instead of getting a warm welcome. He stands over her like a final boss, warning her that if she doesn't watch her mouth, she's done. One more slip up and she's being kicked out of the residence for good. Miao Miao scrambles to her feet, looking like her entire world just short-circuited. She cries out, asking why he's treating her like trash after she loved him with all her heart. Yin Chen just stares at her with pure loathing, clearly done with her drama. The atmosphere turns icy as he looks down on her with zero empathy. Suddenly, Miao Miao snaps and starts laughing like a total maniac. She points a finger and catches him in 4K, calling out his hypocrisy for claiming to love Su Luo. while being the one who killed her parents and locked her in a coffin. She tells him his love is a joke and to stop being ridiculous. Yin Chen loses his cool and yanks her arm, telling her to shut her mouth. He reminds her that anyone who speaks of the past in his kingdom gets an immediate death flag. Miao Miao doesn't back down and drops a massive truth bomb. Yin Chen's own mother died because of Su Luo's father. She smirks, telling him there's no way his love for the princess could ever be real. Yin Chen is absolutely fuming, increasing the pressure on her wrist until it's practically snapping. She struggles and cries out in pain as he goes full beast mode. Finally, he shoves her away like yesterday's garbage. She collapses onto the floor, her pink dress splayed out in the middle of the room. He looms over her, calling her by her full name, Liu Miao Miao, to show he's dead serious. He grabs her chin and gives her an ultimatum. If she wants to keep her head on her shoulders, she'll never speak of this again. His eyes are cold as he delivers the threat. The tense moment is interrupted when a confused kid, Zinger, walks in on the chaos. Yin Chen realizes he has an audience and finally lets her go. He releases his grip, leaving her trembling on the ground. He tells her that he's only sparing her life tonight because of Ruo's kindness. He orders her to get up and look after the kid, saying that's the only use she has left in the palace. The kid asks what's going on, totally oblivious to the murder vibes in the room. Miao Miao pulls the boy into an embrace, but her face is twisted with pure venom as she plots her next move. The next morning, the Magnolia Villa is covered in a peaceful layer of snow. But inside, Su Luo is putting on an Oscar-worthy performance, lying in bed looking like she's about to ghost the living world. She starts coughing uncontrollably, making sure Yin Chen hears every bit of it. Yin Chen is panicking, telling her to stay calm because the doctor is already on the way. He barks at the servants, demanding to know where the heck Dr. Tai is. The doctor finally rushes in, looking like he's about to be executed if he doesn't fix this. Yin Chen tells him to move it and find out what's wrong with the princess. Dr. Tai gets to work, checking her pulse with a serious expression. He asks if she's added anything new to her diet, but Su Luo plays it innocent and says no. Yin Chen is hovering over them, demanding an update. The doctor drops the bombshell. The princess isn't just sick, she's been poisoned. Yin Chen and the maid, Donger, are both blindsided by the news. He's absolutely livid, wondering who would be bold enough to target his woman. Dr. Tai explains that someone has been lacing her food with poison leaves a slow-acting toxin that eventually leads to a permanent nap. Luckily, they caught it early, and he can flush the poison out using silver needles. He leaves to prepare his equipment, leaving a very angry prince behind. Yin Chen turns his fury on the maid, Donger, asking how this could have happened under her watch. Donger is shaking like a leaf, swearing that the princess only eats her 3 standard meals a day. Yin Chen orders an immediate investigation into the kitchen and every meal she's had recently. Internally, Su Luo smirked. Step 1 of the trap is officially set. Suddenly, Donger remembers a key detail. Lady Liu, Miao Miao's mother, brought the princess a gift a few days ago. The realization hits her like a truck, and she looks absolutely terrified. Yin Chen doesn't waste a second and demands she bring that gift to him immediately. Su Luo keeps up the act, letting out another weak cough. Yin Chen tries to comfort her, stroking her hair and promising that everything will be all right. He plays the doting partner, offering her some tea to help her feel better. Donger returns with a piece of orange clothing that Lady Yu gifted the princess. Yin Chen orders the doctor to inspect the fabric right now. Dr. Tai uses his needles to test the material, looking for any foul play. Bingo, he finds traces of the exact same slow-acting poison on the cloth. Yin Chen hits his breaking point and orders his guards to drag Miss Liu and her mother in for a reckoning. Things kick off early in the morning at Magnolia Villa, but the vibes are definitely not immaculate. Inside, the atmosphere is heavy as Su Luo lays in bed, while Lady Liu faces a massive accusation for the supposed poisoning. The evidence is scattered all over the floor, and Lady Liu is forced to stare at the very gift she brought. She looks absolutely bewildered, realizing her plan to play nice just backfired in the worst way possible. Yin Chen isn't having any of it and demands she drop the act, asking if the toxin found on the clothing was placed there by her own hand. Lady Liu is completely shook, her face going pale as the weight of the situation hits her. She's forced to her knees as the prince's aura basically crushes her spirit. Desperate, she cries out that she's been framed and would never do something so reckless. Internally, she probably realized Su Luo was playing 4D chess while she was playing checkers. Su Luo watches from the bed, looking like a fragile victim while her rivals scramble. Shaking with fear, Lady Liu tries to explain that she only offered the gift to get Miao Miao's punishment lifted. She argues that poisoning the princess would literally be the dumbest move she could make if she wanted to help her daughter. However, as she looks at Su Luo, she realizes the princess has been intentionally baiting them this whole time. Su Luo doesn't miss a beat, pointing at the evidence and asking how she can deny her crimes when the proof is right there. Lady Liu reaches out, grasping for any shred of mercy as she begs for forgiveness. She's trembling, literally holding onto Su Luo's hand like a lifeline. But Su Luo isn't about that life and coldly casts her hand away. She scoffs, asking why she should show mercy to someone who nearly died by her hand. She's really leaning into the drama, making sure Lady Liu looks like a straight-up villain. Turning to the prince, Su Luo asks how he plans on handling this mess. Yin Chen looks like he's ready to end someone's whole career, radiating pure intimidation. Lady Liu is sweating bullets, her heart probably doing backflips as she awaits her fate. Internally, Su Luo is likely smirking, thinking, checkmate lady. The prince remains silent for a moment, letting the tension simmer. Lady Liu is in total shock, realizing her time in the palace palace might be coming to an abrupt end. Suddenly, Meow Meow bursts into the room, calling out for the prince in a last-ditch effort to save her mom. Lady Liu looks back at her daughter, hope and fear clashing on her face. Meow Meow enters with a sharp glare, but she knows she has to play her cards right. She drops to her knees beside her mother, ready to beg. She tries to use Young Jinger as a shield, hoping the prince still has a soft spot for the family connection. With tears in her eyes, she begs him to spare her mother. Yin Chen isn't moved, telling Meow Meow that her mother brought this disaster on herself. He moves to stand, and Su Luo holds onto his arm, making sure she stays the center of his attention. Meow Meow comforts her mother, but the writing is already on the wall. Yin Chen delivers the final blow. Lady Liu is officially banished from Chen Palace effective immediately. Guards move in to drag her out while she screams about wanting to stay with her daughter. Su Luo watches the exit with a look of pure, dark satisfaction. The next morning, the villa is back to looking peaceful, but the gossip is spicy. Maids are busy sweeping and chatting about how the prince was up before dawn just to take care of Su Luo. They're low-key jealous, thinking she's the luckiest girl in the world for having the prince so infatuated. Inside, Yin Chen is playing the role of the ultimate doting boyfriend, trying to feed Su Luo her medicine. Su Luo, however, is in a total mood and refuses to take it like a bratty toddler. Yin Chen is confused, asking why she's in such a foul mood after he literally cleared her enemies out. She hits him with the classic "you should know" line, making him look absolutely clueless. She's actually salty because he backed off on the mother's punishment just because Meow Meow mentioned her name. Yin Chen sighs, admitting that while Lady Liu deserves execution for what she did, he owes Meow Meow for saving his life in the past and had to spare her mother. He tries to bribe Su Luo with a stroll outside if she just finishes her medicine. She protests, saying they're never actually alone when they leave the palace with all the guards following them. Yin Chen promises that if she drinks up, it'll be just the two of them. Su Luo perks up, asking if he's for real. He gives her a soft smile, confirming that he's serious. She finally takes the medicine but complains about the disgusting taste, so he quickly offers some honey to sweeten the deal. She asks if he has other stuff to do, but he tells her he's taken a total leave from his duties just to spend time with her. He even offers to send more maids to keep her company so she doesn't get bored. He tucks her in, telling her to rest while he goes to make her some hot soup personally. He gives her a final gentle touch before heading out. Su Luo closes her eyes, pretending to drift off into a peaceful sleep. The moment the door shuts and he's gone, her eyes snap open, cold and calculating. Internally, she scoffs at his kindness, reminding herself that those monsters took everything from her, and she won't rest until they pay in blood. Meanwhile, outside the snowy villa walls, the drama continues. Meow Meow is seeing her mother off and hands her a small bottle, likely for their next scheme. Lady Liu warns her that Su Luo has been faking her memory loss this whole time just for revenge. Meow Meow isn't worried, believing that once Yin Chen realizes Su Luo's true nature, everything will flip back in their favor. They agree to stay in touch and keep plotting to take her down from the inside. Lady Liu is fuming, vowing that Su Luo will pay for ruining their lives. She tells Meow Meow to look to herself in the lion's den. As Lady Liu walks away into the snow, Meow Meow watches with a look of pure malice, promising that Yin Chen will soon feel the agony of losing what he loves most. Su Luo is officially in her villain era, and she's starting with a little pest control. While Meow Meow is catching some Z's, a literal army of centipedes begins crawling all over her bed. These creepy crawlies aren't just on the blankets. They're slithering right onto her skin and through her hair. Meow Meow wakes up to the ultimate jump scare, grabbing a giant bug and realizing she's covered in them. She hits a high note that could shatter glass, screaming for someone to help her. She's frantically trying to shake them off, looking like she's about to have a total short circuit. Right on cue, the door creaks open. Su Luo enters the room, watching the girl lose her mind with a look of pure boredom. She mocks her rival, asking if the great Miss Liu is really being defeated by a few tiny bugs. Internally, Su Luo scoffed. And this is the girl who thought she could take my crown. Embarrassing. Su Luo claims she's here to be a good sister and brings in a servant with a secret weapon. They release a rooster, which immediately starts treating the centipedes like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Meow Meow isn't buying the act for a second and accuses Su Luo of planting the bugs in the first place. Su Luo's vibe shifts instantly, getting in her face and asking if she has a death wish for making such accusations. Caught in 4K and terrified, Meow Meow backs down, claiming she's just flustered by the disgusting pests. Su Luo stands over her, radiating boss energy while Meow Meow cowers on the floor. Su Luo then mentions she brought a gift and wants to find a doctor to treat Meow Meow's obvious mental illness. Meow Meow's teeth are practically grinding into dust as she tells Su Luo to drop the fake act. She shouts at the top of her lungs that she knows Su Luo's memory loss is a total ruse. Su Luo just stands there with her back turned, unbothered. She casually remarks that Meow Meow's delusions are clearly getting worse by the minute. Desperate to hit a nerve, Meow Meow brings up young Minner, reminding Su Luo of the child who died in the fire. She taunts her, asking how a mother could forget her own son so quickly. Su Luo's expression darkens, but before she can react, the atmosphere shifts. Prince Yin Chen suddenly appears, and Su Luo instantly switches back to fragile princess mode. Meow Meow thinks this is her big moment to expose the lies and ruin Su Luo for good. But Su Luo is 5 steps ahead. She dramatically collapses to the floor. She puts on a masterclass in acting, making it look like she was just trying to help a sick Meow Meow. When Meow Meow tries to push her away, It looks like a violent assault right in front of the prince. Yin Chen's face goes full demon mode as he witnesses the scene. He demands to know what Miao Miao thinks she's doing to his woman. He immediately rushes over to scoop Su Luo into his arms. Miao Miao is left reaching out from the floor, looking like the ultimate villain. Su Luo plays the victim perfectly, leaning into him and saying she's fine despite the attack. She tells the prince that Miao Miao just went into a total craze the moment she tried to help. Internally, Miao Miao was screaming, "This girl is literally the CEO of manipulation." Outside, the prince's voice booms through the palace as he lays into Miao Miao. He stands protectively over Su Luo, basically telling the rival she's a nobody. Miao Miao tries to explain that Su Luo is a fraud, but it's falling on deaf ears. Su Luo lets out a theatrical sigh, saying she'll just stop being kind since it's clearly not appreciated. Yin Chen drops the hammer, threatening to send Miao Miao into exile just like her mother. He leads Su Luo away, leaving the girl crying on the floor. Over her shoulder, Su Luo gives a chilling look that says game over, while Miao Miao vows to bring her down. As they walk, Su Luo plays the curious kitten, asking how he knew she was at Orchid Court. He explains he brought her some candied fruit and was worried about her safety. He wanted to make sure Miao Miao didn't hurt her in a fit of madness, and Su Luo thanks him with a sweet smile. Meanwhile, far away from the palace drama, the plot is thickening in a snowy village. A young boy named Anu is working hard chopping wood to support his family. A mysterious man, Bai Mo, approaches the kid with a gentle smile. He claims to be an old friend of the boy's father, playing the trustworthy uncle role. He asks if the parents are home, clearly digging for information. Inside the small shack, a woman is heard coughing her life away. Anu brings the visitor inside, excited to introduce his father's friend to his sick mother. The kid is just happy that his wood chopping will finally pay for some medicine. Bai Mo offers to help, claiming he knows a thing or two about healing. He takes the woman's pulse, looking like he's trying to solve a puzzle. He tells her the cold winds have entered her body and promises to write a prescription. The mother is grateful, but looks totally stressed about being penniless and unable to pay. Bai Mo tells her to relax, promising that he'll arrange for the medicine to be delivered for free. He then suggests that Anu hack outside to feed the sheep so they can talk privately. Once the kid is gone, Bai Mo's friendly mask slips. The woman immediately asks who he really is. She knows her husband was a simple man and never had friends as noble-looking as him. Bai Mo stops the deception and gets straight to the point about Lord Su's execution. He tells her point blank that Lord Su was framed for a crime he didn't commit. He reveals that his investigation into the conspiracy has led him directly to her late husband. The widow is shocked, falling to her knees and insisting her husband would never be so cruel. Bai Mo asks if she noticed any strange behavior or suspicious visitors before he died. The woman looks confused, trying to recall the past. But then, a memory clicks into place. Something very unusual happened the night before her husband's death. The truth behind the conspiracy is finally coming to light, and it all starts in a small, weathered house on the edge of town. Inside, a woman is seen coughing her lungs out, clearly struggling with a severe illness. Her husband, Shang, enters the room with a fresh batch of medicine, determined to nurse her back to health. He places a small, wrapped treat on the bedside table, trying to bring a little joy to their miserable situation. The widow looks at the gift, her eyes widening with suspicion instead of gratitude. She demands to know where he got the money for such luxuries, and as Shang admits, he took a shady private job for an old man from the Su Palace for 50 pieces of silver. He shows her the heavy bag of coins, claiming they finally have enough for her treatment and their son's schooling. Internally, the wife was screaming, "This has bad news written all over it," as she pushes the bag away, calling it dirty money. Shang just smiles, telling her it's nothing and she should just focus on getting better. Despite his optimism, she can't help but weep, feeling a heavy sense of dread. Her intuition was unfortunately spot on because the very next night, she received news that her husband was dead. Fast forward to the present, Bai Mo is interrogating the widow, asking the obvious question of why she didn't report this massive red flag years ago. She breaks down, explaining that she was bedridden and her son was just a child. She lived in constant fear that the killers would come back to finish the job. Bai Mo stares off, wondering if this investigation is just hitting another dead end. The widow looks up at him, desperate to know if he truly believes her husband was the one who framed Lord Su. Bai Mo turns his back, coldly stating that while her husband was involved, the real monster is the person who pulled the strings for a few lousy pieces of silver. The poor woman collapses into a sobbing mess, blaming herself and her illness for her husband's descent into crime. Bai Mo hands her a cloth to dry her eyes, maintaining his professional, if slightly detached, investigator persona. He then asks if Shang had any close friends who might have been in on the gig. She mentions a group of laborers who used to work together on larger construction jobs. Bai Mo's interest is piqued, and he demands to know where these guys usually hang out. She recalls they used to congregate near the stone bridge in the capital city. With a polite bow, Bai Mo thanks her for the lead and prepares to head back to the shadows. 3 nights later, the moon is high and the capital is draped in mystery. The city streets are quiet, lit only by the warm glow of hanging lanterns outside the local taverns. Su Luo arrives at the secret meeting spot, having spotted the purple fireworks signal. She sheds her heavy cloak, looking eager for an update on the investigation. Bai Mo sits calmly with a cup of tea, letting her know he's finally cracked the case of what happened to Li Ruer. Su Luo slams her hands on the table, demanding to know who was behind it all. Bai Mo unrolls a scroll, revealing a sketch of a suspect based on a solid eyewitness account. The moment Su Luo sees the face, she loses it, shouting that she recognizes the culprit immediately. She clutches the scroll tight, telling Bai Mo he needs to keep this witness under 24/7 protection, because they are the key to everything. Bai Mo takes a sip of his tea, assuring her that the arrangements are already made, then asks what her next move is. Su Luo is out for blood, declaring she needs hard evidence that Miao Miao framed her son. She's put 2 and 2 together, realizing Royal Dr. Liu lied about the injuries because he was likely being blackmailed. Internally, she scoffed. Great, Yin Chen already executed the guy, so dead men tell no tales. Bai Mo admits this is a tricky situation since their main witness is currently 6 feet under. He suggests a different angle. Maybe the late doctor's family knows where the bodies are buried. Su Luo realizes this is her only shot at getting the clout she needs to take down her rival. Bai Mo notices the time and warns her to get back to the palace before Yin Chen realizes his princess is missing. Su Luo rushes through the snowy streets, trying to keep a low profile under the moonlight. Little does she know someone is trailing her every move from the shadows. She reaches the side entrance of the Chen palace, hoping she didn't just walk into a trap. She asks the guard if the prince is around, and her heart drops when he confirms Yin Chen arrived ages ago. Watching her from a distance, Bai Mo's only wish is for her to find some peace, even though she's constantly surrounded by snakes. He stands alone in the snow, a silent guardian watching her disappear back into the golden cage. Su Luo finally makes it to the Magnolia Villa, her nerves fried. The villa looks peaceful from the outside, but inside, the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. She pushes the door open, the creak sounding like a thunderclap in the silent room. Standing right there, waiting for her like a final boss, is Yin Chen. Su Luo is completely blindsided, her brain short-circuiting as she tries to think of an excuse. Yin Chen pulls her into a sudden embrace, making her feel even more guilty. She quickly spins a lie, claiming she just needed to get out of the palace to clear her head and relax. To sell the act, she pulls out a jade pendant, claiming she went out specifically to buy him a present. Yin Chen takes the gift, but his expression is still totally sus as he pockets it. He then turns his wrath toward the maid, declaring he'll hold her personally responsible if the princess goes missing again. The poor girl is shaking in her boots, promising it won't happen again. Once the help is dismissed, Su Luo tries to play it cool, asking why he's visiting so late anyway. Yin Chen explains he's leaving the palace for a few days on official business and wanted to say goodbye in person. He drapes his cloak over her, telling her he'll be gone for at least 2 days. He gets all romantic, telling her to stay put and stop sneaking out at night. Su Luo gives him a look that screams reluctant, but she knows she has to play along. Suddenly, a guard interrupts, announcing the horses are ready to go. Yin Chen leans in close, telling her not to forget about him while he's away. They share a final embrace, though Su Luo's mind is clearly already on her next investigation. She watches from the stairs as he prepares to ride out into the night. But Yin Chen isn't a fool. He whispers to his guard to keep a secret eye on her and follow her if she steps 1 foot out of her room. Outside the city, Yin Chen meets up with Tuoba Huan under the cover of the trees. Tuoba Huan admits he doesn't blame the prince for punishing his father, considering the old man tried to assassinate the emperor. However, he's still got a massive grudge against everyone else who wronged his family. Yin Chen warns him to be careful, promising to create a distraction so Tuoba can do his thing. Tuoba bows in respect, thanking the prince for the backup. He then hops on his horse and speeds off, ready to start the next phase of their plan. The following night, on the outskirts of the capital, things get messy. A group of prisoners is being transported, and the guards are all catching some Z's instead of doing their jobs. One prisoner manages to unlock his shackles, not realizing he's being watched by a masked figure in the bushes. The prisoner is hyped, thinking he's finally free and that escaping into the wild was a genius move. He looks down at his prisoner uniform, probably thinking about how he's going to live his best life. But the masked figure draws a sword, coldly noting that his escape just made him a much easier target to eliminate. Out in the middle of nowhere, a terrified prisoner realizes he's about to meet his maker. The executioner isn't interested in small talk, telling the guy he'll be seeing his father in the afterlife real soon. The prisoner starts full-on groveling, claiming he had nothing to do with his dad's shady business. But the killer is cold as ice, basically saying too bad, so sad. Seeing zero mercy, the guy tries to make a run for it, screaming for help like someone's actually listening. He doesn't get far before a shadow looms over him, sealing his fate in a heartbeat. Standing over the body, the warrior mutters that his father's honor is finally restored. Little does he know, a masked figure is lurking in the bushes, wondering who this random kid is. The spy is low-key salty that he didn't get to finish the job himself. Back at the palace, it's a quiet night for everyone except the local snake, Liu Miao Miao. She's tucked into bed, probably dreaming of more ways to be a menace. Suddenly, a weird noise has her sitting bolt upright. At first, she tries to gaslight herself into thinking it's just the wind hitting the window. She takes a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. But then, she spots a silhouette through the curtains and nearly jumps out of her skin. 2 creepy paper figures are standing there like something out of a low-budget horror flick. She points a shaking finger, demanding to know who's trying to catch her in 4K. One of the ghosts starts whining about its hand hurting, which is a major red flag for her. The figure's outfit looks eerily familiar. She stammers out a name, realizing this spirit is supposed to be dead. The ghost hits her with the ultimate guilt trip, asking why she did it. Hidden in the shadows, the real mastermind Su Luo is watching the whole breakdown. Liu Miao Miao starts begging for her life, promising the ghost anything if it just goes away. Then the second figure speaks up, calling her sister. The ghost drops a truth bomb, asking why she hired a hitman to frame Lord Su. Liu Miao Miao is absolutely short-circuiting at this point. The pressure is too much, and her face is a mess of pure terror. She finally cracks, admitting she used safflower poison to weaken her sister, but it was way more lethal than she planned. Internally, Su Luo is fuming, realizing this woman actually poisoned her own blood. She scoffs at the irony of Yin Chen blaming her for the death, while the real killer was right under his nose. Su Luo finally steps out from behind the curtain, looking like a total boss. Liu Miao Miao loses it, screaming at her to stay away. She cowers in the corner, begging the ghosts to take their revenge on Su Luo instead. But Su Luo just crosses her arms, calling her out for still trying to shift the blame even after a full confession. Liu Miao Miao realizes she's been played and lunges at Su Luo, grabbing her arm. Su Luo doesn't even flinch, dropping the amnesia act and telling her she's gonna watch her lose everything. Liu Miao Miao tries to play her last card, threatening to tell the prince that Su Luo has been faking it this whole time. She's on the floor, looking pathetic while trying to sound tough. Su Luo just laughs, asking why on earth Yin Chen would believe a word from a proven liar. She grabs Liu Miao Miao by the hair, making it clear who's in charge now. With a stone-cold smile, she declares that the entire palace belongs to her. Internally, she's thinking, checkmate, you're penniless and powerless. She turns her back on the mess, leaving Liu Miao Miao to rot in her own fear. The ghosts are still there, hovering like a bad omen. Liu Miao Miao snaps and lets out a primal scream. She tears the paper figures to shreds, but the damage to her sanity is already done. Meanwhile, the investigation leads Bai Mo to Seven Streams Village. He and his guard arrive at a modest-looking house. His subordinate confirms that this is the place they've been looking for. The guard knocks on the door, checking if anyone is actually home. An older woman opens up, looking suspicious of the fancy visitors. Bai Mo cuts to the chase, asking if this is where Dr. Liu, the former palace physician, used to live. When she confirms it, he drops the heavy news that he's investigating the death of the prince's son. She softens up and invites them inside for a chat. Bai Mo tells his guard to stay put while he handles the sensitive stuff. Once they're settled, the woman starts pouring tea while explaining they moved to the middle of nowhere out of pure fear. Bai Mo presses her, wanting to know exactly what had them so spooked. She offers him a cup, her hands probably shaking as she remembers the past. She explains that one night, her husband came home and said they had to ghost the capital immediately. He was a total wreck, but wouldn't spill the tea on what actually happened. Wiping away tears, she mentions that he handed her a letter for safekeeping. That letter was the smoking gun regarding what really happened to the prince's son. It was his insurance policy, and he told her to keep it safe at all costs. But before they could escape, the prince's men swarmed the place and dragged him away. Bai Mo offers some basic sympathy, but he's really just there for the evidence. He asks if she still has the letter and if he can take a look. She agrees and gets up to go fetch it from its hiding spot. She disappears behind the curtain for a second. She hands over the envelope, begging Bai Mo to use it to clear her husband's name. Bai Mo asks if she's actually read the contents herself. She says no, explaining her husband wanted it kept as pristine evidence. Bai Mo then asks if he can take it to the authorities and if she'd be willing to testify. She doesn't hesitate, saying she'll do whatever it takes to get justice for her husband. Back at the palace, Liu Miao Miao is on a mission to save her own neck. She spots Yin Chen walking through the courtyard and knows this is her chance to strike first. He's just minding his business, looking like a main character. She rushes up to him, calling out to get his attention. She claims there's something super urgent they need to talk about right now. Putting on her best concerned citizen face, she says it's about the princess. Yin Chen immediately locks in, his eyes narrowing. He looks genuinely worried, asking if something happened to his beloved wooer. Liu Miao Miao is out here trying to snitch to the prince about Su Luo's suspicious behavior at Magnolia Villa. She's convinced the princess is faking her amnesia and remembers every single detail of her past life in the palace. Yin Chen looks absolutely done with these accusations and tells her to get to the point. Liu claims that while the prince was away, Su Luo snuck into her room at night pretending to be the late Ruer. This would mean she definitely remembers the torture they put her through, sending a chill down Yin Chen's spine. Liu Miao Miao starts crying, insisting the princess is only back for a cold-blooded revenge tour. Yin Chen loses his temper, calling the whole story a ridiculous load of nonsense. Liu Miao Miao is desperate, begging him to believe her as she doubles down on her claims. However, Yin Chen isn't about to get played and demands to see some actual proof. Liu realizes she's caught in 4K with 0 receipts and admits she only has her word. She grabs his sleeve, promising him that the princess isn't the innocent angel she seems to be. Yin Chen isn't hearing it, reminding her that he already banished her mother for the way she treated Luo. He's literally shaking with rage at her audacity. The prince tells her straight up that if he didn't need her to look after Singer, he would have had her executed for slander ages ago. Liu Miao Miao is still reaching, hoping for a miracle that he'll suddenly trust her. Instead, he orders her to get back to Orchid Court immediately and stay out of his sight. As she walks away, Yin Chen stares into the distance, wondering if there's even a grain of truth to her revenge theory. Suddenly, Su Luo pops up, asking him why he's just standing outside like a lost puppy. Yin Chen nearly jumps out of his skin, asking her how long she's been lurking there. Internally, he's sweating bullets, wondering how much of the conversation she actually overheard. He tries to play it cool, saying Liu Miao Miao just came by to visit and was sent home. Su Luo gets close, acting all curious about what the rival wanted. Yin Chen lies through his teeth, claiming Li's mental health is worsening and she's just spouting nonsense again. Su Luo isn't letting him off the hook that easy and asks for specific tea. He hesitates for a second, looking at the snowy palace roof. Finally, he admits Liu claims Su Luo returned only for revenge. Su Luo puts on a masterclass in acting, looking completely blindsided by the accusation. Yin Chen starts to wonder if Liu was actually telling the truth for once, but Su Luo immediately goes on the offensive, grabbing his shoulders and gaslighting him like a pro. She claims she tried to help with Liu's madness multiple times, but the woman is just ungrateful. She turns away with a pout, acting like she's totally over the drama. Internally, she probably scoffed, "Nice try, sweetie," She gives him a classic humph to seal the deal. As they walk through the courtyard, Yin Chen's suspicion starts to melt away. Su Luo asks if he visited Orchid Court while she was away, and he confirms Liu won't let her anywhere near it. Yin Chen looks at the cherry blossoms, convinced now that Liu was just trying to slander his favorite girl. Su Luo plays the jealousy card, suggesting Liu might actually fancy the prince and is just trying to come between them. Yin Chen looks troubled, worried that Liu Miao Miao might end up hurting her. Su Luo scoffs, reminding him she's the princess now and basically untouchable. He tells her to keep her distance from that toxic environment, and she gives him a sweet, innocent look. She agrees with a subtle smirk that says she's already 10 steps ahead. Later that night, under a full moon, the prince is still feeling a bit paranoid. He summons his guard to his desk, asking if anything suspicious happened at Orchid Court while he was out. The guard mentions the terrible wine that night and says everyone was fast asleep. Yin Chen asks if it's possible the princess snuck out during the storm. The guard stands firm, reporting that he saw absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. Still not satisfied, the prince orders him to secretly fetch Donger, the head maid. He makes it clear that the princess must not find out about this little interrogation. When Donger arrives, he asks her if the princess has been pulling any midnight runs. The maid doesn't blink, claiming the princess has an early bedtime and sleeps straight through the night. Yin Chen finally relaxes and dismisses her. He leans back, thinking that whether she has amnesia or not, the only thing that matters is that she stays by his side. The next afternoon, the scene shifts to a local tavern. Su Luo is meeting with Bai Mo, laughing about how she never expected Liu to confess to the poisoning so quickly. Bai Mo looks a bit concerned, wondering if she acted too impulsively. Su Luo knows she still needs hard evidence to prove the crime and asks if the investigation is still on. Bai Mo confirms he's sending his men to dig even deeper into the palace dirt. He also drops some grim news. Gong Sunyan was taken out while being exiled. Su Luo doesn't even flinch, saying it doesn't matter who killed him as long as he's permanently off the board. Then she shifts the focus back to Dr. Li's situation. Bai Mo reveals they've made major progress and have secured a piece of hard evidence. Su Luo gets that villain-era look in her eyes, loving the update. She declares that the trap is officially set and it's time for the beast to fall in. Bai Mo warns her to stay cautious, and she promises she will. He also mentions he's keeping a close eye on Liu Miao Miao's mother as requested. Then comes the real bombshell. He discovered that the child Liu lost wasn't even fathered by Yin Chen. Su Luo finds this absolutely hilarious, realizing the drama is about to peak. A knock at the door interrupts their secret meeting. They both go quiet as the tension in the room spikes. Outside, the tavern is bustling with people. A waiter calls out that the wine they ordered is ready. He enters the room to serve them, unaware he's in the presence of the ultimate schemers. He places the tray on the table under the prince's watchful eye. As he pours the drinks, Su Luo looks ready to celebrate. Bai Mo is surprised, asking her when she started drinking. She flashes a bright smile and simply says, "Today." She stands up and proposes a toast to their successful revenge mission. Bai Mo tries to be a buzzkill, reminding her that alcohol is basically poison. Su Luo doesn't care, taking a big sip and looking totally unbothered. She tells him that this drink is an essential part of the plan, and you just know things are about to get wild. The palace was quiet, but things were about to get messy as Su Luo finally returned from her little outing. Her head maid was practically vibrating with anxiety, rushing out to meet her the second she stepped into the courtyard. The maid immediately noticed something was off and asked if she'd been hitting the bottle, but Su Luo just brushed it off with a smirk, claiming it was just a few casual glasses. She looked a little too dazed for a simple drink, playing the part of a tipsy princess to perfection. The maid insisted she needed to get some rest and offered to whip up some soup to clear her head. As they headed inside, the maid reminded her to take care of herself, clearly worried about the high-stakes drama currently unfolding in the palace. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a much more suspicious location, the home of Mother Liu. Liu Miao Miao arrived in a cloak, frantically banging on the door and demanding her mother open up. Her mother greeted her with fake warmth, but the vibe was immediately ruined by the massive debt hanging over their heads. Apparently, the man they hired to help with their previous schemes was back and looking for a massive payout. Liu Miao Miao wasn't having it, blaming her mother for the genius idea to hire the animal and lie about the child's paternity in the first place. Her mother told her she was lucky the guy was only asking for cash and hadn't gone to the authorities yet. Liu Miao Miao was caught in a corner, knowing that one slip-up in the Chen Palace would literally cost her her life. Her mother, still obsessed with the rivalry, asked if that other woman was still coming after her. Liu Miao Miao confirmed that Su Luo remembers everything and is definitely out for blood. In a fit of rage, Liu Miao Miao smashed a vase, realizing that if she didn't end Su Luo soon, they were both going to end up 6 feet under. She lamented that Su Luo now effectively controls the entire palace, leaving her with 0 allies. But then a classic villainous light bulb went off. She'd heard that Su Luo often leaves the palace solo, and she ordered her mother to follow her and see who she was meeting. She had a gut feeling that these afternoon strolls were actually secret meetings with her real allies. To settle the immediate problem, she slid off her jade bracelet. She handed it over, telling her mother to use it to pay off their blackmailer for now, while she plotted a more permanent solution. Fast forward to nighttime at Magnolia Villa, and the atmosphere was thick with tension. confusion. The maids were freaking out because the princess still hadn't returned, and they were debating whether to snitch to the prince. They didn't have to wait long because Yin Chen showed up looking absolutely livid, demanding to know where his wife was. The maid tried to cover, explaining that Su Luo had been taking short day trips since her illness but hadn't made it back yet. Yin Chen went into full protective but suspicious mode, shouting for them to keep searching. The maid scrambled to obey, terrified of his temper. He gathered his guards and ordered them to scour every inch of the area, leaving only a skeleton crew at the gates. Internally, he was spiraling, thinking about how much he actually needed her around. The search moved to the city streets as shops were closing up for the night. Yin Chen was barking orders, telling his men to check every favorite haunt she had. He was literally showing a sketch of her to random people like a man possessed. He was desperate for any kind of connection or lead. As he walked through the crowd, he kept whispering her name, looking like he was about to lose it. Suddenly, a guard spotted her and pointed her out. There she was, wandering through the snow, looking completely out of it. Yin Chen was blindsided by her state, his anger momentarily replaced by confusion. He rushed over to her, asking where she'd been and if she'd been drinking, but Su Luo played it perfectly. She hit him with a "Who even are you?" and tried to take another swig from an empty bottle before telling him to get lost. Then she squinted at him and finally recognized him, giving him a drunk, goofy smile. She even tried to drag him along, offering to buy him more wine like they were at a college frat party. Yin Chen's suspicion meter was redlining as he wondered since when his prim and proper wife became a drunk. He told her they had plenty of wine at home and wasn't about to let her make a scene in public. He ended up carrying her back to the palace in his arms, his mind racing with questions. Back in her chambers, Su Luo was playing the hangover card hard, clutching her head and complaining. The maid arrived with some soup that was convenient spiked with sleeping herbs to help her rest. Yin Chen took the bowl, ready to play the doting husband for a moment. He urged her to drink up to help with her headache. He sat by her side, carefully feeding her the soup. Su Luo took it, internally laughing at how easy it was to manipulate him with a little drunk act. Once she drifted off, he tucked her in, looking more like a concerned jailer than a husband. But the prince wasn't done yet. He pulled the maid aside for a serious interrogation, demanding total honesty. He asked if she'd noticed any other strange behavior from the princess lately. He was looking for any cracks in her story, his face tight with suspicion. The maid admitted that she'd smelled alcohol on Su Luo's breath before, though she'd never seen her this wasted. The next morning, the sun rose over the grand court, and Yin Chen was back to check on his patient. Su Luo claimed she felt much better, looking as innocent as ever. That's when the little prince, Zinger, burst in with a butterfly kite. Su Luo played the sweet auntie role, complimenting the boy and his kite. The kid happily mentioned that the kite was actually a gift from Minner. Yin Chen's eyes narrowed as he watched her reaction, basically setting a trap to see if her amnesia was legit. Internally, he was wondering if she truly didn't remember their own child. Su Luo didn't miss a beat, casually asking who Minner and his mother were. She looked him dead in the eye, acting like the name meant absolutely nothing to her. Internally, she scoffed. "If you want to test me, Yin Chen, let's see how you like the answer." Yin Chen's face went cold as he realized she wasn't breaking. The kid dropped the ultimate truth bomb, telling her that she was actually Minner's mother. Yin Chen immediately cut the conversation short, telling the boy to go find the maid so he could deal with Su Luo alone. The boy obeyed, leaving the two of them in a room filled with thick, suffocating tension. Su Luo is playing the ultimate game of gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss as she questions Yin Chen about why the kid called her mommy. Yin Chen brushes it off like it's just toddler talk, telling her she's tired and needs to hit the hay. As he leaves, he's drowning in guilt, hoping she never recovers the memories of the painful things he put her through. Little does he know, Su Luo's amnesia is a total scam. Internally, she's smirking. "Get your wallet ready, because it's time to pay for 4 years of humiliation." Back in his office, Yin Chen isn't entirely sold on her story and grills his subordinate about anyone suspicious she might have met in the city. The guard is clearly shaking in his boots, admitting he didn't catch every single detail of her little excursion. This sends Yin Chen into a mini meltdown, demanding his man go back and track her every move, every conversation, and every person she breathed near. He slams his hands on the desk, proving he's officially obsessed and wants to know everything. Terrified of the prince's temper, the guard promises to get it done immediately. The next day, a heavy rain pours over the ruins of the Lotus Court. Su Luo stands in the downpour, looking at the place that used to be her world. She flashes back to the creak of the door opening back when things were simpler. She remembers her son, Minner, running around and being the cutest little main character. In the present, she reaches out into the empty rain, calling for the son she lost. But the courtyard is silent, the only sound being the rain hitting the cold stone steps. She collapses to the ground, the facade finally breaking as she weeps for her stolen life. This place wasn't just a home. It was her prison for 4 years where her child was snatched away. Suddenly, she spots thing in the dirt. It's Minner's favorite ball, looking abandoned and worn. She clutches it to her chest, her heart shattering as she blames herself for not being there to protect him. A maid suddenly spots her through the rain, calling out in surprise. The maid is confused why the princess is sitting in a literal puddle in the middle of nowhere. She rushes over with an umbrella, worried that the fragile princess is going to catch a cold. Su Luo quickly hides her emotions, mentioning the ball belonged to Minner in a voice that sounds totally defeated. She stands up, acting like a lost soul, and says she's ready to head back. The maid tries to be helpful, promising a warm bath as the ball rolls away, forgotten once more. They walk back together, but Su Luo's mind is miles away. away. Back at the Grand Court, the spy wastes no time reporting the strange behavior to Yin Chen. She tells him she's been watching Su Luo like a hawk and things are getting weird. Yin Chen leans in, his interest piqued by the mention of something out of the ordinary. The spy explains that Su Luo went all the way back to the Lotus Court by herself. She describes how the princess stood before the broken doors in the middle of a storm. She even mentions finding Su Luo crying over an old toy that belonged to her son. This hits Yin Chen like a truck. He realizes his wife might remember way more than she's letting on. He asks if there was anything else, his mind racing with possibilities. The spy mentions she hasn't been eating well, so Yin Chen orders his staff to bring the best gourmet takeout from the city, sparing no expense to make her happy. He tells the spy to keep up the 24/7 surveillance, because he needs to know her next move. Alone with his thoughts, he stares at his tea, desperate for forgiveness. 3 days later, we shift to the home of Mother Liu. The old woman is pacing, annoyed that her partner in crime is running late. Finally, a hooded figure arrives, looking like she's about to drop some major tea. It's Liu Meow Meow, and her mother pulls her inside before anyone can see them. They slam the door shut to keep their scheming private. Mother Liu spills the beans immediately. She spotted Su Luo at a tavern in the capital. She admits she had to bribe the owner with basically all her savings, but she found out Su Luo has been having secret meetings with a man. Meow Meow's eyes go wide. This is the caught in 4K moment she's been waiting for. Mother Liu is literally crying over how much silver she spent to get this intel. They decide they have to snitch to the prince right away, but Meow Meow stops her, knowing the prince is currently too blinded by Su Luo's act to believe them without proof. Mother Liu is desperate, thinking this is their best shot at a comeback. Meow Meow gets that villainous glint in her eye, declaring that seeing is believing. The plan is simple. They're gonna catch Su Luo in the act and let Yin Chen see it with his own eyes. This is their final chance to flip the script and get back on top. Mother Liu is already imagining Su Luo being hated by the whole kingdom. Meow Meow smirks, thinking about how Yin Chen will react when his beloved chooses another man over him. Later, at the Royal Chen Palace, Meow Meow is lurking around the stairs. She's got her plotting face on, ready to set the trap. She runs into Su Luo, who is looking way too cozy in a fur-lined cloak. Su Luo fakes a cough, playing the delicate flower role to perfection. Internally, Meow Meow is seething, thinking, "Your days of arrogance are numbered, you little snake." They exchange the fakest pleasantries ever recorded in history. Su Luo hits her with a passive-aggressive comment about how she shouldn't be wandering around with her mental illness. Meow Meow claims she's just out getting snacks to the prince's son. Su Luo warns her that it would be a shame if she were actually sneaking off to meet a man. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife as they stare each other down. Meow Meow throws back a veiled threat, saying she knows exactly who is doing the cheating. The next morning, the villains meet up again at Mother Liu's house. Meow Meow asks if they're ready to spring the trap. Mother Liu confirms that she saw Su Luo with the mystery man through a window, and there's no doubt she's cheating. Meow Meow is hyped, imagining Yin Chen's face when the truth comes out. They confirm the next secret meeting is happening tomorrow afternoon. Meow Meow is convinced that when Chen sees the infidelity for himself, Su Luo is finished. Mother Liu adds that no man, especially a prince, would tolerate that kind of disrespect. Meow Meow heads back to the palace, knowing Su Luo is watching her every move. She tells her mom to prepare everything, because she's going to make sure Yin Chen is at that tavern at the exact time. She's done being second best and is ready to take Su Luo down for good. She throws her hood up, looking like a low-budget Sith Lord. "Tomorrow, you'll finally see who truly loves you," she thinks, referring to her obsession with the prince. That night at the Royal Chen Palace, the moon is high and the mood is suspicious. Someone is walking through the gardens, their robes trailing on the stone floor. Yin Chen's voice breaks the silence, telling Su Luo he has a surprise for her. He leads her out, and she's actually blindfolded, looking completely at his mercy. The prince is really laying on the charm, trying to gaslight Su Luo into a romantic reboot by reminiscing about their glory days in the Valley of Wolves. He brings up how she was the first woman to ever feed him besides his mom, which is a weirdly specific flex. He continues the trip down memory lane, reminding her how he taught her archery, and how she was the first girl he ever truly loved. Internally, Su Luo is absolutely disgusted, thinking about how he could claim to love her while doing such monstrous things. Yin Chen then removes her blindfold, whispering that today is the start of a whole new set of firsts for them. Su Luo plays along, acting blindsided by the sudden reveal. He asks if she likes the view, as they stand on a balcony overlooking a garden full of white daffodils. Down below, the water is filled with glowing lotus lanterns, creating a high-budget romantic atmosphere. Su Luo gives him a soft smile, looking like the perfect, obedient princess. He tells her he did all of this just for her, and points out the rows of daffodils lining the railing. He claims he built this entire setup as a symbol of her beauty. She thanks him, calling the gesture thoughtful, but her internal monologue is screaming because daffodils were her dead son Minner's favorite flower. And this feels like a sick joke. Suddenly, Yin Chen drops to one knee, ready to secure the bag. He offers her a massive bouquet of those same daffodils, asking her to be his queen once more. He admits he took her for granted in the past, but claims he's been given a second chance to fix his mistakes. Su Luo's mind immediately flashes back to the last time they were married, when he literally buried her alive. As she looks at her reflection in the dark water, she wonders if he's actually forgotten her execution. Yin Chen stares up at her, waiting for the yes that will fix his conscience. He admits out loud that he knows she remembers everything. He begs her not to leave him even if she hates his guts. Internally, she's laughing, thinking he should be very careful what he wishes for. Yin Chen looks worried for a split second, but then Su Luo drops the act and tells him she'll marry him. She says she had a feeling today would be special and she was right. Yin Chen looks like he just won the lottery, though his eyes still have that obsessive glow. He pulls her into a hug, celebrating that they are finally back together. He's over the moon that they've reunited, while Su Luo stands there holding the flowers with a look that says, "You're so cooked." To prove his devotion, he swears a dramatic oath that if he ever harms her during their marriage, he should be struck down by 1,000 arrows. She tells him she trusts him, while thinking to herself that she's going to return this favor tomorrow in the most brutal way possible. Cut to the next day, and the prince is back to the grind at his desk. The piece is short-circuited when Liu Miao Miao barges in, yelling that she has urgent tea to spill. Yin Chen doesn't even look up, telling her she's embarrassing herself. He eventually steps out to find a guard, holding the hysterical woman back. Miao Miao screams that the princess is currently cheating on him at a tavern with another man. Yin Chen is so done with her drama that he delivers a massive pimp slap that sends her flying. Clutching her bruised face, Miao Miao asks why she would ever lie to him. Yin Chen is confused because Su Luo just agreed to marry him the night before. Miao Miao begs him to come see for himself, promising that he can punish her however he wants if she's wrong. She clings to his robes like a desperate parasite. They arrive at the tavern, and Yin Chen kicks the door open, ready to catch a body. Instead of a secret lover, he finds Su Luo sitting calmly with a mysterious man, while Mother Liu is tied up and gagged on the floor. Miao Miao is absolutely stunned to see her mother caught in 4K. When Yin Chen tries to touch Su Luo, she coldly brushes his hand away. She asks him what family he's talking about, since he already took everything she ever loved. She reveals that she hasn't forgotten a single second of his betrayal and has been waiting for this exact moment. She pulls out a document as Yin Chen's face pales. He tries to gaslight her one more time, claiming he just confused her with some girl named Rear. Su Luo ignores the nonsense and introduces her master Bai Mo, before ordering a guard to bring in a new witness. A man is dragged in and Miao Miao panics, realizing she failed to pay him enough to leave town. The man immediately snitches, pointing at Miao Miao and calling her the woman who seduced him. Su Luo demands to know the truth about whose kid Miao Miao was actually carrying and who drugged the prince. Mother Liu, fearing for her life, finally cracks and admits the child didn't belong to the prince. She confesses that they drugged Yin Chen because he never had eyes for Miao Miao, and they needed a cover story for the pregnancy. Miao Miao tries to play the victim, yelling at her mother for lying. Su Luo just scoffs at the pathetic attempt at more scheming. Miao Miao clings to Yin Chen, begging him to believe her. But the prince has finally seen the light and kicks her away like trash, calling her a whore. Mother Liu keeps talking, admitting Miao Miao ordered her to spy on Su Luo just set this tavern trap. In a fit of rage, Miao Miao pushes her own mother to the ground. Mother Liu begs the princess for an antidote, admitting she only did what Miao Miao forced her to do. Su Luo lists off the receipts: the murder of the handmaid Chun Ying, the death of her unborn child, and leaving Minner to burn. She dangles the antidote over the trembling woman. Miao Miao tries to act tough, claiming there's no proof since the doctor involved is dead. Bai Mo sets down his tea and reveals that the doctor actually wrote a confession letter before his accidental death. He holds up the paper for everyone to see. Miao Miao realizes she's completely cornered. Yin Chen snatches the letter and reads the doctor's apology, confirming Miao Miao forced him to poison Su Luo. The prince's face twists in pure, unadulterated rage. Mother Liu continues her confession spree, revealing Miao Miao was the one who stabbed Zinger and framed the child. She adds that they used safflower to trigger Su Luo's miscarriage. This is the final straw for Miao Miao, who lunges at her mother and starts strangling her. Yin Chen watches the chaos, finally realizing he was the world's biggest idiot for not trusting his wife. He demands to know what other secrets are hiding. Mother Liu screams that Miao Miao killed the maid out of pure spite. Su Luo looks on coldly, asking who really saved her people. She stands tall with her master while the Liu family crumbles. Finally, Yin Chen unsheathes his sword, his voice cold as ice as he asks took Minner's body after the fire. The mask is officially off and the receipts are out. Su Luo is done playing games and demands to know exactly where Minner's body was taken after the fire. Yin Chen stands there looking like a kicked puppy because he's finally realizing he's been the world's biggest clown this entire time. The whole squad has the Liu family surrounded and the vibes in the room are absolutely rancid. Mother Liu starts leaking like a faucet, blaming Miao Miao for the boy's death but swearing she knows nothing about a stolen corpse. Su Luo isn't buying the act and accuses the old lady of starting the fire just to get revenge for her other daughter, Raoer. Internally, Su Luo scoffed. Nice try, but your acting is a 0 out of 10. Mother Liu continues to beg for mercy, claiming Miao Miao is the real liar here. Su Luo can't help but tear up thinking about poor Minner, who deserved way better than this family of snakes. Miao Miao tries a last-ditch effort to play the victim, clinging to Yin Chen and claiming her mother forced her into the plan. Su Luo is officially short-circuiting at the sheer audacity of this girl. She pulls out the ultimate receipt, proving Miao Miao is responsible for murdering her own sister and trashing Su Luo's father's reputation. Miao Miao tries to play it off with a "who me?" face, but it's way too late for denials. Bai brings in the witnesses, and Yin Chen asks the guys to identify which of these women hired them for their dirty work. The guys don't hesitate for a single second. They point their fingers straight at Miao Miao, catching her in 4K. Miao Miao collapses as the witness spills the tea on how she promised them money and women to do her bidding. In a flashback, we see Miao Miao handing over a bag of gold on a bridge like a low-budget mob boss. The witness explains that he only survived because he got sick and couldn't finish the job, which kept him out of the line of fire. His friends weren't so lucky and met some pretty gruesome ends thanks to her schemes. Bai Mo eventually tracked this guy down before he could disappear forever. The witness admits he was too terrified to speak up until the master intervened and gave him a chance to talk. Yin Chen finally snaps, realizing he's been sleeping with a literal devil who killed her own flesh and blood. He puts his sword right to Miao Miao's throat, ready to end the drama once and for all. Instead of begging, Miao Miao goes full psycho and tells him to just go ahead and finish her off. She screams about being nothing but a cheap replacement for her sister for the last 4 years, living in a constant shadow. Her logic is basically, if she can't have the prince, then nobody else is allowed to have him either. Su Luo asks if she really offed her own sister just to secure the bag with Yin Chen. Yin Chen is shaking with rage, demanding the truth about whether she killed Roar. Miao Miao admits she was drowning in jealousy because Yin Chen still had feelings for her sister even after all that time. She claims Roar stole him first, so she decided to settle the score permanently. She describes how she seized the opportunity to slip poison into her sister's medicine right after she gave birth. The girl's smile is actually terrifying as she recounts her crimes. Yin Chen raises his sword to deliver some instant karma for her deceit. Miao Miao just smirks and tells him to stop acting so righteous in all of this. Su Luo watches the chaos unfold, wondering if Yin Chen will actually pull the trigger or if he's just venting. Miao Miao doubles down, claiming Yin Chen used her for his own selfish purpose too. She claims she framed Su Luo just to help him avenge his mother, and he was happy to go along with it. Internally, she sneered, "Did you really think I couldn't see your true motive?" Yin Chen looks blindsided as she brings up how he helped ruin Su Luo's father by accusing him of collaborating with the enemy. We see a glimpse of the absolute tragedy that fell upon Su Luo's family because of these lies. Miao Miao laughs that if Yin Chen hadn't locked Su Luo in the palace, she never could have destroyed the unborn baby. Yin Chen is absolutely losing his mind at the realization that he was his own worst enemy. The tension between him and Su Luo is so thick you'd need a chainsaw to cut through it. Yin Chen's spirit is crushed, and his sword clatters to the floor with a heavy ring. He looks like he's aged 20 years in 5 minutes, while Su Luo stays cold as ice. Miao Miao keeps yapping about how she's been jealous of Su Luo from the moment she arrived at the palace. She claims the prince only had eyes for Su Luo, even when Miao Miao was faking her pregnancy. She yells that she would have done anything to make Su Luo feel the same pain she felt. She brags that her plan worked perfectly because now the two of them can never be together again. She even laughs about how Yin Chen literally buried Su Luo alive in a coffin. Bai Mo steps in to support Su Luo before she collapses from the trauma of hearing it all again. Su Luo puts on a brave face and tells him she's fine, though she's clearly reached her limit. Yin Chen curses his own stupidity for ever showing Miao Miao an ounce of pity. Miao Miao is still confused about one thing. How did Su Luo even survive that burial? Yin Chen looks at Bai Mo, waiting for the explanation. Bai Mo reveals he gave Su Luo a cocktail of herbs to fake her death and save her from the prince's execution. Seeing her world crumble, Miao Miao reaches for the sword sitting on the floor. She lunges forward, trying to take Su Luo out with her in one final act of spite. She screams that Su Luo has officially taken her last breath. Yin Chen rushes in to shield Su Luo from the attack. A sickening sound fills the room as the blade is stopped. Yin Chen stands firm with the bloody sword, warning her that she won't dare hurt Su Luo. Miao Miao falls to the ground, finally defeated and broken. She cries out, asking why he's being so cruel to her after everything she did for him. Yin Chen has zero sympathy left and orders the guards to take her away immediately. Miao Miao is hauled out like the trash she is, screaming her head off the entire way. The room falls into a heavy, awkward silence once she's gone. Yin Chen turns to Su Luo, his voice trembling as he asks if she could ever forgive him for his role in her father's death. Su Luo just looks away, her heart too heavy to give him the answer he's looking for. Just when things couldn't get more chaotic, a mysterious woman walks into the room. She looks like she's seen some serious stuff, and the tension in the air is thick enough to cut with a dull knife. Turns out this isn't just a random villager, it's Mother Wu from the Herbal Canyon. Everyone is stunned as she stands before the group, looking totally out of place in this royal mess. Yin Chen is absolutely blindsided, recognizing her as the woman who supposedly cared for Su Luo during her exile. But then she drops the real bomb. She's actually Anya, the princess of the Western Kingdom and Yin Chen's own aunt. She hands over a jade token to prove her royal bloodline is legit. Yin Chen stares at the trinket, his brain probably short-circuiting as he realizes his long-lost aunt has been hiding in plain sight this whole time. He demands to know what kind of game she's playing, and Anya starts spilling the tea. After their kingdom was wiped out 15 years ago, she was forced to flee and go into witness protection mode. She was saved by the former master of the Herbal Canyon and lived there in secrecy until she realized Su Luo went missing 5 years ago. She even watched as Bai Mo sent out search parties to find her. It turns out Anya was the ultimate third wheel, eavesdropping on Yin Chen and Su Luo as they confessed their love for each other. She saw them together and realized things were about to get messy for the family tree. Seeing the conflict on Yin Chen's face when he learned who Su Luo really was, she decided to play God and make the choice for him. Internally, she probably thought, "No way is my nephew marrying the daughter of our biggest hater." She used the fact that Su Luo had trusted her since childhood to set a massive trap. She invited the happy couple to a celebratory dinner that was actually a one-way ticket to forget-me-not land. Anya slipped some high-grade amnesia tonic into their tea, and they both passed out before they could even finish their meal. She dragged Yin Chen's unconscious body to the exit of the Valley of Wolves, sprinkled him with wolf repellent so he wouldn't get eaten, and headed back to the canyon with Su Luo. She just left him face down in the dirt like a discarded NPC. When Su Luo finally woke up, Anya gaslit her into thinking she just had way too much to drink at dinner. She lied straight to her face, claiming Yin Chen had already ditched her to head back to the capital. Yin Chen is furious that his own flesh and blood was the one who nuked his memories and ruined his life. But Bai Mo steps up, explaining that once he found Su Luo years later and heard about the amnesia, he started connecting the dots. He stands tall, revealing he had Anya under his radar for quite a while. Anya looks like she's been caught in 4K and doesn't know where to turn. Bai Mo recalls the moment he sat her down and addressed her by her true title, Princess Anya. She was totally shook, asking how he could possibly know her secret identity. Bai Mo explains that the former master confessed everything on his deathbed and told him to ensure she was taken care of. He knew she was the only witness to what actually happened in the Valley of Wolves. Anya snaps, screaming that she couldn't let Su Luo become a princess after what her family did to their kingdom. But Bai pulls out the receipts, literally handing over some old letters. Anya reads them and her face goes pale as she realizes she messed up big time. She starts sobbing, admitting she framed Su Luo's family for a crime they didn't even commit. Yin Chen is losing his mind, realizing his entire revenge arc was based on a massive lie. He stumbles back, wondering how 15 years of hatred could have been so misplaced. The group turns to leave him in his misery. Bai Mo explains that Su Luo's father entrusted him with these letters because he knew Yin Chen would never meet him face to face. He stares Yin Chen down, telling him to face the music. This is the cold, hard truth, whether he chooses to believe it or not. They move the conversation to a tavern to hash out the rest of the details. Su Luo listens as they explain the contents of the second letter. It details how the emperor summoned his court after the Western Kingdom was invaded. Su Luo's father actually proposed a rescue mission, but the emperor forced him to publicly oppose it to save his own skin. We get a look at the emperor's cold, calculating face as he plotted his next move. It was all a massive conspiracy formulated by the emperor to let the Western Kingdom fall. Yin Chen reads the proof, realizing the emperor played him like a fiddle for years. Su Luo cries out that the emperor should have been the target of his revenge, not her innocent father. Su Luo is totally done with this drama and tells her master it's time to bounce. Yin Chen tries to stop her, but his hand just hangs in the air. He knows he's got zero ground to stand on after everything he's done. He admits that even though the emperor pulled the strings, he's still the one who took the blame for her father's death. He swears he'll make things right, but Su Luo doesn't even bother looking back. Bai Mo comforts her as they walk away, leaving Yin Chen in the dust. He tells her it's time to go and never look back. Yin Chen watches from a distance, finally accepting that they can never be together again. He stands alone in the empty room, looking like a man who's lost his entire world. Su Luo and Bai Mo head out into the snow, leaving the past behind them. She looks up at the sky, telling the spirits of her family that they've finally been avenged. Her eyes are filled with a mix of relief and deep sorrow. Bai Mo tells her she doesn't have to stay strong and can cry as much as she needs to. She thanks him, knowing he's been her only real MVP through this whole nightmare. He promises to do anything to make sure she stays protected from here on out. She leans into him, finally finding a small moment of peace. He tells her that even if she wants to leave, the Herbal Canyon will always be her home base. Su Luo hops on her horse and says her final goodbyes to her master. Bai Mo watches her ride off, a lone figure disappearing into the winter landscape. Back in the capital, Yin Chen heads to the dungeons where the air is thick with screams of pain. The sound of pure agony echoes through the stone halls. He walks in to find Meow Meow chained up and looking like a total wreck. Her life as a fake princess is officially over. In the corner, a pot of coals is glowing hot, ready for the next interrogation. Meow Meow sees him and starts ranting about how Su Luo has probably fallen for Bai Mo by now. The guards look on, clearly bored of her crazy talk. She starts wailing at the top of her lungs, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. She's crying buckets of tears, but nobody in this room is coming to save her. Yin Chen isn't done with her yet, ordering the guards to wake her up if she passes out. The guard nods, ready to follow his prince's orders. He splashes a bucket of cold water over her to keep her conscious for the next round. Meow Meow screams in pain as she realizes death would be a mercy she's definitely not going to get anytime soon. Fireworks light up the night sky as the Northern Kingdom throws a massive party for its 10th anniversary. The emperor is feeling himself on the throne, soaking in the praise of his court. Everyone is bowing down, wishing him health and prosperity while they basically kiss the floor. Yin Chen is right there in the mix, playing the part of the loyal brother and raising a glass to the man who ruined his life. The emperor is totally blindsided by the act and thanks Yin Chen for the toast. An official suggests bringing in some dancers to keep the vibes high, and the emperor is all for it. He waves a hand, giving the green light for the performance to start. The show is top tier, and the court is absolutely loving the spectacle. But Yin Chen isn't distracted by the fancy footwork. He looks like he's ready to commit a felony. Internally, he growled, "You built this entire kingdom on my mother's corpse." By the time the party winds down, the emperor is completely wasted and can barely stand. He's stumbling around asking where Duke Qin went, clearly forgetting his own schedule. Apparently, the Duke headed home early to celebrate with his family, leaving the emperor to his own devices. Yin Chen plays the dutiful servant, helping the drunk ruler back to his chambers while telling him to watch his step. Once they're alone, the emperor starts getting emotional, telling Yin Chen that he was always the special one in their father's eyes. Yin Chen doesn't want to hear the fake nostalgia and just tells him to lie down before he hurts himself. He sets the emperor's crown aside, finally ready to drop the mask. The emperor confesses that he was so jealous and full of hate back then that it consumed him. He admits he was terrified the kingdom would choose Yin Chen as the next ruler, so he took the concubine out of the picture to secure his spot. Yin Chen is shaking with rage, asking if a stupid title was really worth all that blood. He finally snaps, grabbing the emperor by the collar and screaming that the concubine he murdered was his mother. The emperor just closes his eyes, trying to play the I had no choice card. Yin Chen calls him despicable and shoves him back of the bed with pure disgust. He walks out of the room, telling the servants to ensure no harm befalls him, which is definitely code for something darker. Next, Yin Chen makes a pit stop at Han Temple to drop off a mysterious child. The head monk greets him with respect and promises to look after the little guy. Yin Chen stands there looking conflicted, watching the kid he's about to leave behind. The boy is a total sweetheart, bowing and thanking the monk for his kindness. He's got those big innocent eyes, but Yin Chen has to stay focused on the mission. He stares off into the distance, his face a mask of cold determination. He gives the kid one last pat on the head and tells him it's time to go. The scenery is peaceful, but the tension is real. Yin Chen watches the boy walk away with the monk, knowing this might be their final goodbye. Cut to the outskirts of the kingdom, where the real chaos is brewing. Yin Chen is addressing his private army, calling them the best soldiers in the land. They've been training in secret, waiting for the moment to strike. Yin Chen looks like a true commander, fueled by years of misplaced revenge and trauma. He tells them he's rebelling to avenge his mother and gives them one last chance to back out without punishment. But these guys are ride or die. They shout that they'll follow him to the death. They raise their spears in unison, officially starting the coup. Fast forward 3 years and the royal palace is a literal war zone. The Chen flag is flying, but it's surrounded by bodies and blood. Yin Chen leads a final charge through the gates, looking like he stepped out of a nightmare. He stands before the emperor, telling him he's been planning this day for 3 long years. The emperor, now decked out in battle armor, offers him a final chance to surrender out of respect for their brotherhood. Yin Chen just grips his sword, his knuckles turning white. He mocks the idea of brotherhood after losing Su Luo and his children because of the emperor's greed. He calls his brother a selfish snake who would do anything for the throne. The emperor realizes the talk is over and tells Yin Chen he's going to die right here. Archers suddenly appear on the rooftops, ready to rain hell down on Yin Chen's position. Yin Chen's men prepare to hold the line. The emperor gives the order to fire, and it's officially game over for the peace. A swarm of arrows fills the sky, heading straight for the rebellion. While the capital is burning, the scene shifts to a peaceful village far away. People are just living their lives, totally unaware of the coup. Bai Mo is sitting at a tea stall with a young girl who looks suspiciously familiar. The girl looks up at him with big blue eyes, clearly waiting for an answer. She asks when they're finally going to find her mommy. Bai Mo sips his tea, promising her that they won't give up until they find her. The girl is a little firecracker, swearing she'll never abandon her mom. The waiter brings their food, and the girl's stomach takes over the conversation. Bai Mo tells her to eat quickly so they can keep moving. Nearby, some travelers are gossiping about a beautiful doctor in Liushan who treats the poor for free. Bai Mo's eyes widen as he connects the dots. Internally, he whispered, "Could that really be my Luo?" Sure enough, Su Luo is in Liushan, helping an old man with his checkup. She's looking like a total saint, telling him he'll be healed in no time if he takes his meds. The man calls her a gift from the heavens, but then mentions the tea in the capital is boiling over. He says the coup failed, Yin Chen is dead, and the emperor might be gone too. Su Luo goes cold for a second. Internally, she thought, I guess we both got exactly what we deserved in the end. She shakes it off and calls for the next patient, trying to stay busy. Another woman mentions that a crazy woman has taken the throne in the capital, and Su Luo wonders if Meow Meow finally got what she wanted. Her mood lifts when she tells a patient she's pregnant, making the woman's day. The woman is crying tears of joy, thanking Su Luo for the blessing. But the news hits different for Su Luo, who can't help but think about her own children. Later, Su Luo heads into the mountains to gather more herbs. She's walking through the woods when she hears a voice calling her name. She freezes, her heart skipping a beat. It's Bai Mo. She can't believe her master actually tracked her down. She notices the child with him and asks who the sweet boy is. Internally, her heart broke, thinking her son Minner would be the same age if he hadn't died in the fire. Bai Mo says he's been searching for her for over a year and finally found her in this remote village. Then, he drops the biggest bombshell of the series, telling the boy to say hello to his mother. Su Luo is completely short-circuiting, looking at the boy like she's seen a ghost. Bai Mo explains that on the night of the fire, he broke into the palace to save them both. He found Minner barely hanging on and set the fire to cover up the fact that he was taking him. He didn't want to give her false hope until he knew the boy would survive. But by then, she had disappeared. The little boy looks up at her, asking if she's really his mommy. Su Luo is speechless, the realization hitting her like a freight train. She breaks down and pulls her son into a massive hug, finally reunited after years of thinking he was gone forever. The palace guards aren't playing around today, immediately raining down a literal storm of death on the rebels. Yin Chen charges forward on his horse, but even his plot armor can't deflect every projectile flying his way. A stray arrow finds its mark, piercing right through his chest and stopping the rebellion's momentum in its tracks. As the life drains out of him, the cold reality of his failure finally sinks in. Suddenly, a vision of Su Luo appears before his fading eyes, looking like a literal angel amidst the carnage. His mind drifts back to the simple life they once had, before the palace drama turned everything into a total dumpster fire. It all went south when he got gaslit into believing Su Luo was responsible for his mother's death. He tried to drown his sorrows in booze, but his obsession with revenge was a toxic cocktail he couldn't stop drinking. Even though the emperor forced the marriage, he couldn't help but feel like a massive clown for how he handled their relationship. Despite the hate, he accidentally fell for his enemy, and they even had a child together. But his ego wouldn't let him protect her, standing by while Miao Miao treated Su Luo like absolute trash. Internally, he's screaming, "I really speedran every possible mistake a husband could make." He hit peak villain status by watching her entire family get executed while he just stood there. He acted like a stone-cold statue while she lost everything piece by piece. When the palace went up in flames, he watched her dive into the fire to save their son, finally feeling a spark of self-loathing for his actions. The nightmares haunt him now, filled with beasts and the consequences of his own cruelty. He claimed to love her, yet he was the main source of her trauma throughout their entire marriage. The other women were just pawns in his grand revenge scheme, but he ended up losing the only person who actually mattered. He tried to play the caring husband when she was at death's door, but it was way too little, way too late. Without her, his life was basically a hollow shell, and he was finally catching on to his own mistakes. Driven by peak toxic energy, he even ordered her to be buried alive just so she couldn't leave his side. Watching her get lowered into that coffin was a level of yikes that no amount of apologizing could ever fix. He thought he was just scaring her into staying, but he ended up being the ultimate villain in her story. Seeing her lying there, pale and broken, he finally realized he had absolutely fumbled the bag. Once she was gone, the world turned gray, and the palace felt like a haunted house. When the truth finally came out, he knew he had zero chance of ever getting a redemption arc in her eyes. He spent the next 3 years living like a ghost, wandering through the wilderness while plotting his final move. His only goal now was to burn the current regime down to avenge both their families. Before the final battle, he made sure to settle some old scores, starting with the snake Miao Miao. He locked her up and made sure her life in prison was a literal living nightmare. Seeing her lose her mind in that cell was the only bit of closure he could manage after all the chaos. To save his son from this cycle of hatred, he sent Singer away to live a peaceful life as a monk. Watching the boy walk away was the hardest thing he ever did, but he knew he wasn't fit to be a father. Finally, the day of the grand coup arrived, and he led his troops straight into the lion's den at the Grand Court. His soldiers were ready to die for the cause, raising their spears for one last glorious stand. Standing at the gates, he made peace with the fact that he was probably heading for a bad ending. The arrows fly, the blood spills, and Yin Chen finally falls as his tragic story reaches its final page. With his last breath, he whispers the only truth he ever truly felt. "Luor, I love you."